this delicious lunch. During the meal, Lin Xuan suddenly asked, "Mom, how long will it take for you to retire?" Huang Shifang was stunned for a moment, then replied, "There are still more than 2 years left, what's the problem?" Lin Xuan smiled and said, "Mom, why don't you quit your job at the supermarket?" Hearing this, Huang Shifang was stunned in surprise. Chapter 112. Stop having random thoughts. But soon, Huang Shifang came to his senses. She looked at Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao with a smile on her face and said, "Lin Xuan, I know you are doing well now, but if I were to retire early and suddenly have nothing to do, I would not be able to adapt." Huang Shifang has been busy for Li Mengyao for the past decade. If she is suddenly asked to stay at home and do nothing, she would indeed feel bored and uncomfortable. "Ma, we know you won't be able to adapt. So Lin Xuan bought a shop for you downstairs in Times Garden," Li Mengyao explained with a smile. Hearing this, Huang Shifang couldn't help but frown and said, "Shop, Lin Xuan, you're wasting money again." Lin Xuan waved his hand quickly and said with a smile, "It's okay, this shop will be managed by you in the future when the time comes. You can open the shop when you want to, and rest when you want to. It's also very close to home." After Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao's strong persuasion, Huang Shifang finally agreed reluctantly. Although she still felt that it was a waste of money, Huang Shifang was still very pleased to see her two children being so filial. So in the afternoon, after finishing her last day of work, Huang Shifang submitted her resignation to the company. Despite her boss's repeated attempts to keep her, she has made up her mind to enjoy a leisurely life. Eventually, she succeeded in quitting her job. "Shifang, why did you suddenly resign?" Huang Shifang's colleague Chen Li asked in surprise. "My children wouldn't let me continue working. They said I had worked so hard for so many years and it was time for me to take a good rest," Huang Shifang explained with a smile. "Oh, I really envy you for having such a filial child. What do you plan to do in the future?" Chen Li asked curiously. "Well, my child bought me a shop downstairs in Times Garden and let me open my own small shop," Huang Shifang replied happily. "Wow, this is really great. I can make money and have free time at the same time," Chen Li exclaimed in praise. Then Chen Li thought about how her son gradually ignored her after he got married. "My stinky son. Never mind, congratulations." As night falls, the whole city is immersed in silence. After dinner, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao walked out of the house hand in hand and strolled on the tree-lined path in the community. The community of Times Garden is very large, with green trees, blooming flowers, and gentle breezes blowing on your face, bringing bursts of refreshing floral fragrance. The soft light shines through the lush branches and leaves, and the interweaving of light and shadow is like a dream. Everything is so harmonious in this quiet and beautiful night. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao walked slowly along the path and saw many people enjoying this wonderful time. Some elderly people sat in the rest area playing chess and chatting, some oddies danced square dance in the open space, and their laughter echoed in the air, and a group of innocent and cute little kids played and frolicked in the entertainment area, chasing and fighting, and laughing constantly. The two continued walking forward and came to a bush of flowers. Li Mengyao reached out and gently touched the petals, feeling their softness and delicacy. Lin Xuan stood aside, quietly admiring Li Mengyao's beauty, his eyes full of love. "Honey, do you think you will feel uncomfortable in the pet shop?" Li Mengyao suddenly thought of her own kitten and felt a little worried. "Of course not, you was originally bought from that pet shop. The staff there will definitely take good care of it," Lin Xuan comforted. Since Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao had to return to Jingshui City, they could only leave Yu in the Miao pet shop. Then, Li Mengyao's attention was attracted by the children who were playing on the slide not far away. She looked at the innocent smiles of the children, her heart full of anticipation. "Honey, my children will be able to play happily like them in the future." Li Mengyao gently stroked her belly and said with a smile. "I will," Lin Xuan said gently, holding Li Mengyao's hand and continuing to walk forward. But at this moment, Li Mengyao suddenly felt a little doubtful. If it weren't for the child, would Lin Xuan still be her husband? This thought made her heart tighten suddenly, as if an invisible force was tearing at her insides. She stopped, stared at Lin Xuan, and asked softly, "Husband, let me ask you a question." "Wife, what's wrong?" Lin Xuan felt something was wrong with Li Mengyao and said gently. Li Mengyao took a deep breath. Her eyes became unusually serious, and she even asked with a hint of nervousness, if there hadn't been that night, and if there hadn't been our child, would you still like me?" When Lin Xuan heard this, his body shook slightly. But soon, Lin Xuan walked forward gently, embraced Li Mengyao in his arms, and his hand gently stroked her hair. He said in a low but firm voice, "Even if there hadn't been that night, you and I would have met in the future and fallen in love, and you can't escape from my palm." Lin Xuan pressed his forehead against Li Mengyao, his gentle breath brushing across her face like a spring breeze, making her feel extremely at ease. His words were like a gurgling stream, nourishing Li Mengyao's soul. She raised her head, tears glistening in her eyes. And she finally understood that regardless of that night, their love was destined. Even if Lin Xuan didn't find her, she would take the initiative to come to him. Lin Xuan was right. Even if that night hadn't happened, he would have fallen deeply in love with Li Mengyao if he had met her in the future. Who can not love such a beautiful, gentle, kind and charming pure school beauty? Even if the course of fate changes, their love will shine like the stars and will never fade away. Don't have those random thoughts anymore, okay? Lin Xuan gently pinched Li Mengyao's nose and smiled lovingly. Li Mengyao nodded shyly, with a happy smile on her little face. Lin Xuan looked at Li Mengyao's cute appearance and couldn't help but kiss her cheek. Li Mengyao's little face turned red instantly. She lowered her head shyly and said coquettously, "I know, he's still outside." As she spoke, her little hand tried to push Lin Xuan away. Lin Xuan smiled slightly, then he let go of Li Mengyao, and continued to hold her hand and stroll in the beautiful garden. After a while, Li Mengyao felt a little tired, so they returned home. At this time, Huang Qifang had already returned to her room to sleep, leaving only Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao in the living room. They sat quietly on the solid wood sofa and played with their mobile phones. Lin Xuan suddenly noticed a photo album under the table. He reached out to take it curiously, and when he was about to open it, Li Mengyao at the side quickly snatched it away. "Husband, don't look," Li Mengyao said in panic. "Why?" Lin Xuan asked, puzzled. "Lie. No reason, just don't look," Li Mengyao pouted. "Let your husband guess, is this an ugly photo of you when you were a child?" Lin Xuan had a sly smile on his face. "Since you said it was an ugly photo, I can't show it to you," Li Mengyao pouted, looking unhappy. After she finished speaking, she stood up with the photo album and hurried towards the room. Lin Xuan shook his head helplessly and smiled faintly. "There will be plenty of opportunities to see in the future." Chapter 113. When has your husband ever cheated on you? The next day came, and the sunlight poured into the room through the gaps in the curtains. Lin Xuan slowly opened his eyes and felt a warm breath coming towards him. He lowered his head and found Li Mengyao nestling in his arms, exuding a charming fragrance. He couldn't help but kiss her white forehead. Then Lin Xuan remembered the photo album from last night, and a hint of curiosity and anticipation surged in his heart. He carefully climbed up from the bed, walked to the bedside, squatted down, and groped to find the storage box that Li Mengyao had hidden under the bed. He gently opened the lid and found the photo album as expected. The corners of Lin Xuan's mouth rose slightly, revealing a smug smile. After all, he and Li Mengyao had lived together for a long time, and he knew where she hid things. Lin Xuan carried the photo album back to the bed and gently turned each page, as if he had entered a time tunnel. The photos in the album made Lin Xuan's eyes light up. They were all photos of Li Mengyao when she was a child. Looking at those chubby and cute photos, Lin Xuan couldn't help but laugh out loud. Girls really change a lot as they grow up. They become more and more beautiful. Lin Xuan fantasized about his wife's childhood memories, flipping through the photo album and chuckling from time to time. At this moment, the beauty in his arms trembled slightly, but Lin Xuan, who was concentrating on admiring the photo album, did not notice that Li Mengyao beside him had gradually woken up. After a while, Li Mengyao finally opened her beautiful eyes. She rubbed her eyes and stretched. Then she yawned and gradually came to consciousness. When she turned around and saw Lin Xuan flipping through her childhood photo album, a shy expression instantly appeared on her face. "Wife, are you awake?" Lin Xuan noticed Li Mengyao's movement and asked with a smile. "My stinky husband, why are you peeking again?" Li Mengyao pouted her lips cutely, her face full of shyness. "I found it by accident," Lin Xuan said with a grin. "I don't believe you. Give it to me now." Li Mengyao stretched out a little hand, signaling Lin Xuan to return the photo album to her quickly. "My wife was very cute when she was a child." Lin Xuan handed the photo album to Li Mengyao with a helpless look on his face. "Really?" Li Mengyao asked with some doubt. "Of course it's true. When has your husband ever lied to you?" Lin Xuan smiled gently. "Don't you always find ways to trick me into giving you a kiss?" Li Mengyao scolded angrily. "That's a way for couples to enhance their feeling show. Can you say it's a lie?" Snort. Li Mengyao snorted softly, but still leaned her little head gently on Lin Xuan's shoulder, then turned the pages of the photo album to show her husband and happily shook her little feet. After reading it, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao walked out of the bedroom together and came to the hall. At this time, Huang Qifang had already prepared a steaming hot breakfast. "Mom, good morning," Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Good morning, are you hungry?" "Breakfast is ready," Huang Qifang said with a smile. So Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao began to enjoy their delicious breakfast. After breakfast, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao took Huang Qifang to the boutique shop downstairs. Huang Qifang looked at the small shop carefully and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. "Mom, what kind of store are you planning to open with this shop?" Li Mengyao asked with a smile. "Let me think about it. How about opening a convenience store? This will make it more convenient for nearby residents to shop, and I can also make some money," Huang Qifang said. That's good by then. Mom's schedule will be more flexible and she can arrange it freely. Lin Juan nodded in agreement. The three of them returned home and got busy. Lin Juan and Li Mengyao sat on the lazy chairs on the balcony, enjoying the warmth of the sun. The couple continued to be together, admiring the surroundings and chatting about their future plans and dreams. Wang Shifang began to prepare for the decoration of the shop. She seriously considered how to create a convenience store that would attract customers. It was evening, the sun was setting, and the afterglow was fading away. Li Mengyao sat quietly on the sofa in the living room, holding a book in her hands, reading attentively and quietly. However, when she looked up by chance, her eyes were attracted by the scenery outside the window. The sky is filled with colorful sunset glow, like a mysterious and magnificent picture scroll unfolding before our eyes. She stood up excitedly, walked lightly to the spacious balcony, and stared into the distance. I saw the evening sun gradually setting, emitting a charming orange light, like a layer of soft gauze, gently covering the entire community. Through the mottled leaves, the sun shines on the lawn of the community, like pieces of fine gold, shining with warm and bright light. Hubby, come and see. It's so beautiful. Li Mengyao turned her head excitedly and called Lin Juan to come and enjoy the beautiful scene together. When Lin Juan heard the voice, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a faint smile. He walked quickly into the bedroom and took out the Nikon Z7 II camera. Lin Juan walked to the balcony and pointed the camera at Li Mengyao's profile. At this moment, the evening glow was like a dreamy veil, gently draped over her profile, creating a charming blush that was breathtakingly beautiful. Lin Juan pressed the shutter and captured this beautiful scene. Wife, shall we go downstairs in the community to take pictures? The scenery will be better there. Lin Juan said with a smile. Okay. Li Mengyao's eyes were curved with joy. She quickly turned back to her bedroom and changed into a sweet outfit. A white baby doll collar t-shirt paired with a fresh green maternity dress. This kind of outfit shows her elegance and grace, while also showing her youthful vitality. Honey, let's go quickly, the sun is about to set. Li Mengyao took Lin Juan's hand and walked out. Honey, go slow, there's no rush. Lin Juan supported Li Mengyao carefully, fearing that she would get bumped or hurt. Soon, Lin Juan brought Li Mengyao to the downstairs of the community. The two looked for a suitable place to take photos and finally found a piece of open grass, where the light was the brightest and just right. At this moment, the sun sets and the afterglow illuminates the orange sky, which is beautiful. Li Mengyao turned her back to the evening glow. She gently tucked her hair behind her ears and a peaceful smile appeared on her face. At this moment, Lin Juan's heart began beating violently. He quickly took out his Nikon camera, carefully adjusted the angle and lighting, and pressed the shutter button. With a click, a beautiful photo was born. In the photo, Li Mengyao looks like a fairy descending from the earth, beautiful and charming. Her smile is as bright as the sun, warming people's hearts. Chapter 114. Wife, who can you calm down like this? After taking pictures, Lin Juan and Li Mengyao went home happily. After returning home, Lin Juan went into the kitchen and started preparing dinner, while Li Mengyao took the Nikon Z7 II and looked at the beautiful photos they had just taken with her mother. After a while, a sumptuous dinner was ready. Let's eat, Lin Juan shouted. Lin Juan served for dishes and a soup. Li Mengyao is 5 months pregnant and has two babies, so she eats a lot. Li Mengyao came to the restaurant happily, swallowed her saliva, her eyes shining. All of them were her favorite foods. Lin Juan made them a serving of braised beef and soy sauce, which was rosy in color and tender and juicy. The steamed sea bass was delicious and tender. The cumin squid was fragrant, crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The eggplant stewed with tomatoes was sweet and sour, with bright and attractive colors, and there was also a serving of duck meat and winter melon soup, which was light and delicious. These dishes are not only nutritious, but also delicious. Wow, it smells so good, my husband is so great, Li Mengyao said excitedly. She moved closer to Lin Juan, stood on tiptoe, and kissed Lin Juan on the cheek, seemingly having forgotten that her mother Wang Shifang was still watching and laughing at her. Li Mengyao realized it after the kiss and her face turned red with shame. Then, she sat down quietly and ate her meal in small sips. Lin Juan was amused by her actions and laughed out loud. He quickly picked up a piece of fish and fed it to her. Li Mengyao opened her little mouth, put the fish into her mouth, chewed it carefully, with a happy expression on her face. Lin Juan was particularly happy when he saw her eating with gusto. After eating, Li Mengyao burped, very comfortably. Seeing that his wife was a little full, Lin Juan showed an indulgent smile on his face. Wife, let's take a break and go for a walk. Lin Juan patted her shoulder gently and said with a smile. Okay, let's go for a walk by the Jingshui River tonight. Li Mengyao nodded in agreement. So, the two of them took a short rest and then walked out of the house together. Lin Juan drove a Bentley Continental and took Li Mengyao to the Jingshui River. When they arrived at the Jingshui River, Lin Juan parked the car, then took Li Mengyao's hand and strolled along the river bank. Now that the Mid-Autumn Festival is approaching, the round moon hangs high in the night sky, emitting bright and soft light. The bright moonlight shines on the river, making the waves sparkle like a dream. The breeze blew gently, ruffling Li Mengyao's hair and making it dance in the air. When Lin Xuan saw this scene, a warm feeling surged in his heart. He stretched out his fingers and gently tucked Li Mengyao's hair behind her ears, his eyes full of doting and care. The two of them held hands and walked forward step by step. They walked and chatted happily. However, at this moment, a person came towards her and caught Li Mengyao's attention. A look of surprise instantly appeared on her face, and she greeted happily, "Teacher Wu." Lin Xuan followed her gaze and saw a middle-aged woman appear in front of him. The woman had bright eyes and a serious face, revealing a frightening temperament. From the outside, she seems to be a very strict female teacher, which makes people feel an awe. But when she saw who was coming, the expression on her face suddenly changed 180 degrees and replaced with a warm smile. "Oh, isn't this Meng Yao? When did you come back?" Wu Qingdelingji said with a smile. "I just came back not long ago," Li Mengyao said with a smile. "You are getting more and more beautiful. I almost didn't recognize you," Wu Qingdelingji praised. "Thank you for the compliment, teacher. You are still so young and beautiful," Li Mengyao replied politely. Wu Qingdelingji looked Li Mengyao up and down, and suddenly noticed her slightly bulging belly. She couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Mengyao, what are you doing?" "Teacher, I'm married and now I'm pregnant." Li Mengyao touched her belly and smiled happily. "This is my husband, Lin Xuan." Li Mengyao pulled Lin Xuan over and introduced him to Wu Qingdelingji. "Hello, Teacher Wu," Lin Xuan greeted with a smile. "Hello, Lin Xuan, you are quite handsome," Wu Qingdelingji nodded with a smile. Congratulations, Mengyao, I didn't expect that you are already a mother to be. Time flies." Wu Qingdelingji continued with a sigh. So Li Mengyao and her teacher Wu Qingdelingji sat side by side on a bench by the river, recalling every detail of the past, and their laughter echoed in the air. Lin Xuan leaned quietly on the railing by the river, looking into the distance, enjoying the tranquility and beauty of the moment. Soon, Li Mengyao said goodbye to Teacher Wu, and Li Mengyao walked to Lin Xuan and patted him on the shoulder gently. "Hubby, let's keep going." Lin Xuan turned around and looked at his beautiful wife in front of him, a happy smile on his face. They walked hand in hand along the river bank. Lin Xuan asked curiously, "Was that your high school teacher?" Li Mengyao nodded, with gratitude in her eyes. "Yes. She was very good to me in high school and always took good care of me." Lin Xuan thought of Teacher Wu whom he had just met and couldn't help but sigh. "From the outside, she seems a bit strict." Li Mengyao explained with a smile, "Hubby, don't be fooled by Teacher Wu's serious face. In fact, she is a very gentle person, but in order to make her students achieve better results, she has to show her strict side." Lin Xuan nodded thoughtfully, and then jokingly said, "Will our teacher Li be like this in the future?" After Li Mengyao gives birth to her baby, she plans to become a teacher. Li Mengyao was slightly startled, then she smiled sweetly. "Maybe, after all, teachers have to be strict with their students. But I believe the kids will like me." "Honey, do you think I can control elementary school students like this?" Li Mengyao deliberately put on a fierce expression, put her hands on her hips, glared at Lin Xuan fiercely, and her tone also became fierce. Lin Xuan looked at her like this and couldn't help laughing. "Wife, who can you calm down like this?" He smiled and reached out to pinch her face, thinking she was so cute. Li Mengyao was a little discouraged when she heard this, but she still said unconvinced lie, "Why can't I calm down? I am very fierce." As she spoke, she deliberately put on a stern face, trying to show her authority. However, Lin Xuan didn't buy it at all and was still laughing. Seeing that he was not afraid of her at all, Li Mengyao couldn't help but feel a little angry and said coquettously, "Don't laugh." Chapter 115 Liberal Arts Champion. The two continued walking forward, and soon they found the old man who was selling candied haws before. "Grandpa Tang Hulu, I'm here again." Li Mengyao ran up excitedly and greeted Grandpa Tang Hulu. "Little girl, you are here again. What flavor would you like to eat today?" Grandpa Tang Hulu asked with a kind smile. Li Mengyao stood in front of the candied haws stall, looking at the colorful and crystal clear candied haws. Her eyes were dazzled, and she didn't know which one to choose for a moment. "Grandpa, please give me a portion of candied orange haws." After some hesitation, Li Mengyao finally made a decision. She said to Grandpa Candied Haws with a smile, "Okay." As Grandpa Tang Hulu spoke, he took a string of orange candied haws from the shelf and handed it to Li Mengyao. Then Li Mengyao took Lin Xuan by the hand and walked while they ate. "Wife, why did you only buy a string of candied haws? Where is your husband's?" Lin Xuan said with a smile. "My husband has no share." Li Mengyao laughed proudly. The two walked to an exquisite pavilion by the river, which was surrounded by green trees and had a pleasant scenery. "Honey, let's go sit in the pavilion over there for a while," Li Mengyao said, pointing at the pavilion with a bright smile on her face. Lin Xuan nodded and pulled Li Mengyao into the pavilion. Li Mengyao found a place to sit down. She patted her legs and seemed a little tired. Lin Xuan smiled and sat next to her, gently stroking her hair, and asked softly, "Do you want me to rub it for you?" "Okay." Li Mengyao nodded happily and stretched her feet in front of Lin Xuan. Lin Xuan gently massaged her calves. His movements soft and careful, afraid of hurting her. While enjoying Lin Xuan's massage, Li Mengyao admired the sparkling waves on the river and the surrounding scenery. She relaxed and leaned against Lin Xuan, feeling his warmth. And he picked up the last remaining candied haws, put it in his mouth, and savored the sweet and sour taste. "Honey, do you still want to eat?" Li Mengyao suddenly looked up, with a sweet smile on her face, and asked Lin Xuan in a gentle voice. "I do." Lin Xuan looked at the candied haws in Li Mengyao's mouth and swallowed. "Then you go." Li Mengyao looked around to make sure no one noticed them. So she stretched out her little hands and hugged Lin Xuan's neck, raised her head, and put her sweet lips into Lin Xuan's mouth. After finishing, Li Mengyao put her little head against Lin Xuan's chest and let out a light laugh. Lin Xuan smiled as he looked at the beauty in his arms. "I have to say, sometimes my wife is still very tempting." But at this moment, in a corner in the distance, a figure was staring at the two of them. There was a hint of resentment and jealousy in the figure's eyes, as if he wanted to devour Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao. Time passed quickly, and it was the next day. In a blink of an eye, while having breakfast with Li Mengyao, Lin Xuan discussed today's plan. They decided to visit teacher Wu today to thank her for taking care of Li Mengyao during her high school years. However, considering that teacher Wu needed to teach during the day, Li Mengyao and Wu Qingdelingji agreed to visit him in the evening. This way, they had enough time to prepare the gifts and ensure that they would not disturb teacher Wu's work. It was getting close to evening, and Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao had nothing else to do. So they decided to go to Jingshui No. 1 middle school, the high school where Li Mengyao used to attend. The two of them could take a chance to visit the campus. At the same time, Li Mengyao kept clamoring to eat fish head noodle soup near the school, and then visit teacher Wu after eating. So Lin Xuan drove his Bentley Continental and took Li Mengyao to Jingshui No. 1 middle school. After Lin Xuan parked the car, he took Li Mengyao to the school gate. As expected, I was stopped by the security guard. "Who are you?" the security guard shouted. Li Mengyao walked to the guard room and said to the guard with a smile, "Uncle, I am an alumnus of Jingshui No. 1 middle school. I want to visit my alma mater now. Can I go in for a visit?" "Oh, alumni." The security guard looked them up and down and asked in a serious tone, "Do you have any proof?" "Yes." Li Mengyao took out her cell phone and showed him her high school diploma. "You need the original document." The security guard took a look and shook his head helplessly. "Sorry uncle, we didn't bring the original certificate." Li Mengyao looked embarrassed. Lin Xuan stepped forward and asked with a smile, "Is there any other way?" The security guard scratched his head, thought for a moment and then answered, "Another way is to find a teacher in the school to vouch for you." "Oh." Li Mengyao's eyes lit up and she immediately called Wu Qingdelingji, then handed the phone to the security guard. The security guard took the phone, and when he heard that it was the famous teacher Wu from the school, his attitude immediately became enthusiastic. "So you are teacher Wu's student? Please come in." "Thanks." So Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao walked into the school. Lin Xuan walked while looking at the school in front of him. The school is not large, but the several teaching buildings are neatly arranged. There is a tense atmosphere on campus, perhaps like most high schools. Lin Xuan sighed inwardly. At this time, Li Mengyao smiled and said softly, "Husband, come with me." Then the two walked side by side and came to a display board of deeds. Li Mengyao pointed at the display board and said happily, "Look, honey, this is mine." Lin Xuan looked in the direction of her finger and saw the following words clearly written on the glorious deeds board. Li Mengyao won the title of top scorer in liberal arts in Jingshui City with an astonishing score of 643 in 2020, and was successfully admitted to Jingha University. Lin Xuan carefully looked at the text and photos on the display board, which also included a photo of Li Mengyao in high school. At that time, she was wearing a blue summer school uniform and a ponytail. She faced the camera with a smile, looking fresh and beautiful. "Wow, it turns out my wife is also the top scorer." "Wife, it turns out that you are also the top scorer. Why didn't you tell me?" Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Didn't you ask either?" Li Mengyao's brilliant smile made people's hearts tremble. "Mengyao." Suddenly, a shout came from behind them. Chapter 116. Do I look scary? Wu Qingdelingji walked over gracefully carrying an exquisite bag. "Mengyao, why did you suddenly come to school in the afternoon?" Wu Qingdelingji asked softly with a gentle smile on her lips, and nodded to Lin Xuan. "Well, I just suddenly wanted to come back and visit my alma mater and reminisce about the past," Li Mengyao said with a smile. "Oh, I see. Have you finished your meal?" "We ate it," Li Mengyao answered hesitantly, her voice clearly lacking confidence. Lin Xuan couldn't help but laugh secretly. His wife really had no talent for lying. She was probably still thinking about the delicious fish head noodle soup near the school. You're lying. Why are you being so polite to the teacher? Let's go to the teacher's house for dinner. Wu Qingdelingji glanced at the two of them as an experienced professional teacher. She saw through Li Mengyao's lie at a glance. And I'll trouble you, teacher. Li Mengyao sighed helplessly. Mengyao, from what you said, you don't want to go to the teacher's house for dinner? Wu Qingdelingji looked at her with a deliberately stern face. No, I really want to go. Li Mengyao waved her hands quickly and instantly put on a very expectant expression. When Lin Xuan and Wu Qingdelingji saw her cute appearance, they couldn't help but smile at each other and then burst into laughter. So the three of them came to the school parking lot. Mengyao, Lin Xuan, get in the car. Wu Qingdelingji opened the door of the BYD Han with the key and turned to say to the two of them. She thought the two young people must have come here in a taxi. After all, it is not easy for young people of this age to own a car, let alone a luxury car. However, when she saw that Li Mengyao and Lin Xuan did not walk towards her car, she couldn't help feeling a little surprised. Teacher, we will drive there ourselves, Li Mengyao replied with a smile. Hearing this, Wu Qingdelingji asked in confusion, did you drive here? She remembered that Li Mengyao's family was not well off, but now she was driving a car, which surprised her very much. Yeah, Li Mengyao nodded with a smile. Okay then, just follow my car, or you can check the navigation I sent you. After saying that, she got into the car. Afterwards, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned to the Bentley Continental and slowly drove to school following the BYD Han. Soon, the two cars stopped in a parking lot in a residential area. Wu Qingdelingji saw through the rearview mirror that a Bentley Continental sports car was following her closely. It was from another city, so she couldn't help feeling confused. But on second thought, it is possible that some wealthy person came to this fourth-tier small city to experience the feeling of being in a paradise. So she got out of the car and prepared to call Li Mengyao to ask where they were. Hello, Mengyao? Where are you? Wu Qingdelingji took out her cell phone and called. Teacher, we're here. Li Mengyao's voice came from the other end of the phone. Wu Qingdelingji looked around in confusion, and then she saw Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao getting out of the Bentley Continental sports car. She was immediately stunned. Mengyao, is this Bentley your car? Yes. It was bought by Lin Xuan. Li Mengyao nodded and replied with a smile. Lin Xuan, I didn't expect you to be so rich. Wu Qingdelingji exclaimed. At this time, Wu Qingdelingji had already labeled Lin Xuan as a rich second generation. How could he have so much money at such a young age? Was he sincere to Mengyao? Thinking of this, Wu Qingdelingji frowned and felt that she had to find an opportunity to have a good talk with Mengyao. Teacher? Li Mengyao stretched out her little hand and waved it in front of Wu Qingdelingji, interrupting her thoughts. Oh, sorry, I was distracted just now. Let's go upstairs. Wu Qingdelingji smiled apologetically, then brought Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao to her home. As soon as the door opened, a cute little boy jumped into Wu Qingdelingji's arms like a happy little bird. He blinked his big eyes and said with a big smile, Mom, you are finally back. Wu Qingdelingji immediately put aside the strict teacher image she had in school, and endless tenderness appeared in her eyes. She gently stroked the child's head and asked softly, Lele, have you been good and obedient at home today? The little boy nodded proudly and replied, Very good, Mom. Then, he stared at Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao curiously, hiding behind Wu Qingdelingji, pointing at them with his little hand, and asked in confusion, Mom, who are they? Wu Qingdelingji explained with a smile. They are my former students, you should call them brothers and sisters. After hearing this, Liu nodded obediently and greeted Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao. Hello, brothers and sisters, my name is Liu, and I am 8 years old this year. Li Mengyao happily touched Liu's little head and praised, Liu, you are so cute. Then, everyone walked into the living room together. Lin Xuan took out a carefully prepared gift box, handed it to Wu Qingdelingji, and said gratefully, Teacher Wu, this is a gift we specially prepared for you. Thank you for taking good care of Mengyao in high school. Hey, what are you doing? That's what teachers are supposed to do. Take it back quickly. Wu Qingdelingji quickly refused. Teacher Wu, please accept it. It's not something expensive. It's just a small token of our appreciation. Lin Xuan said with a smile and gently placed the gift box on the table. Seeing Lin Xuan's insistence, Wu Qingdelingji no longer refused. She nodded to express her gratitude. Okay, thank you. At this moment, Wu Qingdelingji couldn't help but feel that this young man Lin Xuan was not only polite, but also very well educated, and her impression of him instantly improved. Lola, play with your brother and sister in the living room for a while. Mommy will go to make dinner, Wu Qingdelingji said gently to her son. Okay, Liu nodded obediently. Then, Wu Qingdelingji turned and walked into the kitchen and started busying herself preparing dinner. At this time, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao were sitting on the sofa in the living room, both smiling and looking at Liu with gentle eyes. Lil, on the other hand, was holding a toy. Standing far away, his eyes fixed on Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao, seeming to be somewhat wary. Lila, come and play with your sister. Li Mengyao waved to Lila with a smile on her face. However, at this time Lil shook his head gently, staring at Lin Xuan with his big eyes, revealing a hint of fear and terror in his eyes. Honey, can you sit on the other side? I feel like Lil is a little afraid of you, Li Mengyao said softly to Lin Xuan. Oh, I look scary? Lin Xuan looked at Li Mengyao's face full of disgust and couldn't help but touching his face, and asked with some confusion. Obviously very handsome. Oh, just sit opposite, Li Mengyao said as she pushed Lin Xuan, motioning him to sit opposite. Lin Xuan shook his head helplessly and could only stand up and walk to the seat opposite. As soon as Lin Xuan sat down, Li Mengyao shouted to Lil again, Lil, come here. There are candies for you. As she spoke, she took out a candy from her bag and shook it in the air, trying to attract Lil's attention. Mom said we shouldn't eat candy from strangers. Although Lil said this, his big round eyes were staring straight at the tempting candy, and his little mouth was slightly open, with saliva seeming to flow out. In the end, Lil's body was still very honest and walked to sit next to Li Mengyao, stretched out his little hand and took the tempting candy. Chapter 117. He looks a bit like a bad uncle. What may you say that we can't eat candy given by strangers? Li Mengyao was as happy as a little child, smiling from ear to ear. My sister is the teacher's student, so she is not a stranger. Lil answered innocently, then couldn't wait to tear open the candy's wrapper and put it in his mouth with a look of satisfaction on his face. What about this brother? Li Mengyao pointed at Lin Xuan and asked with a smile. Lil blinked, looked at Lin Xuan carefully, then frowned and said, he looks a bit like a bad uncle. Bad uncle? When Lin Xuan heard this comment, he was stunned. Li Mengyao couldn't hold back any longer, her eyes curved with joy. La, you are so cute. Li Mengyao smiled and gently pinched Lila's cheek. After a while, Wu Qingling prepared a sumptuous dinner. Let's get ready to eat. Then, everyone sat around the dining table and started to enjoy dinner. Lin Xuan, how did you and Mengyao know each other? While eating, Wu Qingling finally couldn't help but ask curiously. We met in the university library. Lin Xuan replied calmly. Are you also a student of Jinghe University? Wu Qingling asked in surprise. This surprised Wu Qingling a little. Jinghe University is one of the most prestigious universities in the country. Being able to be admitted shows that Lin Xuan is a very good student. Yes, Mengyao and I are from the same class. Lin Xuan said. Teacher, you may not know that Lin Xuan was the top scorer in the science subject of the college entrance examination in Yunhe City that year. He is the top scorer in science. This rich second generation is not simple. And you two are really a perfect match. One is the top student in science, and the other is the top student in liberal arts, Wu Qingling said with a smile. After dinner, everyone returned to the living room to chat. Li Mengyao and Wu Qingling were talking about their past in high school, while Lin Xuan was listening quietly on the side. The cute Lil was sitting in front of the TV, watching his favorite cartoon with relish. At this moment, a delicious and tempting big cake suddenly appeared in the cartoon. Lil's eyes suddenly lit up and his saliva couldn't help but flow out. He turned to his mother and said, Mom, I really want to eat cake. We just finished our meal. Why do you want cake? Wu Qingling refused mercilessly. Mom, I just want to eat. Lil said coquettously. Where can I get you a cake now? Wu Qingling said. You can order takeout. Lil pointed at her mother's mobile phone with her little finger. A takeaway food is not clean. Wu Qingling refused again. Teacher, do you have flour, eggs, milk, baking soda or anything like that at home? Lin Xuan saw that Lil really wanted to eat it, so he decided to make a cake for him. Yes, Lin Xuan. Can you bake a cake? Wu Qingling was a little surprised. I know a little bit. You can try to make a small cake for Lil. Lin Xuan smiled slightly. Then thank you for your help. They are all in the kitchen. Wu Qingling was also annoyed by her son, so she took Lin Xuan into the kitchen to find the right ingredients. Then Lin Xuan started to busy himself in the kitchen. Looking at Lin Xuan's skillful movements and focused expression, Wu Qingling couldn't help but be a little surprised. This young man doesn't look like a spoiled rich kid, but more like an experienced chef. Wu Qingling nodded with satisfaction, turned around and sat back on the sofa in the living room. At this time, Li Mengyao asked curiously, Teacher, is uncle not here? Wu Qingling replied, he has to work overtime tonight and won't be home for dinner. Then, she asked with concern, Mengyao, teacher asks you, is Lin Xuan good to you? Li Mengyao was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled brightly. Lin Xuan is very nice to me. Why did the teacher ask this? She was a little confused. Why did it seem like everyone around her would ask this question? Wu Qingling explained seriously, because many rich second generations are fickle. They treat you well because you are beautiful now, but they will not want you when they get tired of you. The teacher is worried about you. Teacher, Lin Xuan is not a rich second generation. He started his own company. Li Mengyao smiled slightly after hearing this. Wu Qinggelinji was very surprised after hearing this. Is that so? Then congratulations to you, teacher. At this moment, Wu Qinggelinji also admired Lin Xuan very much. There were really not many men who loved their wives, could cook, and had a career. About an hour later, Lin Xuan brought out a beautiful chocolate cake. Wow, brother is so awesome, Liu danced happily. So am I still a bad uncle now? Lin Xuan said with a smile. No, you are the handsome brother. Liu couldn't wait to pick up the spoon, scooped a piece of cake and put it into his mouth, looking very satisfied. This child is really clever. Lin Xuan touched Liu's little head. It was almost 9 o'clock in the evening. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao said goodbye to Teacher Wu. Come back next time when you're free. Wu Qinggelinji smiled slightly. Okay, goodbye. Teacher, Li Mengyao said with a smile. Then Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao walked hand in hand to the parking lot and found the Bentley Continental parked there. Lin Xuan opened the car door. Let Li Mengyao get in first, and then he walked to the driver's seat and sat down. Just as he was about to start the car to go home, Li Mengyao suddenly called him. Honey, I'm a little hungry. Lin Xuan turned his head to look at her, only to see Li Mengyao looking at him with cute eyes. Lin Xuan gently touched her pretty head and comforted her. Wife, let's go home quickly, I will make you something delicious. However, Li Mengyao shook her head and said Kokatha, but I want to eat fish head soup noodles. I haven't eaten it for a long time. Husband will cook for you when he gets home. Lin Xuan coaxed softly. He still doesn't want his wife to eat outside food. There are no fish heads at home. I'll just eat a few bites, and the rest will be yours. Under Li Mengyao's soft and hard persuasion, and her cute and coquettish attitude, Lin Xuan had no choice but to agree. Lin Xuan drove to a fish head noodle soup shop near Jingshui City No. 1 Middle School. Although this shop is not big, it is very popular and many people like to taste the delicious fish head soup noodles here. After Lin Xuan parked the car, he took Li Mengyao into the store. They found an empty seat and sat down, waiting for the waiter to serve the food. Soon after, a bowl of steaming fish head noodle soup was placed in front of Li Mengyao. She smelled the delicious aroma, her eyes lit up, and she couldn't wait to pick up the chopsticks and start eating. Lin Xuan sat aside, watching Li Mengyao eat with relish, his heart filled with happiness. At the time he realized what was happening, Li Mengyao had already eaten more than half of the fish head noodle soup. Life, didn't we agree to only eat a few bites? Chapter 118 Fang Fang Convenience Store. The sunlight shines into the room through the gaps in the curtains, and a new day begins. Li Mengyao was still immersed in a sweet dream, but was awakened by an alluring fragrance. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and followed the fragrance out of the bedroom. As soon as she arrived at the restaurant, she saw Lin Xuan placing a bowl of steaming fish head noodle soup on the dining table. In the milky white fish soup, the crystal clear rice noodles were faintly visible, the tender fish head was half hidden in it, and chopped green onions and coriander were scattered here and there. Looking at the delicious food in front of her, Li Mengyao couldn't help but be stunned, and even drooled. Wife, look at your saliva, Lin Xuan said with a smile, and took out a tissue to gently wipe the saliva from the corner of her mouth. Honey, I'll go wash up now. After hearing Lin Xuan's words, Li Mengyao came back to her senses and quickly went back to the bathroom to wash up. After a while, Li Mengyao couldn't wait to sit down at the dining table, ready to enjoy this delicious meal. She picked up the chopsticks and gently stirred the fish head soup noodles so that each rice noodle was covered with the delicious fish soup. Then she picked up a bite and put it into her mouth, savoring it carefully. It's delicious. Honey, you're awesome. Li Mengyao couldn't help but let out an exclamation of praise, a happy smile on her face. This is hundreds of times more delicious than the one we ate yesterday. Hubby will cook for you often in the future, okay? Lin Xuan said with a smile. Okay, Li Mengyao smiled sweetly. He took away most of the fish head noodle soup his wife had eaten yesterday, tasted it, and with the skills of a 5-star chef, he had a rough idea of how to make it. After breakfast, Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao's hand and went downstairs to the community together. They wanted to see the progress of the renovation of Huang Shifang's shop. When we arrived at the door of the shop, we found Huang Shifang was carefully supervising the construction work of the decoration masters. Despite the hot weather, she still did not forget to care about the feelings of the decoration workers. She not only bought a fan to cool everyone down, but also thoughtfully bought some cold drinks. In addition, she also carefully guided the masters to ensure that the decoration work could be completed according to her ideal appearance. Mom, Li Mengyao called softly with a happy smile on her face. Hey, Yao Yao, why are you here? It's dusty everywhere here. It's not good for your health. Go home quickly. Huang Shifang turned her head and said to her daughter with concern. It's okay, I'll just watch from a distance. Li Mengyao replied with a smile. Mom, what name do you plan to give this store? Lin Xuan asked curiously. Huang Shifang thought for a moment, then said, well, why not call it Fang Fang Convenience Store? Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao nodded in agreement with the name. Then, Huang Shifang urged, if you have nothing else to do, go back and leave this to me. Okay then, Mom should also be careful not to overwork herself. Li Mingyao warned. I understand you guys can go back soon. Huang Shifang waved his hand, signaling them to leave. Then Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao returned the same way. On the way back, a voice called them. Mingyao? The two turned around and looked. It turned out to be Li Mingyao's childhood friend, Chen Ting. She stood not far away, looking at Li Mingyao with surprise. Mingyao, you didn't even tell me when you came back. Chen Ting said happily, with a hint of complaint in her tone. I just came back not long ago, Li Mingyao responded with a smile. Chen Ting walked up quickly and looked at Li Mingyao carefully. Oh, Mingyao, your belly. Are you pregnant with a baby? There was surprise in her voice. Li Mingyao gently touched her belly and nodded with a smile. Yes. I have been pregnant for more than 5 months. Wow! Chen Ting almost jumped up with excitement. Congratulations. I can be a godmother. She happily took Li Mingyao's hand and said, by the way, come to my house tonight and we can catch up. Li Mingyao readily agreed. Okay, see you tonight. Chen Ting nodded happily, then greeted Lin Xuan politely and turned and left. As night fell, the city lights gradually lit up. After simply dressing up, Li Mingyao went to Chen Ting's house in a happy mood. Chen Ting also lives in Times Garden, so Li Mingyao arrived at her destination after a short stroll in the community. She came to the door of room 3201, Building E, Times Garden, and gently pressed the doorbell. A cheerful response came from inside the house. Come on. Then the door was opened, revealing Chen Ting's friendly smile. Mingyao, come here. Chen Ting warmly invited Li Mingyao into the house and carefully helped her into the room. Ting, are you the only one living here? Li Mingyao looked around curiously with a faint smile on her face. Chen Ting nodded and replied, yes, I want to live independently and don't want to listen to my parents, nagging all day long. As she spoke, she took Li Mingyao to the spacious and bright living room and let her sit comfortably on the soft sofa. Then, Chen Ting walked to the refrigerator, took out a glass of iced cola and handed it to Li Mingyao. Ting, I can't drink Coke now because I'm pregnant. Li Mingyao shook her head gently and said gently. Chen Ting asked in surprise, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. But I only have these carbonated drinks at home. It's okay, just give me a cup of hot water, Li Mingyao said with a smile. Chen Ting nodded and quickly turned around to pour a cup of steaming hot water for Li Mingyao. Mingyao, you are pregnant already? Is this the speed of a rocket? Chen Ting looked at her in surprise and couldn't help but sigh. I got pregnant by accident, Li Mingyao blushed. Chen Ting asked curiously. Is Lin Xuan good to you? Does he take good care of you and the baby? Great, I feel like everyone around me will ask this question. Li Mingyao chuckled. Chen Ting sighed and said enviously, oh, I really envy you for finding your own love. Unlike me, who is still single now. Then, she started to complain. If I hadn't moved out, my family would have nagged me to go on blind dates every day. They would always say, Ting, you're not young anymore, it's time to go out and find a partner. It's so annoying. Working during the day is tiring enough. And having to listen to these chants at night is simply unbearable. Chen Ting started to complain crazily. Li Mingyao sat quietly beside and listened, laughing happily from time to time when she heard something interesting. After the two of them reminisced about the past, Li Mingyao prepared to go home. Mingyao, let me take you home. Chen Ting looked at Li Mingyao with concern, and said a little worriedly when she saw that she was pregnant. It's okay. We live in the same community and are very close. Li Mingyao smiled and rejected Chen Ting's kindness. Okay then, you must be careful. Chen Ting advised. Yeah, Li Mingyao nodded and walked towards the door. She opened the door, left Chen Ting's house, and walked downstairs. When Li Mingyao came to the community garden, the moonlight shone on her, warm and comfortable. She strolled along the path happily, feeling the gentle touch of the breeze on her cheeks. However, just when she was halfway there, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her, blocking her way. Alarm! Master, there is a dangerous person ahead, please be careful. The pink diamond tech watch on Li Mingyao's wrist sounded an alarm. Chapter 119. Because I know my husband will come to save me. The figure slowly walked forward and revealed his true face. Li Ji, why are you here? Li Mingyao stepped back slightly and said to the man in front of her vigilantly. Why can't it be me? He is just a spoiled rich second generation. What's so great about him? Li Ji roared angrily. My husband is not a spoiled rich second generation. This has nothing to do with you. Li Mingyao said with cold eyes and a firm tone. She would never allow anyone to slander her husband. I am the one who truly loves you, Mingyao. Don't you understand my feelings? Li Ji shouted excitedly. I have never had any other thoughts about you. It was like this before. And it is like this now, Li Mengyao responded angrily. Okay. If I can't get it, no one else can either. Li Ji suddenly saw Li Mengyao's bulging belly, and his body trembled violently as if he was struck by lightning. And then he spoke in a trembling voice. And he took out a sharp fruit knife from behind. Li Ji, calm down. Li Mengyao panicked when she saw this, but she quickly calmed down and quietly put her hand into the bag she was carrying. She knew that if she ran away now, she would not be able to outrun Li Ji, especially since she was pregnant. At the same time, Lin Xuan also received an alert from the Black Diamond Technology Watch at home. When he saw that his wife was in danger, an expression of anxiety and worry appeared on his face without hesitation. He stood up from the sofa and rushed to the door. When Lin Xuan opened the door, a strong sense of urgency came over him. He ran to the elevator anxiously, pressing the buttons continuously with his fingers. However, the elevator did not move and the display board kept showing the third floor. Time passed by minute, and Lin Xuan became anxious. He couldn't wait for the elevator and decided to take the stairs directly. With the system's enhanced physique, he gripped the railing tightly and jumped down without hesitation. Every jump seemed to be a challenge to the limit. Lin Xuan rushed down the stairs at an astonishing speed like a hero in an action movie. Finally, Lin Xuan arrived downstairs and ran towards his wife. On the other side, Li Ji was slowly approaching Li Mengyao, with ferocity and malice flashing in his eyes. At this moment, Li Mengyao reached into her bag and tightly grasped something, as if preparing to make a final resistance. Suddenly, the pink diamond technology watch on Li Mengyao's wrist flashed a light. This light instantly triggered a sudden strong wind, which swept in with a whistling sound, accompanied by Li swaying in the air. Damn it, where is the wind coming from? Li Ji was caught off guard by the sudden strong wind. His vision became blurred and he was unable to see the situation ahead. He desperately covered his face with his hands, trying to resist the strong wind. Li Mengyao took the opportunity to turn around and run away. Her steps were unsteady, and despite her bulging belly, she still ran as hard as she could. However, due to her pregnancy, her movements were obviously restricted and she could not run very fast. At the moment when the automatic protection mechanism of the pink diamond technology watch failed, Li Ji finally came to his senses and began to chase Li Mengyao like crazy. Li Mengyao remained highly alert the whole time. When Li Ji was about to catch up with her, she quickly took out the pepper spray from her bag and aimed it at Li Ji. However, at this moment, Lin Xuan suddenly jumped out from the bushes next to him. There was only a scream. Lin Xuan kicked Li Ji hard and pressed him to the ground. Lin Xuan quickly rushed forward and pressed Li Ji to the ground. He grabbed Li Ji's collar tightly, raised his sandbag-sized fist, and punched Li Ji in the face again and again. Li Mengyao was stunned for a moment, and then she felt relieved when she saw that it was her husband. When her mood gradually calmed down, she realized that she had to stop Lin Xuan now, otherwise things might get worse. "Husband, stop hitting me," Li Mengyao shouted anxiously. However, Lin Xuan seemed not to have heard her words and continued to wave his fists and hit Li Ji. His eyes were cold and merciless at this time. Li Ji had been beaten black and blue, as if he was really going to be beaten to death. It was the first time that Li Mengyao saw Lin Xuan so ferocious, as if he had turned into a ruthless god of death. "Husband," Li Mengyao shouted again. This time, Lin Xuan finally heard his wife's voice, and his fists stopped in the air. His eyes were still empty and lifeless, staring straight at Li Mengyao, as if he had lost his soul. "Husband, stop hitting me, let's call the police and let them handle it." Li Mengyao hugged Lin Xuan tightly, trying to awaken his reason with her warmth. Lin Xuan's body trembled slightly, and the indifference in his eyes gradually dissipated. He took a deep breath, slowly unclenched his fists, and gently hugged Li Mengyao. "Yeah." Lin Xuan's voice was a little hoarse, and he tried to calm himself down. He really couldn't believe what his future life would be like if he had arrived a step later and something happened to Li Mengyao. Afterwards, the property staff of the community rushed to the scene and called the police. Finally, the police arrived at the scene and took Li Ji, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao to the police station. After some questioning and investigation, the police reviewed the relevant surveillance videos and made a conclusion based on the evidence. Li Ji attempted knife attack but failed. Then, the police took detailed statements from Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao respectively, recording the entire incident and its details. After finishing the statement, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao prepared to leave the police station. At this time, a policeman came over and said to Lin Xuan, "Fortunately, your wife stopped you in time, otherwise you would be in trouble if you defended yourself too much." "I understand, thank you," Lin Xuan thanked him. Then Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned home. As soon as he entered the door, Huang Shifang walked forward anxiously. Her eyes were full of concern, and her tone was a little nervous. "Yao Yao, are you okay? Are you hurt? Let Mom take a look." Li Mengyao showed a trace of fatigue on her face, but she still tried to force a smile and comforted her mother. "Mom, I'm fine. I was just a little scared, don't worry." Lin Xuan also quickly said, "Mom, it's okay now." He tried to tell Huang Shifang in a calm voice that everything was over. "It's good that you're okay, it's good that you're okay. You guys should go and rest." Huang Shifang finally breathed a sigh of relief and patted his chest gently. After taking a shower, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao lay together on the comfortable and soft big bed. At this moment, Lin Xuan held Li Mengyao tightly in his arms, feeling her warmth and security. Lin Xuan lowered his head, his voice low and hoarse. "I'm sorry, wife." Li Mengyao raised her head slightly, looked at Lin Xuan tenderly, and asked with a smile, "Husband, why are you saying sorry to me?" Lin Xuan's eyes revealed guilt and self-blame. "I didn't protect you well if I had come a step later." He didn't dare to imagine the consequences. And his voice gradually became lower. At this time, Li Mengyao clearly saw that Lin Xuan's eyes were red. She reached out and stroked Lin Xuan's face, comforting him. "Husband, don't think too much, am I not fine now? We should be happier." Then, Li Mengyao continued, "Hubby, I wasn't actually scared at that time. There was a determined gleam in her eyes. Because I know my husband will come to rescue me." Chapter 120 I will protect you well in the future. After Lin Xuan heard this, his deep eyes widened instantly, and his heart was filled with emotion and surprise. "I didn't expect my wife to trust me so much. Besides, I still have some pepper spray that I haven't used yet." Li Mengyao smiled. Lin Xuan hugged Li Mengyao tightly and said seriously, "Wife, I will protect you well in the future, and there will be no such accident again." Li Mengyao looked up at Lin Xuan, her eyes full of affection. "Well, I believe you." The two looked at each other affectionately. Lin Xuan couldn't help but hold Li Mengyao's face and gently kissed her forehead, then her cheek, and finally stopped at her seductive lips. In the next few days, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao stayed at home and rarely went out. Lin Xuan almost always sticks to Li Mengyao, following her wherever she goes. Once, Li Mengyao suddenly wanted to go to the bathroom, so she got up and walked towards the bathroom. After seeing this, Lin Xuan followed. "I want to go to the bathroom." Li Mengyao turned around and glared. "You have to be careful when going to the toilet. Let your husband go with you," Lin Xuan said worriedly. "No," Li Mengyao said as she walked into the bathroom and locked the door. Li Mengyao had just sat down on the toilet when she heard a knock on the door. "Wife, do you really not need me to accompany you? Don't lock the door," Lin Xuan asked. "No need," Li Mengyao replied. "Wife, I will call you every 10 seconds and you have to respond. Otherwise I will break in," Lin Xuan shouted. Li Mengyao sighed heavily, wondering if her husband was hopeless. "Honey, 10 seconds are up. You're so annoying." Lin Xuan stood outside the door, still feeling a little worried. From time to time, he would lean on the door to listen to the noise inside, fearing that something might happen to Li Mengyao. After a while, Li Mengyao finally came out of the bathroom. "Wife, are you okay?" Lin Xuan asked with concern. "What can I do? I just went to the bathroom." Li Mengyao rolled her eyes at him. "That's good, you must tell your husband whatever you do in the future," Lin Xuan said. "I know. You nagging ghost," Li Mengyao said with a smile. The sunlight shines into the room through the curtains, and a new day begins. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao got up early and prepared to go out. Now Li Mengyao is 23 weeks pregnant and she needs to go back to Jinghai People's Hospital for another pregnancy checkup. Huang Shifang was carrying a bulging bag and trying to stuff it into the trunk of the car. "Mom, you don't need to bring so many things. Ray just going to be gone for one day and will be back tomorrow," Li Mengyao said gently. Huang Shifang slapped his head and said, "Oh, look at my memory. I totally forgot. Well, you must pay attention to safety on the road." After saying that, she went back into the house and got out some fruit. "I know, Mom, don't worry," Lin Xuan replied with a smile. Then he took Li Mengyao's hand and walked to the Bentley Continental downstairs. He opened the car door and helped Li Mengyao get in. Then, he started the car and activated the top driving system. At the roar of the engine, the Bentley Continental slowly drove towards Jinghai People's Hospital. Lin Xuan turned to look at Li Mengyao and said gently, "Wife, you can rest in the car for a while. When you wake up, we will almost be at the hospital." Li Mengyao nodded, adjusted the angle of her chair, and soon fell asleep. I'm passed minute by minute. And after nearly 4 hours of driving, the Bentley Continental slowly drove into the gate of Jinghai People's Hospital. "Wifey, we're here." Lin Xuan gently woke up the sleeping beauty in his arms. "Are we there yet?" Li Mengyao woke up slowly, her beautiful eyes slightly open while still half asleep. Since Lin Xuan had made adequate preparations in advance and had accurately grasped the time of arriving at the hospital, it was Li Mengyao's turn within a few minutes. For pregnant women who are more than 5 months pregnant, this prenatal checkup is still mainly routine examinations, including ultrasound examinations and Down syndrome screening. In addition, at this stage, you can also listen to the fetal heartbeat through professional equipment. A female doctor was seen holding a Doppler fetal heart rate stethoscope, carefully searching for the fetal heart rates of the two little lives in Li Mengyao's abdomen. Finally, the female doctor found the weak yet powerful beating sounds of the two babies. "Doctor, can you let me listen?" Lin Xuan couldn't hide his excitement, with anticipation gleaming in his eyes. "Of course, no problem." The female doctor nodded and agreed with a smile. Under the doctor's patient guidance, Lin Xuan put his ear close to the stethoscope and finally heard the baby's heartbeats with his own ears. A thumping rhythm was like the sound of nature, which melted his heart. "Wife, come and listen." Lin Xuan couldn't wait to hand the stethoscope to Li Mengyao. And Li Mengyao also heard the baby's voice and smiled sweetly. After a series of examinations, the doctor told them that the baby's heartbeat, body structure and other indicators were normal, and the babies were developing very healthily. After the inspection, it was almost noon when Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned to Jinwan Mansion. So Lin Xuan went into the kitchen to cook. After eating, the two lay on the soft big bed. Li Mengyao gently stroked Lin Xuan's cheek, while Lin Xuan quietly looked at his wife's beautiful face, his heart full of love. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded again in Lin Xuan's mind. "Ding dong, congratulations to the host for completing the baby's 5th-month pregnancy checkup." Considering the host's strong desire to protect Li Mengyao and the baby in the near future, the system will send a female robot of future technology as Li Mengyao's personal bodyguards. He will hide in a hidden place and protect Li Mengyao at any time when Lin Xuan is not around. Chapter 121 System. Do your family members know that you are so easy to talk to? The system is too good. With a female robot bodyguard, Lin Xuan no longer has to worry about his wife's safety all the time like before. Thinking of this, the corners of Lin Xuan's mouth rose unconsciously. Just then, there was a sudden stabbing pain. "Puppy, what are you laughing at? You're ignoring me." Li Mengyao pouted and said coquettish lie. Lin Xuan finally came back to his senses and lowered his head to look at his wife in his arms. "I thought of something happy," Lin Xuan said with a gentle smile. "Oh, is it because your wife is about to give birth?" Li Mengyao raised her eyebrows mischievously and asked jokingly. Hearing his wife teasing like this, Lin Xuan naturally would not tolerate it. Then, Lin Xuan leaned over and kissed those tender red lips, and their lips were tightly pressed together. It was afternoon and Lin Xuan slowly woke up from his sleep. When he opened his eyes, he saw Li Mengyao's beautiful face pressed against him. With a sweet smile on her lips and a look of satisfaction, Lin Xuan looked at Li Mengyao closely. Her long eyelashes fluttered gently like butterfly wings. Her fair, oval face was delicate and smooth, and her appearance was flawless. Lin Xuan couldn't help but sigh that his wife was so beautiful that he could never get enough of looking at her. He couldn't help but lower his head and leave a gentle kiss on Li Mengyao's bright forehead. Then he carefully got up and left the bedroom. Lin Xuan came to the living room, turned on the TV, and watched the video casually. After watching for a while, Lin Xuan walked into the kitchen and prepared a sumptuous dinner for Li Mengyao. After Lin Xuan finished making dinner, he went back to the living room, sat quietly on the sofa, played with his mobile phone, and waited for his wife to wake up. Some time passed. "Husband." A soft call came from the bedroom. After hearing this, Lin Xuan immediately stood up from the sofa and walked quickly towards the bedroom. He gently pushed the door open and saw Li Mengyao lying lazily on the bed, her beautiful big eyes looking at him leisurely. "Wife, are you awake?" Lin Xuan asked with concern. Li Mengyao raised her head slightly, with a tired and coquettish look on her face. "I'm a little thirsty," she said softly. "Okay." Lin Xuan gently picked up Li Mengyao, then lowered his head and kissed her soft lips. Then he left the bedroom and went to the kitchen to pour water for Li Mengyao to drink. Li Mengyao sat on the bed in a daze, blinking her beautiful eyes in confusion. Why was she kissed again? After a while, Lin Xuan returned to the bedroom with a glass of water and handed it to Li Mengyao. Li Mengyao took the cup of water and started drinking it. "Wife, are you still tired?" Lin Xuan sat quietly beside the bed, looking at her and smiled. Li Mengyao drank some water while glaring at Lin Xuan. After drinking the water, Li Mengyao felt her throat was much better, but she was still a little sleepy. Then Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao to the restaurant and started enjoying dinner. After dinner, as usual, they went to the Jinwan Fu community for a walk and enjoyed the quiet and beautiful night. They strolled to the children's area, found a clean bench to sit down, and quietly enjoyed the happy scene of the children playing. The innocent laughter of children echoes in the air, making people feel happy. Looking at these lovely children, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao couldn't help but think of their future babies, and their hearts were full of anticipation. Just then, the crisp ringing of a cell phone broke the silence. Li Mengyao took out her cell phone from her pocket, glanced at the caller ID, and raised her lips unconsciously. "Hello, Mom. Yao Yao, what are you doing now?" A gentle voice of Mother Huang Shifang came from the other end of the phone. "Lin Xuan and I are taking a walk downstairs in the community," Li Mengyao said while giving Lin Xuan a sweet smile. "Oh, it's like this your aunt wants us to go to their house for lunch tomorrow at noon," Huang Shifang said in a relaxed tone. "Okay. And we'll go directly to my aunt's house tomorrow," Li Mengyao answered without hesitation. Then she chatted with her mother for a few more words and hung up the phone. Then he turned around, looked at Lin Xuan, and said with a smile, "Husband, let's go directly to my aunt's house tomorrow." "Okay," Lin Xuan responded with a smile and a nod. So, that night, the two of them washed up and went to bed early. It was the early morning of the next day when Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao woke up slowly. After they got up, they had a simple breakfast and went downstairs to the parking lot together. This time, Lin Xuan planned to drive the Maybach, which he had not used for a long time. Maybach's appearance is low-key and steady, which further demonstrates his mature and confident temperament. Lin Xuan thought, this way, he would no longer be mistaken for a spoiled rich second generation. However, Li Mengyao on the side laughed mischievously. "Honey, Maybach is not cheap, how can you be considered low-key?" "Okay, Lin Xuan just wants to drive a Maybach. Of course, luxury cars need to be driven in turns." Then the two got into the Maybach. Lin Xuan started the car and the engine made a low roar. Then, he gently stepped on the accelerator, and the Maybach slowly drove out of the parking space and headed towards Jingshui City. As soon as Li Mengyao got in the car, she fell asleep quickly as usual. Lin Xuan was driving attentively, his eyes fixed firmly on the road ahead. Suddenly, Lin Xuan thought that the Xiaomi SU7 and Bentley Continental sports car at home both have top-level intelligent driving systems, but the Maybach does not. This is so unfair. "System. Are you there?" Lin Xuan asked. "Yes, host." The system's voice sounded immediately. "System, can you load Maybach with the top intelligent driving system of future technology?" Lin Xuan asked expectantly. "Yes, host, please wait a moment," the system replied. Ding dong, Maybach has successfully loaded the top intelligent driving system of future technology, and the host does not need manual driving, the system prompt sounded. Hearing this news, Lin Xuan was very excited. It was really a good system. "System, do your family members know that you are so good at talking?" Chapter 122. Is he able to protect you? When Maybach obtains the top intelligent driving system, it seems to be given life and begins to take over the control of the vehicle. During this process, Lin Xuan can gradually loosen his hands on the steering wheel and let his body relax. He put his hands behind his head, leaned back comfortably in his seat, and enjoyed the moment of peace. Glancing across the car, he saw his wife sleeping beside him, and a doting smile appeared on his face. Li Mengyao's face looked particularly beautiful under the soft light. Her tightly closed eyes trembled slightly, as if she was having a sweet dream. "Yes, the content is purely fictional, please do not imitate." In the blink of an eye, 4 hours had passed. A dark and slender Maybach parked steadily in the parking lot downstairs of the community where Huang Shizhen lived. Lin Xuan opened the car door, took out a carefully wrapped gift box from the trunk, then gently took Li Mengyao's soft little hand and walked up together. Soon, the two arrived at the door of their aunt Huang Shizhen's house. Li Mengyao gently pressed the doorbell. However, the person who opened the door was not Wu Qingquan and Huang Shifang, but a young woman with neat short hair, tall figure and delicate features. "Sister Yi," Li Mengyao shouted excitedly, her face filled with joy. "Sister, you are finally here, come in." Lin Xuan also followed their footsteps and walked into the house. But he keenly noticed that Luo Jieyi only prepared slippers for Li Mengyao, but not for herself. This made Lin Xuan feel a little confused. This person must be Huang Shizhen's daughter. But she seemed to be obviously hostile to him. At this time, Li Mengyao was being quickly helped into the house by Luo Jieyi, so she did not notice these subtle details. Lin Xuan shook his head helplessly, and had to pick up a pair of slippers from the shoe cabinet, put them on and walked into the house. Just then, Huang Shifang also came out of the kitchen. "Aunt, these are some small gifts I brought from Jingha. I hope you like them." Lin Xuan handed the gift box to Huang Shifang with a smile. "Hey, kid, you're here. So why bring anything with you? Go sit in the living room for a while, lunch will be ready soon." Huang Shizhen's face was filled with a warm smile, and she quickly asked Lin Xuan to sit down. Lin Xuan followed Huang Shizhen into the living room and found that Huang Shifang and Luo Qingquan were already sitting there chatting, and Luo Jieyi seemed to have directly brought his wife into the room. He greeted them politely. "Mom, uncle, Lin Xuan, are you tired of driving? You must have worked hard along the way," Huang Shifang asked with concern. "Lin Xuan, come and have a cup of tea." Luo Qingquan smiled and poured a cup of steaming hot tea and handed it to Lin Xuan. Lin Xuan took the teacup, took a sip, and felt the fragrance of the tea. He couldn't help but exclaimed, "Well, this is the best Taiguanian. I didn't expect you know how to taste tea nowadays. There are not many young people like you who know how to appreciate tea that is great." Luo Qingquan was very happy after hearing Lin Xuan's words. "I just know a little bit. I used to drink tea with my father, so I know a little about tea," Lin Xuan answered modestly. On the other side, Wu Jieyi pulled Li Mengyao to her room and let Li Mengyao sit on the soft big bed. Sister, I'm on a business trip to another province and haven't seen you for a few months. How come you? Wu Jieyi asked in surprise, looking at Li Mengyao's bulging belly. Li Mengyao lowered her head, her face slightly red, and said shyly, "It's just. I'm pregnant." Wu Jieyi frowned and pressed on, "What's going on? Tell me now." Li Mengyao shifted her gaze, not daring to look into Wu Jieyi's eyes, and remained silent. She has never been good at lying since she was a child. The more she talks, the greater the chance of being exposed, so she simply keeps quiet. When Wu Jieyi saw it, she knew something must have happened, and Li Mengyao was unwilling to tell her. Ever since Li Mengyao's father passed away, Wu Jieyi has been taking care of her like her own sister. Wu Jieyi suddenly thought of Lin Xuan and said angrily, "Was it that Lin Xuan outside who did this, okay?" She turned around and was about to walk out. Li Mengyao quickly grabbed Wu Jieyi and explained anxiously, "Sister Yi, this is not my husband's fault. I couldn't help it." Her face turned redder and her voice became smaller and smaller. Li Mengyao still remembered that Wu Jieyi was a black belt master in Taekwondo and was very fierce in a fight if she was really annoyed. The consequences would be disastrous. There was a school bully who wanted to bully Li Mengyao in the past. Wu Jieyi discovered it in time and beat the bully in anger. The next morning, the school bully knelt in front of Li Mengyao and begged for forgiveness. This sudden scene frightened Li Mengyao. From then on, no one in school dared to bully her anymore. "Sister, alas." Wu Jieyi sighed helplessly, stroking her forehead. "Sister Yi, my husband treats me very well. I really like Lin Xuan." Li Mengyao looked at Wu Jieyi with a firm look. "Then does he have the ability to protect you?" Wu Jieyi asked. But Wu Jieyi learned it from her parents that Lin Xuan was very rich, but having money does not necessarily mean he can protect the people around him. Having money and being able to fight are two different things. She is more of a warrior. "Yes," Li Mengyao answered without hesitation. Wu Jieyi was suddenly speechless. After a while, Wu Jieyi took Li Mengyao to the living room and sat down. She saw Lin Xuan and Wu Qingquan happily discussing tea. Suddenly Lin Xuan remembered that there was a can of the finest Wui Shan de Hong Pao in the trunk of his Maybach. It was given to him by Hezia Chaiyuan when he accepted the honorary chairmanship of the Jinghai City Piano Association last time. "Uncle, I suddenly remembered that there is a can of good tea in the trunk of the car. I'll get it for you to try," Lin Xuan said with a smile. And he stood up and walked out of the room. At this moment, a pair of eyes were staring at him. "Sister, I forgot that there is a express delivery downstairs. I'll go down to get it," Wu Jieyi said with a smile. Li Mengyao nodded and continued to watch TV in a daze. Afterwards, Wu Jieyi also left the room. Lin Xuan came to the underground garage, opened the trunk of the Maybach, and found the can of Wui Shan de Hong Pao inside. However, at this moment, the black diamond technology watch on Lin Xuan's hand suddenly began to vibrate. Alarm! Someone is detected trying to attack the host. Please be on guard. Chapter 123. Stop. Lin Xuan was startled and quickly turned his head to look, and saw a white and slender beautiful leg kicking towards his shoulder with a sharp gust of wind. Without time to think, Lin Xuan quickly raised his arms to block. Bang! With a dull thud, Lin Xuan was forced to take a few steps back. "You react pretty quickly." Wu Jieyi raised the corners of her mouth slightly, outlining a charming arc, and then launched an attack again. She moved fiercely, using both fists and feet, left hook, right hook, upper kick and lower leg sweep. All kinds of attacks came towards Lin Xuan like a storm. Lin Xuan retreated repeatedly and could only use his arms and body to block, and said, "Sister Yi, what do you mean? I don't think I provoked you. You're quite resilient, but what's the point of only knowing how to defend? How can you protect Ya like this?" Wu Jieyi sneered. And his attack became more fierce. After saying that, she turned her body, causing her legs to spin rapidly, and then kicked out fiercely. It was a whirlwind kick. Lin Xuan did not dare to delay and quickly put his hands in front of him to protect himself and took the attack head-on. Bang! Lin Xuan was knocked back several steps by the powerful force. At the same time, he took the opportunity to push hard and pushed Wu Jieyi away. The two of them kept some distance between them. "They're quite strong." Wu Jieyi showed a hint of surprise on her face, and she recognized Lin Xuan's strength a little more. "Since Sister Yi wants to test me, and I should show my real ability, be careful next time." Lin Xuan raised the corner of his mouth and revealed a confident smile. "I couldn't ask for more." A hint of excitement flashed in Wu Jieyi's eyes, and she rushed forward again. The two men began to fight with fists. Wu Jieyi's attacks were as fierce and fast as a storm, but they were all resolved by Lin Xuan's clever use of his strength. This surprised Wu Jieyi. "You actually know Wing Chun?" Lin Xuan smiled slightly, struck a Wing Chun pose and said, "I know a thing or two." Just as the two were about to start a new round of fierce confrontation, a weak but loud voice suddenly came. "Stop. They both turned around at the same time and found that it was Li Mengyao. At this time, Li Mengyao was standing there, her chest heaving slightly, her brows furrowed, and she was obviously very angry. "Wife, why are you here?" Lin Xuan immediately trotted over, held Li Mengyao's little hand tightly, and asked with concern. Li Mengyao glanced at Lin Xuan and said angrily, "If I don't come, are you going to keep fighting?" "No, Sister Yi and I were just sparring." "Right?" Lin Xuan hurriedly explained, then looked at Luo Jieyi. Luo Jieyi also smiled and said, "Yes, sister, I saw that my brother-in-law is so good at martial arts, and I wanted to learn from him." Luo Jieyi knows her sister very well. She knows that Li Mengyao is like a cute kitten when she is obedient, but once she gets angry, she will turn into a ferocious lion. So when Li Mengyao questioned them angrily, Luo Jieyi immediately realized that something was wrong. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child, Sister Yi? Where is your express delivery?" Li Mengyao said angrily. Luo Jieyi quickly explained, "Well, I just wanted to test Lin Xuan on to be angry, sister, I was wrong." After being exposed, she quickly admitted her mistake. Lin Xuan also hurriedly comforted Li Mengyao, "Wife, look, we are all fine, don't be angry, it's not good for the baby." Li Mengyao saw that the two were indeed not injured, sighed helplessly, and said, "Don't do this next time. Let's go back." Li Mengyao, who was waiting in the living room just now, felt that her husband and Sister Yi had been out for a long time and had not returned. She was worried that something had happened, so she went downstairs to check. "I didn't expect to see two people fighting." The three of them walked into the elevator. They were silent throughout the whole process and the atmosphere was a little awkward. Lin Xuan and Luo Jieyi felt Li Mengyao's cold gaze, and no one dared to speak again, because they could see that Li Mengyao was still a little angry. The main thing is that Lin Xuan was also speechless. "I got beaten up and made my wife angry." Not long after, the three of them returned to the house and walked into the living room together. As soon as he sat down, Huang Shizhen asked, "Why did you take so long to come back?" Lin Xuan smiled and replied, "We have been looking for something for a long time." Then, he handed the Wui Shan a Hong Pao in his hand to Wo Qingquan. "Uncle, this is Wui Mountain a Hong Pao." Wo Qingquan was surprised when he saw it. "Oh, this is the precious Da Hong Pao from Wui Mountain. A can of it costs hundreds of thousands of yuan in the market." But he immediately added, "I dare not accept such a valuable gift, please take it back." Lin Xuan waved his hand quickly. "You're welcome, uncle, just accept it. I have a lot more in Jinghe City." "Okay then, after lunch we'll brew a pot of Wui Shan da Hong Pao and let's all taste tea together," Wo Qingquan said happily. After that, he invited everyone to go to the restaurant for lunch. The lunch was very sumptuous and everyone enjoyed it very much. After lunch, everyone returned to the living room. Some sat on the sofa to watch TV, while others gathered together to chat. Wo Qingquan began to prepare to make tea. He took out the precious Wui Shan a Hong Pao and brewed it carefully. Soon, the living room was filled with the aroma of tea, and everyone was savoring this rare Da Hong Pao. Of course, Li Mengyao didn't drink it. Da Hong Pao is a black tea that contains a certain amount of caffeine and theophylline, which will have adverse effects on the baby. So she drank juice. Time flies, and it's already afternoon in the blink of an eye. After Li Mengyao's family said goodbye to her aunt's family, Lin Xuan held Li Mengyao's hand and went to the Maybach downstairs with Wang Shifang. Then they started the car and drove towards Times Garden. Soon, they arrived home safely. After everyone went back to their rooms to rest. Because Lin Xuan was sweating after practicing kung fu with Luo Jieyi, he went to the bathroom to take a shower. After taking a shower, Lin Xuan saw Li Mengyao lying quietly on the bed, staring at him with her bright big eyes blinking. Lin Xuan slowly walked to the bedside and asked softly, "Wife, are you still angry with me?" Li Mengyao shook her head slightly. And he climbed onto the bed, lie down next to Li Mengyao, and gently held her in his arms. "Honey, let me see your hands." As Li Mengyao spoke, she stretched out her slender little hand and gently stroked Lin Xuan's red arm, her eyes full of concern and heartache. "Sister Yi really doesn't know the seriousness of the matter," Li Mengyao complained, her face full of worry. Lin Xuan smiled slightly and comforted her. "Sister Yi's starting point is good. She just wants to test whether I am capable of protecting you. You can't use so much strength. It hurts me." Li Mengyao raised her head and said gently, "I won't do it next time." Lin Xuan held up Li Mengyao's little face and kissed her gently. Chapter 124 Wife, please be gentle. Under Lin Xuan's soft whispers and gentle comfort, Li Mengyao finally closed her eyes, nestled quietly in his warm arms, and fell into a sweet dream. However, Lin Xuan couldn't fall asleep, and his thoughts involuntarily drifted back to the scene of his intense competition with Luo Jieyi just now. This woman is so cruel and has no mercy at all. If Lin Xuan had not enhanced his physical attributes, he would have been unable to resist. As for Wing Chun, let's go back to the moment after Luo Jieyi performed the whirl, when Kick Lin Xuan began to ask the system for help in his heart. "System, You only enhanced my physical attributes, but you don't provide any practical combat moves. If I meet a real master, I will only be beaten. Lin Xuan cried for help in his heart. At this moment, the system responded, "Come on, host." Hearing this, Lin Xuan almost collapsed. He continued to cry in his heart. "System, is there no reward for fighting?" The system replied, "Yes, but the host has not yet triggered such a reward." After hearing this, Lin Xuan immediately became hopeful and asked anxiously, "Can you lend it to me temporarily?" "My master's system." After a moment's hesitation, the system said, "Okay. And I'll temporarily reward you with the top fighting master skill. The time limit for use is 10 minutes. 10 minutes is more than enough." Lin Xuan raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said confidently. As he finished speaking, a mysterious power surged into his heart, and all kinds of top fighting skills from around the world poured into Lin Xuan's mind. Every detail and every movement is clearly visible. So there was the scene where Lin Xuan used Wing Chun later. Oh, I really want to experience the feeling of being a top fighting master again. What man wouldn't want to have this skill? However, the system said that you will be rewarded when it is triggered in the future, and it will be yours sooner or later. Lin Xuan sighed softly and his eyes fell on Li Mengyao in his arms. She was sleeping peacefully, her beautiful face radiating tranquility and tenderness. Lin Xuan smiled slightly, held her carefully, and fell into a sweet dream together. It hurts, it hurts. Wife, be gentle. Lin Xuan couldn't help but frown and mutter. Li Mengyao stopped what she was doing and looked at him in confusion. Does it hurt? I didn't use much force. At this time, Li Mengyao was applying medicine to Lin Xuan with the medicine. Lin Xuan looked at her serious expression and felt a warm feeling in his heart. Does it still hurt? Li Mengyao asked with concern, reducing the force a little. Lin Xuan nodded, a smile on his face. Yeah, much more comfortable. Husband, if you can't win in the future, just run away, okay? Don't always try to be brave, Li Mengyao gently advised. Lin Xuan turned around, his eyes firm and stubborn. Do you think my husband is someone you can't beat? It hurts. Suddenly, Lin Xuan let out a scream. After hearing his words, Li Mengyao unconsciously increased the strength in her hands, and Lin Xuan's face instantly became hideous and distorted. Still being stubborn, Li Mengyao glared at him, but there was a hint of smile in her eyes. She continued to gently wipe the red and swollen areas of Lin Xuan with her warm little hands. I always listen to my wife. Lin Xuan finally compromised and responded with a smile. After a while, Li Mengyao finally finished applying the medicine and carefully packed up her things. Thank you, wife, Lin Xuan said softly, with a happy smile on his face. At this moment, Lin Xuan was lying lazily on the bed, enjoying the warmth and sweetness to his heart's content. When it was night, Huang Qifang went downstairs to dance square dance, while Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao also prepared to go out for a walk and enjoy the tranquility of the night. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, interrupting their plans. Lin Xuan opened the door and saw Li Mengyao's childhood friend Chen Tingting standing outside the door. She looked a little nervous and looked into the house from time to time. Hello Lin Xuan, is Mengyao here? Chen Tingting asked cautiously. Yes. Lin Xuan replied. At this time, Li Mengyao also changed her clothes and walked out of the bedroom. Honey, who is it? Li Mengyao asked curiously. It's Chen Tingting, Lin Xuan told her. As soon as Chen Tingting saw Li Mengyao, she immediately said apologetically, Mengyao, I'm sorry. It's all my fault that I didn't send you back, and you almost had an accident. She bowed deeply in apology. It turned out that Chen Tingting was frightened when she heard that Li Mengyao was almost attacked by Li Ji that day. Ting Ting, this is not your fault. Li Mengyao quickly helped Chen Tingting up and comforted her. If I had sent you home that day, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. Chen Tingting said self-reproachfully. It's okay, don't think too much. Li Mengyao comforted her. Come in and sit down first, Li Mengyao said as she pulled Chen Tingting into the house. Lin Xuan also wisely returned to the bedroom, leaving them to separate spaces. Li Mengyao and Chen Tingting to the living room and sat down. Mengyao, you are pregnant now and you can run fast when you encounter danger. I should send you back, Chen Tingting said with a guilty look on her face. Ting Ting, it's really okay. Look, I'm fine besides, even if you send me off once, Li Ji will still find a chance to attack me in the future. And now Li Ji has been imprisoned, he will never have the chance to hurt me again, Li Mengyao comforted. Really, Mengyao, will we still be good friends in the future? Chen Tingting asked, with anticipation glittering in her eyes. Of course, Li Mengyao said with a smile. Hearing this, Chen Tingting showed a bright smile on her face and happily chatted with Li Mengyao. The two chatted happily, as if they had forgotten the unpleasantness that had happened before. Oh, Mengyao, your large flat in the building is so great, it is spacious, has a good view, and is luxuriously decorated, Chen Tingting said with emotion. And Chen Tingting began to complain about the strange things she encountered at work, while Li Mengyao listened with a smile and responded from time to time. After a while, Chen Tingting happily stood up, said goodbye to Li Mengyao, and went home. "Honey, let's go for a walk," Li Mengyao shouted. "I'm here." Lin Xuan came out of the bedroom and said with a smile, and Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao to the community downstairs for a walk. While taking a walk, Lin Xuan suddenly noticed that his wife seemed to have something in her mouth. She chewed gently from time to time, a satisfied smile on her face. "Wife, what are you eating?" Lin Xuan asked curiously. "Office," Li Mengyao turned around and said with a smile. "My husband wants it too." Lin Xuan smiled slightly. "I have a few more in my bag," Li Mengyao said as she stretched out her little hand and took them into her bag. Lin Xuan grabbed Li Mengyao's little hand and showed his signature smile. Li Mengyao's face turned red at first, then she shook her head left and right to make sure that there was no one around. She gently stood on tiptoe and put the candy into Lin Xuan's mouth to mouth. "Mom, someone is kissing me." At this time, a child's voice came from behind. Chapter 125 Wife, I'll be yours from now on. Li Mengyao panicked instantly and looked back quickly. She saw a little boy who looked about 6 or 7 years old staring at them with a pair of curious big eyes, as if he was studying something interesting. At this moment, a woman in her 30s came over. When she saw the scene in front of her, she immediately covered the little boy's eyes with her hands and said anxiously, "Don't look." And he picked up the little boy and walked away, muttering, "Can't you just go back and kiss again? Young people nowadays are really..." Hearing this, Li Mengyao's face instantly turned red to her ears, and she wished she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. She no longer cared about Lin Xuan's playful smile beside her, and walked forward quickly with her head down. Seeing this, Lin Xuan hurriedly chased after her and said with concern, "Wife, walk slowly, don't be anxious, be careful." He still had that cynical smile on his face. "It's all your fault," Li Mengyao muttered angrily. But her pace did not slow down at all. The two continued walking forward and soon heard the sound of cheerful music. "You are the most beautiful cloud in my sky. Let me use my heart to keep you here. Stay here." It turned out to be the sound of square dance music. Li Mengyao held Lin Xuan's hand and slowly walked towards the sound of music. After a while, they found a group of middle-aged women who were dancing. They danced to the rhythm of the music, their faces filled with joy and happy smiles. "Wife, why are you here? Do you want to dance too?" Lin Xuan asked with a smile. Li Mengyao rolled her eyes speechless after hearing this. "Look who that is." She stretched out her slender index finger and pointed lightly. Lin Xuan looked in the direction she pointed, and saw a familiar figure appear before him. "Mom?" he cried out in surprise. At this time, Huang Shifang was standing in the middle of the crowd, with a happy smile on her face, dancing happily to the rhythm of the music. "I haven't seen my mother dance so happily in a long time." Li Mengyao smiled gently, with a hint of emotion in her eyes. "Mom can dance happily like this every day from now on," Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Yeah," Li Mengyao smiled brightly at Lin Xuan. Then, she took out her mobile phone from her pocket, pointed the camera at Huang Shifang who was dancing happily, pressed the shutter button, and recorded this beautiful moment. After the filming, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao also left quietly. "It's a pity that I didn't bring my Nikon Z7i camera on this walk. I'll bring it next time to take a set of photos for my mother." After they finished their walk, they went home. It was late at night. Lin Xuan was lying on the soft bed, fiddling with Li Mengyao's smooth hair in his hands, feeling the delicate touch of her hair sliding through his fingertips. "Hubby, stop playing." Li Mengyao put down her phone, raised her head and looked at him pretending to be angry, but there was no deterrent power in her eyes. Even when a kitten is angry, isn't it still a kitten? Lin Xuan was not afraid at all and continued to play his own game. "Hubby, can we go to the countryside tomorrow?" Li Mengyao gently pushed Lin Xuan away, and said with a somewhat sad tone. When Lin Xuan heard his wife's words, he raised his head, his eyes full of concern and tenderness. "How? Why do you suddenly want to go to the countryside? Tomorrow is the anniversary of my father's death." Li Mengyao pressed her little face against Lin Xuan's chest and whispered, "Of course, I also want to meet my father-in-law." Lin Xuan hugged Li Mengyao lovingly and gently stroked her soft back. "We'll be back right after we finish watching," Li Mengyao continued. "Okay," Lin Xuan said gently. Li Mengyao slowly raised her head, and her beautiful eyes gazed deeply at Lin Xuan, her eyes full of love and gratitude. She asked softly, "Husband, why don't you ever ask about my relatives on my father's side?" Lin Xuan smiled slightly and replied gently, "If you don't want to say it, I won't ask." When Li Mengyao heard these words, a warm feeling surged in her heart and her eyes became moist. She bit her lip lightly and continued, "Actually, my grandparents used to love me very much, but everything changed after my father passed away. When my uncle's family had a boy, my grandfather began to regard us as a burden and gradually distanced himself from us." When she said this, her voice became low, as if she was recalling the painful past. Lin Xuan listened quietly. He could feel his wife's inner pain and helplessness. Lin Xuan reached out and held her little hand tightly, giving her strength and support. Li Mengyao continued to tell her story. Grandpa believed that girls would always get married when they grow up, so he treated his grandson as a treasure. Later my mother couldn't stand it anymore and had a fierce quarrel with my grandfather. She finally decided to take me and sever ties with them from then on. The mother and daughter depended on each other. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes and she wiped them away with a wrong look. Wife, you have me now, so you don't have to care about them. Lin Xuan looked at her with heartache, gently held her cheeks, and comforted her gently. He carefully wiped the tears from her face, his eyes full of determination. Ya Li Mengyao nodded with emotion, tears flashing in her eyes, but the corners of her mouth slightly raised. Lin Xuan lowered his head, pressed his forehead against Li Mengyao's and asked gently, "Are you still sad?" Li Mengyao blinked, a smile flashed in her eyes, "A little bit." Lin Xuan smiled and continued to ask, "Then what should we do?" Li Mengyao closed her beautiful eyes and said with a smile, "I want a kiss." Lin Xuan looked at her cute appearance and felt a warm feeling in his heart. He gently kissed Li Mengyao's lips. Chapter 126 Dad. I am living a very good life now. Time quickly came to the next morning after finishing breakfast. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao prepared to set off. Li Mengyao's father, Li Qingyang, has been buried in his hometown since his death. This hometown is located in Li Village, a remote small village in Jingshui City. It is quite far from the city and takes about 3 hours to drive to. "Ma, aren't you going with us?" Li Mengyao asked her mother. "I've been there before during the Qingming festival, so there's no need to go again this time. You two can go by yourselves," Huang Shifang replied. In fact, Huang Shifang also wanted to go very much, but she hoped to leave some space alone for Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao so that they could better face Li Qingyang. "Okay then. Husband, let's go." Li Mengyao nodded, then took Lin Xuan's hand and walked out of the house together. The two came to the Maybach parked downstairs. Lin Xuan carefully helped Li Mengyao sit on the passenger seat, then he returned to the driver's seat, started the car, and slowly drove out of the Times Garden community. They first bought some tribute on the road and then headed straight to Li Village. "Wife, don't you want to sleep for a while on the way?" Lin Xuan said to Li Mengyao gently. Normally, Li Mengyao would fall asleep as soon as she got on the bus, but today she sat quietly in her seat with empty eyes, as if she had lost her life. "Honey, I can't sleep," said Li Mengyao. When Lin Xuan heard this, he looked at his wife distressed and comforted her. "Then let's play some music. Maybe listening to music can help relax you." As he spoke, he turned on the car stereo and selected a few lighthearted songs. After hearing this, Li Mengyao gradually let go of her depressed mood and chatted with Lin Xuan from time to time. Time passed by minute, and after a long 4-hour drive, a dark and slender Maybach slowly drove into Li Village. The farmers were busy with farm work when they suddenly saw this luxury car driving into the village. They stopped their work in surprise and followed the vehicle's trajectory closely. They remembered that no one in the village seemed to be able to drive such a luxury car, so they started to discuss who it was. "Whose car is this? It's so beautiful," a villager exclaimed. "Yes. I've never seen such a nice car," another villager echoed. Just as everyone was talking, the Maybach stopped. The door opened, and Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao out of the car. "Wow, whose child is this? He is so beautiful," one couldn't help but exclaimed. "Yeah, that guy is so handsome. Just like a movie star," another young girl agreed. "That woman looks a bit like Li Qingman's niece." Someone recognized Li Mengyao. Since Li Qingyang's tombstone is not far from the entrance of the village, the car can only be parked on one road in the village and the rest of the way has to be walked. "Wife, be careful." Lin Xuan carefully supported Li Mengyao and slowly walked forward. "Well, I'm watching." Li Mengyao smiled at Lin Xuan and said gently. The two walked side by side and soon arrived at Li Qingyang's tombstone. At this moment, the tombstone in front of me did not accumulate much dust, but there were some fallen leaves, as if someone came to clean it regularly. A photo of Li Qingyang when he was young is engraved on the tombstone. He has a handsome face. Determination between his eyebrows and eyes, and the corners of his mouth are slightly raised, revealing a confident smile. Li Mengyao's beautiful eyes are similar to her father's, clear and bright, revealing a firm look. Lin Xuan took out the tools and began to carefully clean up the fallen leaves around the tombstone, while Li Mengyao gently arranged the tributes he brought and placed them in front of the tombstone. Considering that Li Mengyao was pregnant, Lin Xuan specially took out a soft mat and laid it on the ground. Then, they both knelt down gently together, with their knees on the mat, facing Li Qingyang's tombstone. "Dad, I'm here to see you. How have you been recently? A kind person like you must be living a happy life in heaven," Li Mengyao said softly with tears in her eyes. "Dad, I want to tell you that I am living a very good life now." Li Mengyao continued to speak with a happy smile on her face. "I have graduated from college and am married. My husband loves me very much and takes good care of me and my mother." Li Mengyao gently stroked the photo on the tombstone. "Also Dad, you're going to be a grandfather, and a grandfather to children. You will definitely be very happy if you are here. As Li Mengyao spoke, her voice gradually choked up and tears rolled down her cheeks. Lin Xuan looked at his wife with heartache and quickly took out a tissue to wipe her tears. Dad, the guy next to you is your son-in-law. How is he? Is he as handsome as you were when you were young? Li Mengyao burst into laughter and pointed at Lin Xuan to introduce him to her father. He is not only handsome, but also has his own career. He takes care of me in every possible way. Your daughter has good taste, right? She took Lin Xuan's hand and held it tightly with hers. Hello, father-in-law. I am Li Mengyao's husband Lin Xuan. He stared at the name on the tombstone, and a feeling of respect surged in his heart. Thank you very much for your love for Mengyao when she was a child. Don't worry. Mengyao will be left to me from now on. I will not let her come to any harm. He knows that this responsibility is heavy, but he is willing to spend his whole life protecting Li Mengyao and their family. The two knelt in silence, the grief in their hearts gradually turning into tranquility. After a while, Lin Xuan gently took Li Mengyao's hand and stood up. He bowed deeply to the tombstone, then turned and prepared to leave. Suddenly, a strong wind blew up, blowing up a bunch of dandelions, and they flew all over the sky like light snowflakes. These tiny dandelion seeds are dancing in the air, as if a group of elves are playing happily. They fluttered towards the sky, contrasting with the blue sky and white clouds, as if they were bravely seeking an unknown distance, forming a magnificent picture. Li Mengyao leaned on Lin Xuan's shoulder, quietly looking at the beautiful scenery in front of her. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao walked back slowly hand in hand. When they were about to reach Maybuk, they found that the villagers had gathered there and were talking about it. They're back, a villager shouted. The other villagers turned around and looked at Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao continued walking towards the Maybuk with expressionless faces. When they got closer, they found a white-haired old lady with a cane standing next to the car. Chapter 127. I will definitely take good care of Mengyao in this life. The old man's face was full of traces of time, but there was a warm light in his eyes. Yao Yao, are you back? The old lady raised her head and asked softly. Li Mengyao quickly stepped forward, held the old lady's arm, and gently replied, Grandma, I'm back. Although Grandpa and Uncle's family regarded Li Mengyao as a burden and ruthlessly abandoned her, Grandma had always been very kind to her. When we wanted to sever ties, my grandmother was strongly against it. But ultimately she was unable to change the decision. Seeing that you are living such a happy life now, Grandma feels relieved, Grandma said gently. Grandma, my mother and I are doing well, you don't have to worry, Li Mengyao said with a smile. Grandma looked at Li Mengyao carefully with her blurry eyes, and suddenly noticed that her stomach seemed to be a little strange, so she reached out her old hand and stroked it gently. Oh, Yao Yao, what are you doing? Grandma asked in surprise. Yes, Grandma, you are going to be a great grandmother, and two at that, Li Mengyao told her grandma excitedly. This is a good thing. This is a good thing, Grandma said excitedly. However, she suddenly remembered that Li Mengyao had long since severed ties with the family, and her original joyful mood instantly disappeared, replaced by a deep sigh. Then, Grandma took out a red envelope from her pocket and handed it to Li Mengyao. I am already very satisfied that you still recognize me as your grandma. Please keep this red envelope. It is for the two little ones, Grandma said with a smile. Li Mengyao knew that this was definitely originally meant for her grandson. Grandma, I can't accept it. Li Mengyao declined. But Grandma insisted. I have let you down for the past 10 years. If you still recognize me as your grandma, just take it. Grandma's eyes gradually became moist and her voice became firm. Li Mengyao had no choice but to accept the red envelope. At this time, Grandma's eyes fell on Lin Xuan, who was standing next to Li Mengyao. She smiled kindly and asked softly, Is this my grandson-in-law? He's so handsome? Lin Xuan smiled and replied, Yes Grandma, my name is Lin Xuan. Grandma nodded in praise. Lin Xuan, what a good name. Then, Grandma suddenly became serious, looked at Lin Xuan seriously and said, Lin Xuan, Grandma asks you for one thing. Please take good care of my granddaughter. Grandma, I promise you that I will take good care of Mengyao for the rest of my life, Lin Xuan said in a firm tone. Okay. I feel relieved when you say that you guys should leave quickly. When the old man comes later and sees how rich you are now, he will probably act like a rogue again, Grandma said with a smile. Grandma, let's go back then. Well, say hello to Shifang for me, and also apologize to her on behalf of Grandma. It's our Li family's fault. Grandma choked. Then Lin Xuan helped Li Mengyao get into the car, then returned to the driver's seat, started the Maybuk, and slowly drove away under the envious eyes of many villagers. Just when he was leaving the village, he happened to meet Li Qingyang's younger brother Li Qingmin. He opened his mouth in surprise, his eyes full of disbelief, because he saw that Li Mengyao, who had been abandoned, was now driving a luxury car. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao didn't even look at him, and the dark and slender Maybuk drove directly away from Li village. On the way back, Lin Xuan saw his wife looking out the window and looking very depressed. Wife, shall we sit in the back row? Lin Xuan looked at Li Mengyao, his eyes full of love and tenderness. Why? Li Mengyao turned her head and asked in a low voice. The back seat is spacious, let your husband hold you for a while. Lin Xuan said gently. Who will drive the car? Li Mengyao asked worriedly. Don't worry. Let the top intelligent driving system drive, Lin Xuan explained with a smile. After saying that, Lin Xuan parked the car on the side of the road, opened the door, got out, and took Li Mengyao to the back seat. He gently opened the car door, carefully helped Li Mengyao sit down, and then sit next to her. In the back row, Lin Xuan gently held Li Mengyao in his arms, letting her feel his care and protection. Li Mengyao's long white legs rested gently on Lin Xuan's thighs, and her little head rested on Lin Xuan's chest, as if she had found a quiet harbor. Chow Hei, start the top intelligent driving mode. Lin Xuan gave instructions to Maybach's intelligence system. Okay. Maybach responded. As the vehicle started slowly, it moved smoothly forward. Wife. Cry if you want to, but you can't cry anymore when you get home. Lin Xuan gently stroked Li Mengyao's hair and comforted her. He knew that she must have a lot of grievances and pain in her heart. And now was the time to release these emotions. Hearing this, Li Mengyao finally couldn't help it. Her tears burst out of her eyes like a dam breaking, dripping onto Lin Xuan's shirt. She hugged Lin Xuan tightly and cried freely, venting all her fatigue and sadness. Lin Xuan held her quietly, feeling her every sob, his heart filled with heartache. He could only use a tissue to wipe Li Mengyao's tears. Perhaps she was tired of crying. Li Mengyao leaned on Lin Xuan and fell into a deep sleep. Lin Xuan gently rested her head on the back seat, carefully fastened her seatbelt, and then carefully returned to the driver's seat. In fact, he had never dared to ask Li Mengyao about her father, Li Qingyang, for fear of touching the pain deep in her heart. It was not until later that he learned the truth from Huang Shifang. It turned out that Jingshui City was hit by heavy rains for several consecutive days, causing the river to flood. On his way home from get-off work, Li Qingyang found a little girl being washed away by the surging river. He jumped into the river without hesitation, and with his excellent swimming skills, he quickly rescued the little girl back to the shore. However, at this moment, the river water suddenly intensified. Li Qingyang's physical strength was exhausted, and he was eventually washed away by the ruthless river water. A little girl rescued by Li Qingyang also disappeared without a trace afterwards. Thinking of this, Lin Xuan couldn't help but feel heartbroken. His wife's childhood was really unfortunate. Time passed by minute, and finally, after nearly 4 hours of driving, the Maybach stopped steadily in the parking lot of Times Garden. Lin Xuan returned to the back seat and gently woke Li Mengyu up. Wife, we're home, Lin Xuan said gently. Chapter 128. Are all the female gangsters nowadays so self-righteous? Li Mengyao gently rubbed her beautiful eyes. Let your husband see if your eyes are swollen. Lin Xuan held up Li Mengyao's little face and looked at it carefully. Her beautiful eyes were like two bright gems, blinking at him, as if expressing endless tenderness and love. My wife is still beautiful even when she is crying. Lin Xuan couldn't help but kiss her pink cheek and said softly. Stop making trouble. Let's go home. Li Mengyao smiled shyly and handed her little hand to Lin Xuan. Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao's hand and helped her get out of the car, then walked towards the elevator. Soon, the two returned home. It was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sunlight shone through the window onto the floor, forming a golden spot of light. Ma, I'm back. At this time, Huang Shifang had already calculated the time and was bringing out a large portion of steaming noodles and a bowl of braised food from the kitchen. Hearing her daughter's call, a relieved smile appeared on her face. Are you back? Get ready to eat noodles, Huang Shifang said gently. Mom, how did you know I was hungry? Li Mengyao asked in surprise. Every time you go to see your father, you don't eat much. And you immediately feel hungry when you come back, Huang Shifang said with a smile. Husband, come and eat some noodles with gravy. My mom makes them so delicious. Li Mengyao couldn't wait to pull Lin Xuan to sit down in the restaurant, her eyes revealing excitement and anticipation. I saw her pick up a full bowl of noodles, scoop up a big spoonful of fragrant fresh braised sauce, and then skillfully stir it evenly with chopsticks. Then, she picked up the chopsticks happily, slurped the noodles, her face filled with a happy and satisfied smile. Lin Xuan also tried it and had to say that his mother's cooking skills were really good. Mom, noodles with gravy are delicious, Lin Xuan said with a smile. As long as you like it. Huang Shifang looked at the two of them and smiled happily. Since neither of them had a good meal at noon, they quickly finished the big bowl of noodles. After eating, Li Mengyao went back to her room to rest, while Huang Shifang went downstairs to check the progress of the shop's renovation. As Lin Xuan quietly left home, he went to the parking lot downstairs, started the Maybach, and drove out of the Times Garden community. Lin Xuan first came to the largest traditional market in Jingshui City and selected two exquisite lotus lanterns. In ancient times, People would release lotus lanterns to express their grief and remembrance for their deceased relatives. After buying the lotus lantern, he drove to a well-known Martin guitar store in Jingshui City. As soon as I walked into the store, an enthusiastic young male salesperson came to greet me. "Hello sir, are you here to buy a guitar?" The male salesperson smiled professionally. "Yes, may I ask which models of Martin guitars do you sell here?" Lin Xuan asked. "Oh, we have Martin E28, Martin D41, Martin D41, Martin E45 and so on. These are all very classic styles," the male salesperson introduced. At this time, Lin Xuan's attention was attracted by a guitar. He walked to the guitar involuntarily and looked at it carefully. The appearance of this guitar is absolutely beautiful. Its elegant contours and delicate lines outline an unparalleled charm that is eye-catching. "Sir, you have a good eye." A male salesperson came forward immediately and said excitedly, "This is our Martin D45 Modern Deluxe. It uses high-quality rosewood and spruce wood and has a rich, warm and balanced sound quality. Whether it is playing or singing, it can show its unique charm. It also feels great in the hand, with a comfortable neck that makes it easy to fret and strum." "This guitar does look good," Lin Xuan asked with a smile. "Can I try the sound?" Of course, the male salesperson agreed readily, and carefully took the Martin D45 Modern Deluxe off the shelf and gently handed it to Lin Xuan. After Lin Xuan took the Martin D45 guitar, he gently pressed a few strings, feeling the wonderful sound of the guitar, and smiled with satisfaction. He turned to the male salesperson and asked, "How much is this guitar?" The male salesperson smiled and replied, "Because the materials used in this guitar are very rare, the price will be slightly higher. The price is 100,000 yuan. Okay, I'll buy it. Please help me pack it up." Lin Xuan handed the Martin D45 guitar back to the male salesperson. The male salesperson took it excitedly and said happily, "Okay. Thank you very much." Then, Lin Xuan went to the front desk to pay and retrieve the shopping receipt. Just as he was about to leave, the male salesperson came over and asked, "Sir, do you want to have this guitar engraved?" After thinking for a moment, Lin Xuan smiled and replied, "Yes, please help me carve the words, Xuanmeng, on it." The male salesperson nodded to show that he understood and prepared to turn around to deal with the engraving matters. "By the way, I have something to do later. Could you please deliver this guitar to this location around 8 o'clock in the evening?" Lin Xuan opened his mobile phone and handed the address to the male salesperson for review. "Yes, since your spending in our store is over 100,000 yuan, we can meet some of your personalized requirements. We will ensure on-time delivery," the male salesperson said with a smile. "Okay, thank you for your help then." After saying that, Lin Xuan left the Martin musical instrument store and drove the Maybach home. Soon, Lin Xuan returned home, changed into comfortable home clothes, lay quietly beside Li Mengyao, and fell asleep. A time soon came to 7 o'clock in the evening, and Lin Xuan vaguely felt a pair of small hands touching his face. "Then grab it." Lin Xuan held Li Mengyao's small hand, slowly opened his eyes, and looked at his naughty wife in front of him. "Honey, you're awake." Li Mengyao blushed and said mischievously, "Wife, when did you become so dishonest?" Lin Xuan smiled and gently pinched her nose with his fingers. "No way." Li Mengyao curled her lips, lowered her head and didn't dare to look at him, feeling a little guilty. "You still say no? And what were you doing with your little hands just now?" Lin Xuan said with a smile. He stretched out a hand and gently turned Li Mengyao's cheek, forcing her to face his gaze. "I didn't do anything." Li Mengyao raised her face proudly, looking innocent. Are all the female hooligans nowadays so self-righteous?" Lin Xuan raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a sly smile. "Can this be called hooliganism?" Li Mengyao stuck out her cute little tongue, blinked her big eyes, and looked pitiful. "In that case, I'll kiss my wife too." Chapter 129 Lotus Lantern. After the two of them were intimate, they changed their clothes in the room and prepared to go downstairs for a walk. "Wife, let's go for a walk by the lake next to the community today," Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Okay." Li Mengyao smiled happily, and Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao to the lake next to Times Garden. The Yingyu Lake is like a shining pearl, inlaid in this peaceful land. The lake water is as clear as a mirror, reflecting the bright moon and the lush green trees around it, forming a magnificent natural picture. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao strolled along the lake, enjoying the freshness brought by the breeze and the peaceful environment. The two talked and laughed along the way, and soon arrived at a dead end. Li Mengyao stood by the lake, looking up at the full moon. Lin Xuan could see that his wife still missed her father, so he took out two lotus lanterns that he had prepared in advance from the bushes behind him. "I hid them here after I bought them in the afternoon." "Wife, let's light the lotus lanterns," Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Lotus lantern?" Li Mengyao turned back curiously, seeing two exquisite lotus lanterns. Each petal was carved lifelike. The petals were arranged in an orderly manner, and layered around the central wick, like a blooming lotus, exuding a quiet and peaceful beauty. Honey, when did you buy it? A hint of joy flashed across Li Mingyao's face. When you are sleeping in the afternoon. Lin Xuan smiled and handed a lotus lamp in his hand to Li Mingyao. Li Mingyao took the lotus lantern, looked at it carefully, and the corners of her mouth rose slightly. Lin Xuan said softly, "Wife, the lotus lantern can be used to express grief and remembrance for relatives." He paused for a moment and continued. "We put the lotus lanterns in the moonlight lake. I believe my father in heaven can see them too." Li Mingyao nodded slightly, her eyes a little moist. "Well, thank you, husband." She hugged Lin Xuan gently. Lin Xuan hugged her back gently, feeling her warmth. After a while, they let go of each other. Lin Xuan took out a lighter and lit the wick of the lotus lamp. Li Mingyao did the same, and then the two of them gently placed the lotus lantern on the lake. As the breeze blows, the lotus lantern sway gently on the water. The moonlight shines on the lake, reflecting the shadows of the lotus lanterns, making the whole picture look particularly beautiful. Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao stood quietly by the lake, holding hands, watching the lotus lanterns gradually fade away, their hearts filled with longing and blessings for their loved ones. Soon, the lotus had disappeared from their sight, and the time was exactly 8 o'clock in the evening. At this moment, footsteps suddenly sounded behind me. The two looked back and saw a young boy coming up to them carrying a large guitar backpack. It was the male salesperson. "Sir, this is the Martin D45 Modern Deluxe you ordered this afternoon. Please check it." "Thank you." Lin Xuan took the guitar backpack. And then the male salesperson left. Lin Xuan opened the guitar backpack, revealing an exquisite Martin E45 Modern Deluxe guitar. "Honey, why did you buy another guitar? Don't we have a piano at home?" Li Mingyao asked happily. "Guitar is more convenient. In the future, your husband can play songs for you anytime and anywhere, like now," Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Then what song will my husband play for me?" Li Mingyao felt warm and sweet in her heart, and couldn't help but smile happily. "Come here." Lin Xuan gently took Li Mingyao's hand and brought her to an exquisite pavilion by the lake. A breeze blew across the lake, bringing a hint of coolness. Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao sat on the stone bench in the pavilion. The surrounding environment was quiet and made people feel happy. Li Mingyao gently leaned her little head on Lin Xuan's shoulder, feeling his warm body temperature, then slowly closed her beautiful eyes, quietly enjoying this peaceful and beautiful moment. Lin Xuan picked up the guitar beside him, adjusted the strings, plucked the strings with his fingers, and beautiful music flowed out from his hands. The music he played was beautiful and melodious, flowing into Li Mingyao's ears like a gurgling stream, making her immersed in it and unable to extricate herself. Lin Xuan played the instrument while singing softly. "Super Idol smile. Not as sweet as you. August noon sun. Not as dazzling as you. You don't know how cute you are. After falling down, I will stand up with a silly smile. You never give up easily. My persistence in my dream has never changed. I feel relieved when you tell me. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Leave it to me. Be brave and pursue your dreams. That determined look." The song Love You 105 Degrees, by Isai is dedicated to Li Mingyao. "Wife, everything that happened before is in the past. Your husband will always be by your side from now on." Lin Xuan gently pressed his forehead against hers. "Well, my husband is the best in the world." The corners of Li Mingyao's mouth raised slightly, and the arc was as beautiful as a crescent moon, which was really beautiful. They leaned in close, their breaths mingling and caressing each other's skin softly. Slowly, their lips came closer, as if attracted by an invisible force. From a distance, they looked like a guitar-playing boy and a beautiful woman hugging and kissing each other in a pavilion, immersed in this beautiful moment together. The tranquil lake reflected the moonlight, as calm as a mirror. A bright full moon hung in the sky, illuminating their figures and bringing a mysterious and charming glow to the whole scene. It was late at night. Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao were lying on the soft big bed. "Honey, I also want to learn music," Li Mingyao said tenderly, while stretching out her little hand to gently stroke her husband's strong abdominal muscles, then looked up with a sweet smile. "Okay. Your husband will teach you from now on," Lin Xuan said gently. "Hubby, when I learn music, I will sing for you." Li Mingyao pushed her long hair behind her ears, showing a gentle and peaceful smile. Chapter 130 Grandma's House. The next day came. The morning light shone through the curtains onto the bed. Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao got up early and began to pack their luggage. Today they will go to Li Mingyao's grandmother's house. Yunqi Village is a remote small village located in a county town under Jingshui City. The family plans to stay at grandmother's house for 2 days. It takes more than 3 hours to drive from Jingshui City. "Wife, have you brought everything?" Lin Xuan asked his wife beside him with a smile. As he packed his luggage, her face was filled with a happy smile. "I've brought everything," Li Mingyao answered happily, holding a small suitcase full of gifts for her grandmother. Then the two walked out of the room and saw that Huang Shifang had packed her luggage and prepared a sumptuous breakfast. The family sat around the dining table, laughter filling the room. After breakfast, Lin Xuan, Li Mengyao and Huang Shifang went to the parking lot downstairs in the community and got into the luxurious Maybach sedan. Lin Xuan started the vehicle skillfully and selected the top intelligent driving mode. The car started slowly, and the Maybach drove smoothly out of the community and headed towards Yunxi village. They talked and laughed along the way. And soon, in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the entrance of Yunxi village. When this dark and slender Maybach slowly drove into Yunxi village, it aroused the curiosity and attention of a group of villagers. Everyone was discussing. Who is back, driving such a nice car? Is it Mr. Huang, the richest one? It doesn't look like that. The villagers were all watching the luxury car passing by. Then they watched the luxury car stop smoothly in front of a simple country building. The car door opened and a young and handsome man got out first, his eyes revealing confidence and determination. Then he walked to the passenger seat and carefully helped a beautiful woman out of the car. Finally, a middle-aged woman got out of the back seat. The villagers were all amazed. Is this from Huang Shifang's family? After Lin Xuan took the luggage out of the trunk of the car, he took Li Mengyao's hand and walked towards the building. Li Mengyao's grandmother's house is a simple country building. Although it has no luxurious decorations, it reveals a simple and unpretentious beauty. The house has a plain exterior and its white walls are slightly mottled, bearing witness to the traces of time. However, it still exudes a warm atmosphere that warms people's hearts. Li Mengyao gently pushed open the door and shouted excitedly, "Grandma! I'm back to see you." Grandma walked out of the room eagerly with a kind smile on her face. Yao Yao is back? Grandma came out of the house hurriedly with a kind smile on her face. Yes, Grandma, I miss you. Li Mengyao ran up and hugged her grandma gently. She felt her grandmother's warm embrace and felt particularly happy. Child, Grandma misses you too. Grandma patted Li Mengyao's back gently, her eyes full of love. At this time, Huang Shifang walked forward and said gently, "Mom, we are back." Grandma turned around, took Huang Shifang's hand, and said with a smile, "Okay, it's good that you all come back." At this time, she began to look at the young man standing behind her granddaughter with curiosity. "This must be my grandson-in-law," Grandma said with a smile. "Hello, Grandma. My name is Lin Xuan, and I'm Li Mengyao's husband," Lin Xuan said with a smile. Okay, oh, that's great, you're so handsome. Come in quickly." Grandma led everyone into the house with a smile. Lin Xuan looked around after entering the house. Although this country house was not as luxurious as his family's villa, the furniture here was neatly arranged and the house was very clean. It was obvious that his grandmother liked living here very much. Lin Xuan followed them into the living room after he sat down. His grandmother asked him enthusiastically, "Are you thirsty along the way?" Then she turned to Li Mengyao and said, "Grandma will pour you a glass of water." After saying that, she prepared to get up and pour the water. Li Mengyao quickly shouted, "Grandma, I'll do it myself." But Grandma smiled and waved her hands. "You are pregnant now, so let your grandma come. Although your grandma is old, she is in good health." After saying that, she walked briskly to the kitchen and quickly brought out 3 cups of warm water and placed them on the table. "Yao Yao, you're in for a treat today. Grandma will make you your favorite braised fish," Grandma said with a smile. Hearing this, Li Mengyao smiled happily. Okay. When she was a child, her favorite dish was the braised fish made by her grandmother. Soon, Grandma prepared a sumptuous lunch, and everyone sat around the dining table, happily enjoying the delicious meal. "Honey, this is delicious." Li Mengyao picked up a piece of braised fish and put it into Lin Xuan's bowl. Lin Xuan took a bite and couldn't help but exclaimed, It's delicious." Huang Shifang also smiled and said, "Ma, Lin Xuan's cooking is much better than ours." Grandma laughed so hard when she heard this. "Really? I want to try it tonight." Lin Xuan nodded quickly. "No problem, leave it to me." After enjoying lunch, everyone returned to their rooms to take a nap. There is no air conditioning in my grandmother's house. Only a small fan that is spinning hard. Although September has entered autumn, the weather is still a bit hot. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao were lying on the bed. "Honey, are you feeling uncomfortable coming here?" Li Mengyao raised her head and asked with concern. Lin Xuan smiled slightly and replied gently, "It's okay, I just feel a little hot." He reached out and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Li Mengyao immediately showed a distressed expression and said, "Then let me fan you." After saying that, she took out a small and cute fan from behind her and gently fanned Lin Xuan. When Li Mengyao was a child, she couldn't sleep because of the heat, so her mother used this fan to fan her gently. Lin Xuan quickly stopped him and said, "No, I'll do it myself. Don't tire yourself out, wife." But Li Mengyao shook her head, insisted on fanning him, and whispered, "I'm not tired." After a while, Li Mengyao said again, "Actually, it's cooler here at night. By the way, why didn't Mom and Aunt bring Grandma to the city? Life would be more convenient this way." Lin Xuan couldn't help but ask. "Of course she did. But Grandma just didn't like city life. She felt it was too strange and lonely every time she went there. She would clamor to go back to the countryside after just a few days. So we had no way of letting her go back, Li Mengyao explained. Lin Xuan said with emotion, "It seems that Grandma still prefers rural life." "Yes, Grandma said that here she has familiar neighbors with whom she can chat at any time and visit each other together." Li Mengyao nodded in agreement. "Okay. Husband, you're not hot anymore, let's go to bed," Lin Xuan said gently, while gently taking the fan from Li Mengyao's hand. And Li Mengyao lay quietly, her body gradually relaxed. And soon she fell into a sweet dream. When Lin Xuan saw Li Mengyao fell asleep, he picked up a fan and gently fanned his wife. His movements were so gentle that the sound was almost inaudible. The breeze blew across Li Mengyao's cheek, bringing a hint of coolness, and a sweet smile appeared on her beautiful face. Lin Xuan always stayed by her side, guarding her dreams. Chapter 131 Li Mengyao's grandfather. It was late afternoon, and Li Mengyao was holding Lin Xuan's hand as they took a walk in Yunxi village. As the setting sun dyed the entire Yunxi village golden, as if covering the small village with a layer of golden gauze, making it look particularly beautiful. At this time, there were still some hardworking farmers working in the fields, and their figures appeared particularly tall and upright in the afterglow of the setting sun. "Isn't this Mr. Huang's granddaughter?" A middle-aged woman in the field raised her head, looked at Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao, and said with a smile, "Auntie Huang, it's me." Li Mengyao also responded with a smile. "Oh, I didn't expect the little girl has grown up so much. She is getting more and more beautiful. Is your mother okay?" Aunt Huang asked with concern. "Very good, she comes back too," Li Mengyao replied. "Aunt Huang, this is my husband, Lin Xuan." And Li Mengyao introduced Lin Xuan to Aunt Huang. "Your husband is really handsome and a perfect match for the little girl." Aunt Huang looked at Lin Xuan carefully and said with a satisfied smile, "By the way, that luxury car is yours, right?" Aunt Huang suddenly pointed at the Maybach parked on the side of the road and asked curiously. "Yes, Aunt Huang," Lin Xuan nodded with a smile. "That's amazing. A little girl's life is finally getting better. Annie is so happy for you. Wish you all the best." Aunt Huang smiled happily. "Thank you, Aunt Huang." Li Mengyao thanked Aunt Huang with a smile. "Even though you're rich now, you can't forget Aunt Huang. I used to change your diapers when you were a child." Aunt Huang smiled and recalled the past. "Let's not talk about the past. I will never forget Aunt Huang." Li Mengyao's little face flushed slightly. Lin Xuan and Aunt Huang smiled at each other, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Then Li Mengyao continued to lead Lin Xuan forward, and soon they arrived at the only convenience store in the village. The two walked into the store and saw a middle-aged man sitting leisurely inside, fanning himself and watching TV. "Uncle Huang, I'm here to buy candy again," Li Mengyao said to Uncle Huang with a smile. "Isn't this the little girl? When did you come back?" Uncle Huang raised his head and looked at Li Mengyao with a smile. "I just came back this morning," Li Mengyao replied. "Do you still want candy?" Uncle Huang asked with a smile. "Yeah." Li Mengyao nodded happily. "Is this the little girl's boyfriend?" Uncle Huang looked at Lin Xuan carefully and asked curiously. "No, he is my husband." Li Mengyao smiled slightly. Uncle Huang looked at Lin Xuan in shock, his eyes full of disbelief. "Boy, you have to treat the little girl well. She is the happy pill of our village." After saying that, his expression became serious. "Uncle Huang, I will," Lin Xuan said firmly. Li Mengyao aside quickly interrupted and said, "Uncle Huang, he treats me very well, you can rest assured." Her face was filled with a happy smile. Uncle Huang nodded slightly to show his satisfaction, then smiled and said, "That's good. This box of white rabbit candy is for you." After saying that, he handed the candy in his hand to Li Mengyao. Li Mengyao quickly shook her head and declined. "No, that won't work. It's not easy for Uncle Huang either." Then, she quickly took out her mobile phone and prepared to scan the code to pay. However, Lin Xuan was quick-witted and completed the payment first. Uncle Huang couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. "You used to come to my place often to eat candy, and you didn't have to be so reserved." Li Mengyao smiled slightly and said shyly, "I didn't know much before. Thank you, Uncle Huang. We are leaving now." Then, she took Lin Xuan's hand, turned and left. On the way back, Li Mengyao excitedly opened the wrapper of the candy, took out one and put it in her mouth, feeling the sweet taste. "Honey, open your mouth." Li Mengyao turned to look at Lin Xuan and said with a smile. After hearing this, Lin Xuan was stunned. They were still on the way. Did his wife want to kiss him now? "Oh, sorry." Lin Xuan opened his mouth with anticipation, waiting for Li Mengyao's sweet lips. He was greeted with a candy. "Husband, are you thinking the wrong thing?" Li Mengyao looked at Lin Xuan's dull expression and couldn't help but chuckle. Lin Xuan said with some disappointment, "I thought my wife would feed me." "You wish. Now that you have your own candy, you are not allowed to eat mine," Li Mengyao said proudly. "We can exchange." Lin Xuan showed his signature smile. Li Mengyao gave Lin Xuan a blank look. As night fell, Lin Xuan walked into the kitchen, ready to cook a sumptuous dinner by himself. He skillfully cut vegetables, stir-fried and stewed them, and delicious dishes gradually appeared on the table. The stir-fried beef with hot peppers has an enticing aroma. The lamb stewed with carrots is rich and mellow, the steamed sea bass is tender and juicy, and the mushroom and chicken soup is nutritious. Lin Xuan, your cooking skills are so good, Grandma couldn't help but exclaimed after tasting the food. Mom, I told you. Lin Xuan's cooking skills are much better than ours, Huang Shifang said with a happy smile on her face. If you like it, come back often to cook for Grandma, Lin Xuan said with a smile. And it seems I'm in for a treat, Grandma smiled happily. The whole family sat around the dining table, enjoying this warm moment. After dinner in the evening, Li Mengyao took Lin Xuan to a small pond. The two sat on the stone chairs, looking at the small pond and the rice fields in the distance, quietly enjoying the tranquility of the countryside at night. The moonlight shines down, illuminating the water's surface, creating a silvery glow. As the breeze blew, the rice ears in the rice fields swayed gently, making a slight rustling sound. Lin Xuan asked softly, Wife, why did Aunt Huang say in the afternoon that you are Mr. Huang's granddaughter? According to common sense, shouldn't we just call out the specific name? Li Mengyao sighed slightly and explained. Because my grandpa used to be a teacher in the village in the past. All the children in the village were taught by my grandpa, so everyone respected him and used to call him Mr. There was a hint of sadness in her voice. Lin Xuan asked softly, Then your grandpa? He was about to ask further. But when he saw a hint of sadness in Li Mengyao's eyes, he did not continue asking. Chapter 132 Rice Fragrance. After a moment of silence, Li Mengyao slowly said, My grandfather, like my father, died young after leaving behind my two aunts and my mother. He suddenly fell ill, leaving 3 women to depend on each other. Her eyes revealed deep sadness. Lin Xuan silently held Li Mengyao's hand. Li Mengyao continued, Because of this, our family and my aunt's family have a very deep relationship. Lin Xuan never expected that his wife's family would be so miserable. Wife, I will always be with you from now on. Lin Xuan hugged Li Mengyao gently and said tenderly, Well, my husband said it before. I always believe in you, Li Mengyao responded with a smile. Wife, do you want to listen to some music? Lin Xuan asked with a smile. Li Mengyao's eyes lit up and she smiled happily. I want you. Then wait a moment, honey, I'll be back soon. Lin Xuan immediately stood up and left the small pond. Soon, he returned with a Martin D45 guitar. Li Mengyao asked in surprise, Husband, why did you bring a guitar? Lin Xuan explained with a smile. The guitar is placed in the trunk of the Maybach so that I can play music for my wife at any time. This small gesture made Li Mengyao feel Lin Xuan's care and love for her. So what song is my husband going to sing? Li Mengyao raised her head and looked at Lin Xuan with a smile, her eyes full of anticipation. Lin Xuan did not answer, but concentrated on playing the guitar. As his fingers plucked the strings, a beautiful guitar sound rang out, like the sound of nature. Immediately afterwards, Lin Xuan started singing. If you have too many complaints about this world, if you fall, you won't dare to move forward. Why are people so fragile and depraved? Please turn on the TV. How many people are trying to bravely move forward for their lives? Should we be content? Treasure everything even if you don't have it. Remember you said home is the only castle. Keep running along the rice-fragrant river. I know the dream of my childhood. Don't cry, let the fireflies take you away. Countryside songs are an eternal reliance. O home and return to the original beauty. Daichu's song Rice Fragrance has been played. His voice is clear and infectious, and he interprets the emotions in the lyrics vividly. The whole pond was immersed in this wonderful music, as if time had stopped. At this moment, Li Mengyao leaned quietly on Lin Xuan's shoulder, gently closed her beautiful eyes, and immersed herself in the wonderful music. Her face was filled with a happy smile, as if the whole world had become beautiful. Lin Xuan raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and asked softly, Wife, does it sound good? Li Mengyao opened her beautiful eyes, with a gleam of joy in them, and replied with a smile, It sounds good. Is there any reward? Lin Xuan looked at her and smiled. Yes. Li Mengyao blinked mischievously when she heard that, and looked around. She felt relieved only after confirming that there was no one around, including no little kids. She stretched out her little hand and took out 2 candies from her pocket. Then, she gently reached into her pocket and took out 2 candies, gently tore open the wrapping paper, handed one to Lin Xuan first, and then ate one herself. Is this the only reward? Lin Xuan was a little disappointed. Oh, there's more. After saying that, she hugged Lin Xuan's neck tightly with her little hands, raised her head, and offered her soft and fragrant lips. Unconsciously, the two exchanged candies. Time quickly came to noon of the next day. After having lunch at her grandmother's house, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao prepared to set off back to Jingshui City. Mom, You really don't need to bring so many things. Huang Shifang stopped her when she saw her mother was about to load bags into the car again. These chickens, ducks and geese are all raised at home. So you can eat them with more peace of mind, and these vegetables are all grown by me personally, so there is absolutely no pollution. You can take them back to nourish Yao Yao's body. As the grandmother spoke, she handed the bag in her hand to her daughter. Huang Shifang took the bag helplessly, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. I know, Mom, is this enough? Not enough. Not enough, how can this be possible? Grandma didn't listen at all and continued to stuff all kinds of agricultural products into the trunk of the Maybach. Okay. It's finally full. Grandma looked at the trunk that was stuffed to the brim and nodded with satisfaction. And Lin Chuan helped Li Mengyao get into the car, and Huang Shifang also sat in the back seat. Have a safe trip, Grandma shouted loudly, standing at the door. Got it. Mom, let us go. Huang Shifang opened the car window and responded. Grandma, we'll come to see you next time. Li Mengyao smiled sweetly and waved out the window. Grandma, we're leaving. Lin Chuan also said goodbye to his grandmother with a smile. Okay, be careful on the road. Grandma waved her hand with a kind smile on her face. As Lin Chuan pressed the start button, the Maybach slowly drove out of his grandmother's house and headed towards Jingshui City. In the few days after returning home, Li Mengyao bought a yoga mat and maternity yoga clothes online, and learned to do yoga while watching videos at home. She felt her body was becoming increasingly bulky, so she decided to take up yoga to stay fit. Now she's starting to gain weight, can clearly feel the fetal movement, and has frequent urination. These are all common symptoms of pregnancy. Lin Chuan took care of Li Mengyao at home, massaging her legs and waist every day to relieve her discomfort. He would also prepare a variety of nutritious foods for her to ensure that she and the babies got enough nutrition. Once, Lin Chuan put a little bit of chili in the dish, the slightly spicy kind. After taking a bite, Li Mengyao let out and Lin Chuan was so scared that he stood up hurriedly. He asked worriedly, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" "No, the baby just kicked me," Li Mengyao said with a smile. "And don't eat this plate of beef. Auntie, I put a little bit of chili in it." Lin Chuan hurriedly took the dish away, fearing that Li Mengyao would feel uncomfortable after eating it. It seems that the baby doesn't like spicy food. At night, before going to bed, Lin Chuan gently put his hand against Li Mengyao's belly and listened carefully to see if he could hear the baby's sound. Suddenly a faint sound came from Li Mengyao's stomach. "Honey, did you hear that? The baby just moved?" Li Mengyao shouted in surprise, with a happy smile on her face. "I heard it, I really heard it." Lin Chuan smiled happily like a little child. Chapter 133. What name should the babies be given? Lin Chuan continued to listen to Li Mengyao's belly for a while, but this time he didn't hear any movement. However, this did not affect his excitement. He happily lay back on the bed, hugged Li Mengyao tightly with one hand, and placed the other hand leisurely behind his head. He stared at the ceiling and began to fall into deep thought. It's almost time to give the babies nice names. What should I name my son? And my daughter? Lin Chuan was thinking hard. "Wife, what do you think we should name our babies?" Lin Chuan asked, gently, stroking Li Mengyao's hair. "Isn't it too early to consider this issue now?" Li Mengyao raised her head and said gently. "It's getting late, we need to prepare in advance." Lin Chuan gently hugged Li Mengyao and said with a smile. "But I haven't thought about it yet. Why don't we wait a little longer?" Li Mengyao said with a smile. "Okay," Lin Chuan said lovingly. The next day, Lin Chuan went to the market to buy vegetables in the morning and unexpectedly saw a stall selling northeastern ingredients. This reminded him of the few domestic geese that his grandmother had brought. With an ideal in mind, he decided to buy some ingredients, go back and cook a sumptuous northeastern meal for his wife. Lin Chuan enthusiastically selected various northeastern specialty ingredients, such as vermicelli and hazel mushrooms, and then returned home happily with a great harvest. At noon, near mealtime, Li Mengyao was reading quietly on the balcony when she suddenly smelled an enticing fragrance. She closed the book and went to the restaurant following the smell. Just then, Lin Chuan walked out of the kitchen with a large iron pot in his hand, which was full of food and exuded bursts of tempting aroma. He put the pot on the dining table and opened the lid. In the pot, he saw tender and juicy goose meat, chopped potatoes, golden corn, delicious hazel mushrooms and soft and glutinous vermicelli. "Wow! It smells so good," Li Mengyao couldn't help but exclaimed, staring at the pot of stewed goose in the iron pot. "This is a specialty dish from northeast China that I made especially for you." "Goose stewed in an iron pot," Lin Chuan said proudly. "Honey, can you cook northeastern cuisine?" Li Mengyao asked in surprise. "Of course, your husband can do everything," Lin Chuan answered confidently, then kissed her slightly open mouth. Li Mengyao hummed, then looked back in panic, only to find that Huang Shifang had just come out of the room, looking at them with a smile on her face. She suddenly felt very shy, her face turned red like a ripe apple, and she glared at Lin Chuan angrily. So Lin Chuan was soon pinched hard. and Lin Xuan brought out a plate of delicious local seafood and a plate of braised pork bones with a strong sauce flavor from the kitchen. In this way, a sumptuous northeastern meal was placed on the table, and the family sat around and began to enjoy the food. Honey, it's so delicious. Li Mengyao picked up a piece of goose meat soaked in soup and put it into her mouth. After chewing it carefully, a happy smile appeared on her face. Lin Xuan, have you ever been to Northeast China before? The taste is very authentic. Wang Shifang also tasted it and was amazed. I haven't been there. I learned all this on the internet. If it tastes good, eat more. After saying that, Lin Xuan picked up another piece of tempting goose meat for Wang Shifang and Li Mengyao. This sauced bone smells so good. This local dish of 3 fresh vegetables is also very delicious. Li Mengyao couldn't stop eating. Eat slowly. Lin Xuan looked at Li Mengyao and smiled. As night falls, stars twinkle on the tranquil Yingyi Lake. Lin Xuan takes Li Mengyao for a leisurely walk by the lake. Lin Xuan listened to Li Mengyao's whispers while admiring the beautiful night view of the lake. Under the moonlight, the two figures looked particularly warm. Someone, come and save my grandson. Suddenly, a burst of urgent cries for help rang out by the lake, breaking the silence. Chapter 134. I just hope you can always stay by my side. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao looked at each other and immediately walked quickly towards the direction where the sound came from. They passed through the dense woods and came to an exquisite pavilion, where they saw an old lady in luxurious clothes shouting anxiously. Her face was full of fear and her eyes revealed despair and helplessness. Old man, what happened? Lin Xuan asked with concern. The old lady pointed to the lake beside the pavilion with a shaking hand and said in a choked voice, my grandson fell into the lake. I can't swim. Lin Xuan looked in the direction the old lady pointed, and saw a small figure struggling desperately on the lake not far away, and soon sank. At this time, there were already some people watching. Some were calling the police, some were watching the excitement, and some were looking for lifebuoys, but no one went to rescue. Wife, I'll be back soon. Lin Xuan quickly took off his shirt and stuffed it to Li Mengyao. Hubby, be careful. Before Li Mengyao could finish her words, Lin Xuan had already jumped into the lake. The lake water was icy cold, but he didn't care and swam hard to where the little boy was. Li Mengyao stood anxiously by the lake, her hands clenched tightly together, staring intently at the place where Lin Xuan dived into the lake, praying silently in her heart that everything would go well. Time passed by minute, but Lin Xuan still did not surface. 30 seconds passed, and Lin Xuan still didn't show up. Li Mengyao frowned and began to worry. A minute passed, and Lin Xuan still didn't come up. Li Mengyao paced back and forth anxiously, her eyes always fixed on the lake, hoping to see Lin Xuan's figure. 2 minutes passed, and Lin Xuan still didn't show up. Li Mengyao's face turned pale, her lips trembled slightly, and tears welled up in her eyes. She couldn't help but wonder, will Lin Xuan be in danger? Will he be entangled by water plants? Will he? Every second seemed to last as long as a year. Finally, another 30 seconds passed. A lake suddenly rippled, and Lin Xuan's head emerged from the water. Still holding the child tightly in his arms, he paddled hard and swam towards the shore. Li Mengyao had been waiting anxiously on the shore, not daring to take her eyes off the lake for a moment. When she saw Lin Xuan surfacing, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes, but more of worry. Li Mengyao clenched her fists tightly, tears welled up in her eyes again and slid down her cheeks. Soon, Lin Xuan successfully brought the little boy back to shore. At this time, the little boy was completely unconscious and his face was frighteningly pale. Lin Xuan did not hesitate and immediately began to give first aid to the child. Following what he had learned, he rhythmically pressed the little boy's chest and then performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Time and again, Lin Xuan kept repeating this action, hoping to wake up this poor life. However, despite Lin Xuan's best efforts, the little boy still did not respond. Junar, wake up, don't scare grandma. The old grandmother next to him had already burst into tears. She called her grandson's name in a trembling voice, hoping that a miracle would happen. Lin Xuan continued to perform CPR, but the little boy still did not respond. Just when he was about to give up, a miracle happened. As it came out of the little boy's mouth, his body twitched slightly. Lin Xuan was overjoyed and continued to perform first aid. The little boy coughed and spit out a lot of lake water, and his breathing gradually returned to normal. At this time, police cars and ambulances arrived at the scene. The medical staff quickly got out of the car, immediately examined the little boy, and immediately sent him to the hospital for further treatment. Lin Xuan breathed a sigh of relief, and the stone in his heart finally fell. Li Mengyao ran over excitedly and threw herself into Lin Xuan's arms, tears flowing uncontrollably. Wife, it's okay. Lin Xuan gently stroked Li Mengyao's hair, but Li Mengyao just hugged Lin Xuan tightly and didn't say anything. Afterwards, Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao's hand and slowly left the scene. At Jingshui People's Hospital, A doctor in a white coat carefully gave the little boy a comprehensive examination. His tense expression finally relaxed and he breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. The child is no longer in danger and is in a stable condition. Fortunately, the child received emergency treatment in time. After drowning, if it was delayed, the consequences would be disastrous. Hearing the doctor's words, the old lady who had been waiting beside him was so excited that tears almost fell out of her eyes. She held the doctor's hand tightly and thanked him repeatedly. Thank you, doctor, thank you, doctor, thank you. However, at this moment, the old lady suddenly realized something. Just now, I was so focused on rushing to get on the ambulance that I completely forgot about the young man who saved my grandson's life. At this moment, he had already disappeared without a trace. After returning home in the evening, Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao into the master bedroom bathroom to take a shower. However, during the whole process, Li Mengyao remained silent, with slightly red eyes, as if she was still immersed in the thrilling incident that had just happened and unable to let it go. After taking a shower, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao changed into comfortable pajamas and lay on the soft bed. Lin Xuan gently embraced Li Mengyao in his arms and asked with concern, "Wife, are you still angry with me?" Li Mengyao responded softly, with a hint of grievance and worry in her voice. "I'm sorry, honey. I shouldn't have made you worry." Lin Xuan lowered his head and gazed at Li Mengyao affectionately, his eyes full of love and tenderness. "Hubby, I don't want you to be a hero, nor do I want you to be a savior in the eyes of others. I just hope you can always stay by my side, safe and sound." Li Mengyao's voice trembled slightly, and tears slid down her fair cheeks, leaving behind a trail of crystal-clear tear marks. A thrilling 3 minutes just now made her feel deeply the fear of losing Lin Xuan. "Wife, I grew up by the sea, so I'm a good swimmer. I'm confident I could save him in that situation. Even if he really reaches his limit, I can still get out of it." Lin Xuan gently wiped away the tears from the corners of Li Mengyao's eyes while explaining patiently. In fact, Lin Xuan was already a very good swimmer, and after being strengthened by the system, his physical fitness was far beyond that of ordinary people. Therefore, he was able to stay in the water for a long time, and even if he could not successfully rescue people, he was confident that he could retreat safely. "Then why didn't you tell me at the beginning?" Li Mengyao looked at Lin Xuan and said a grieved lie. "The situation was urgent just now and I didn't have time to explain it to you, but if I encounter similar things in the future, I will definitely tell you in advance." Lin Xuan replied gently. "I will only take action when I am sure. If I am not sure, I will not take risks easily." Lin Xuan then said firmly, "Husband, am I a bad woman?" Li Mengyao lowered her head and asked in a low voice. "How could that be? You're just worried about me. You, Ray, the best wife in the world." Lin Xuan comforted her and gently kissed her on the forehead. "If my husband is absolutely sure, I certainly hope you will go and save people. After all, saving lives is a great thing." Li Mengyao raised her pretty head and smiled faintly. Chapter 135. If you don't agree, I will always follow you. The next day came. A morning light shone into the room through the curtains. Lin Xuan woke up slowly, and when he opened his eyes, the first thing that caught his eye was Li Mengyao's peaceful little face, resting gently on his chest with a faint smile on her lips. A feeling of warmth and happiness surged in Lin Xuan's ear that couldn't help but lower his head and leave a gentle kiss on Li Mengyao's forehead. Then, he carefully prepared to get up, fearing that he would wake up the beauty in his arms. However, just as he tried to take away Li Mengyao's hand that was hooked around his waist, Li Mengyao frowned slightly. Then, her beautiful eyes slowly opened, revealing a hint of confusion and sleepiness. As soon as Li Mengyao opened her eyes, she saw Lin Xuan preparing to leave. "Honey, where are you going?" Li Mengyao hurriedly grabbed Lin Xuan's hand and asked in a soft voice. After last night's thrilling events, she was afraid that Lin Xuan would disappear from her sight again. "Baby, your husband just remembered to make breakfast for you. You should sleep a little longer, dear." Lin Xuan kissed Li Mengyao's little face gently again, then gently comforted her and lay down again. Looking at Li Mengyao's charming face, Lin Xuan couldn't help but sigh that his wife was so beautiful. "Hubby, from now on, no matter what you do, you must tell me first." Li Mengyao blinked her beautiful big eyes and spoke to Lin Xuan seriously. Lin Xuan was a little confused. "If you don't agree, I will follow you wherever you go," Li Mengyao said with a pout. "Then will you take a bath with your husband?" "Follow?" Li Mengyao's delicate face flushed and she said in a low voice. "Compared to my husband disappearing in front of me, I'd better sacrifice myself temporarily." Looking at his wife's adorable appearance, Lin Xuan couldn't help but feel an impulse in his ear. He leaned over and gently held Li Mengyao's little face, and kissed her cherry-red little mouth. "Well, I haven't washed up yet," Li Mengyao said vaguely. However, Lin Xuan didn't care at all. He raised his head and said with a smile, "My husband doesn't mind." After saying that, he was ready to kiss her again. Seeing this, Li Mengyao quickly covered her mouth and said in a coquettish tone, "Hubby, go make breakfast. I'm hungry." "Okay." Then Lin Xuan got up, went to the kitchen and started preparing breakfast for today. Soon, 2 bowls of steaming fish head noodles were brought to the table again. Huang Qifeng had to go out early in the morning to supervise the work, so Lin Chuan and Li Mengyao were the only ones at home. "Wife, come and have breakfast." "I'm coming." Li Mengyao had already gotten up, finished washing up, and was walking out of the sink. She had a fresh smile on her face and looked very charming. Afterwards, Lin Chuan took Li Mengyao's hand and went to the restaurant together. "Wow, it's my favorite powder again." Li Mengyao shouted happily when she saw the breakfast on the dining table. The two happily enjoyed the delicious breakfast, chatting and enjoying this warm moment. After breakfast, they came to the living room, sat on the comfortable solid wood sofa, and each picked up their mobile phones to play. Time passed minute by minute, and Lin Chuan suddenly seemed to remember something. He stood up and prepared to leave. "Husband, have you forgotten what I just said?" Li Mengyao pouted and said dissatisfiedly when she saw Lin Chuan was about to leave. When Lin Chuan heard what Li Mengyao said, he suddenly realized, "Oh, yes, my husband went out to buy groceries." He turned around, gently pinched Li Mengyao's little face, and said with a smile, "I want to go too." Li Mengyao raised her head and looked at Lin Chuan with a proud face. Lin Chuan smiled, nodded and said, "Okay, let's go change clothes together." After saying that, he took Li Mengyao's hand and went back to the bedroom together. The two of them had already been honest with each other, so they didn't hide anything when changing clothes. Soon, Lin Chuan and Li Mengyao changed into light clothes, then walked out of the house holding hands. The early morning sun casts mottled shadows through the leaves, and the breeze gently blows across your face, bringing a cool feeling. There is a special vegetable market near Times Garden, which is bustling and full of life. Lin Chuan and Li Mengyao walked hand in hand on the path in the community, enjoying this peaceful and beautiful time. After a while, they arrived at the vegetable market. Lin Chuan smiled and asked Li Mengyao, "Wife, do you still want to eat northeastern food today?" Li Mengyao looked at him with sparkling eyes, smiled sweetly, nodded and said, "Yes." "Then your husband will make something different for you today." After saying that, he took Li Mengyao's hand and walked into the vegetable market. The vegetable market is bustling with people, and there are all kinds of stalls filled with fresh vegetables, fruits, meat, and seafood. Lin Chuan took Li Mengyao to shuttle between the stalls, selecting the ingredients they needed. He carefully selects each item to ensure that they are the freshest and highest quality. Soon, Lin Chuan bought all the ingredients and then returned along the original route with Li Mengyao. After returning home, Lin Chuan and Li Mengyao continued to sit on the solid wooden sofa in the living room and watch TV. The anime Natsume's Book of Friends was playing on EV. The warm scenes and touching stories moved people's hearts. Li Mengyao nestled quietly in Lin Chuan's arms, watching the TV program attentively, with a happy smile on her face. Suddenly she raised her head and said to Lin Chuan, "Hubby, seeing Teacher Miao, I miss you." Lin Chuan replied casually, You may not miss you." "Huh? No, what I mean is that you misses you too." Lin Chuan quickly changed the words. Li Mengyao rolled her eyes at Lin Chuan angrily and said nothing more. Time passed quickly and it was almost time for dinner. Lin Chuan looked at the clock hanging on the wall, then stood up and prepared to go to the kitchen to cook. "Don't come into the kitchen, be obedient." Lin Chuan turned around and told his wife, who was about to follow him, saying with a smile, "Okay." Li Mengyao was a little reluctant, but still agreed. Then Lin Chuan went into the kitchen and started to get busy. After a while, Huang Qifeng came back. As soon as she entered the door, she smelled the aroma of food and her mood immediately became cheerful. "Mom, thank you for your hard work." Li Mengyao came up happily. "It's not that hard at all. It's much easier than working in a supermarket," Huang Qifeng replied with a smile. At this moment, Lin Chuan brought up a plate of delicious dishes. "Let's eat." There are juicy chicken stewed with hazel mushrooms, soft and tasty catfish stewed with eggplant, crispy and tender braised pork slices, and soft and boneless pork ribs stewed with beans. Every dish exudes a rich aroma. P.S. Why do I feel like all classic northeastern dishes are stewed? Chapter 136 Simple Love. After a hearty lunch, the family went back to their rooms to rest. It was afternoon, and after waking up, Lin Chuan and Li Mengyao continued to watch the Natsume's Book of Friends anime in the living room. After watching the second season, Li Mengyao suddenly looked up and said, "Honey, it seems that the piano at home has not been used yet." Lin Chuan smiled gently and responded, "Wife, do you want to listen to some music?" "Yeah." Li Mengyao smiled happily and nodded. "Then your husband will play the piano and sing for you." Lin Chuan got up and turned off the TV, and took Li Mengyao's hand and walked to the piano, asking her to sit next to him. "What song is your husband going to sing for me this time?" Li Mengyao blinked her eyes, which were as pure and bright as a deer, and stared at Lin Chuan with anticipation. Lin Chuan smiled mysteriously and replied, "You will know later." After saying that, he gently kissed Li Mengyao's delicate red lips, Then Lin Xuan's fingers gracefully fell on the piano keys. Like a dancing butterfly, the melodious piano sound rang out, like a stream of clear spring flowing in the air. At the same time, he began to sing affectionately. I can't explain why I became so proactive. If you love someone, everything is worth doing. I want to loudly declare that I can't bear to leave you. Even my neighbors can guess how I feel right now. I want to hold your hand like this and never let go. And love always be pure and without sadness. I want to take you cycling. I want to watch baseball with you. I don't have to worry about it. Keep walking while singing. I want to hold your hand like this and never let go. Can love be simple and without harm? You lean on my shoulder. You fell asleep on my chest. A life like this. I love you and you love me. I want to love simply. A song Simple Love by Jaichu is dedicated to Li Mingyao. Wife, does it sound good? Lin Xuan looked at Li Mingyao tenderly. It sounds nice. Li Mingyao raised her head and looked at Lin Xuan affectionately. Their eyes met, and their faces got closer and closer and closer and soon collided with each other. Lin Xuan kissed her soft lips gently. It was evening again. The sun was setting, and the sky was covered with a gorgeous sunset glow. Huang Qifang came back from supervising the shop. As soon as she opened the door, she saw her daughter Li Mingyao sitting on the sofa in the living room with red cheeks. Yao Yao, I'm back, Huang Qifang said with a smile. Mom. Welcome back, Li Mingyao said. Yao Yao, why is your face so red? Huang Qifang asked. No, nothing, maybe it's the heat. Li Mingyao explained in a panic. Oh, Huang Qifang didn't think about it any further after all. The weather in Jingshui City was still quite hot, even though it was autumn in September. At this moment, Lin Xuan emerged from the kitchen. It's time for dinner again. And the family enjoyed dinner happily. In the evening, Lin Xuan sat in the living room and watched TV leisurely. At this time, the mobile phone screen lights up, showing a new group message reminder. He opened it and found that it was a conversation in the 622 Fentong group. Chen Jingming excitedly sent a message. Children, Dad is back to full health. Can I log in tonight? Chu Quan replied. Don't you need to be a slave to your mentor? Chen Jingming warned seriously. I'm warning you once, don't mention the word mentor to me. Zhang Zisheng also asked, does your instructor allow you to play games? Chen Jingming warned again. I warn you again, don't mention the word mentor to me. If you say it too many times, I won't be able to sleep at night. Then he urged, hurry up and get on the number, don't dilly-dally. Chu Quan replied impatiently, why are you rushing? The emperor is not in a hurry, but the eunuch is. Zhang Zisheng said, I'm already logged in. Finally, Chen Jingming called Lin Xuan. Lin Xuan, we are short of one person, you are the only one missing. After reading the news, Lin Xuan couldn't help but laugh out loud. He turned to look at Li Mingyao beside him and said with a smile, wife, my college roommate wants to play games with me. Well, go ahead, Li Mingyao nodded with a smile. Lin Xuan happily replied to the group. Here we are, let daddy take you flying. Then, he quickly got up, walked to the computer room, started up his Dell Alienware or IR-15 computer, opened the Canyon of Heroes, and prepared to dominate the canyon with his roommates. Lin Xuan, oh my god, it's me. I came down from the middle to support. Why are you zooming in on me? Chu Quan, sorry, I want to use my ultimate when I see Yasuo. Lin Xuan. Time flies. And the Mid-Autumn Festival is here in the blink of an eye. It was a sunny morning that day. Lin Xuan and Lin Engyao got up early, dressed up carefully, and prepared to take Huang Qifang to Yanhe City to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. Everyone came to the parking lot downstairs of Times Garden and got into the Maybach together. Lin Xuan skillfully turned on the top-level intelligent driving system, and the Maybach drove out of the parking lot smoothly and headed towards Yanhe City along the wide road. Along the way, the car was filled with laughter. About an hour and a half later, Maybach finally arrived at its destination, the parking lot of the villa in Yanhe home. Huang Qifang looked at the luxurious villa in front of him in amazement and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Lin Xuan's family is too rich. We're here, Lin Xuan said with a smile. And the three of them got out of the car together and walked into the Yanhe villa. At this time, Shang Shalan, Lin Zhengyuo and Lin Sisi were already waiting at the door. When she saw them appear, Shen Shalan showed a happy smile on her face and hurried forward to greet them. Welcome in-laws. Huang Qifang also responded with a smile. I am bothering you again. Shan Shalan waved her hands quickly. No way. It's more lively when there are more people. Come on, come in quickly. Lin Sisi's eyes fell on her brother and sister-in-law, especially the Maybach. She ran forward excitedly and asked curiously, brother, when did you buy a new car? That's so cool. Chapter 137. Wife, you're really good at this. Your brother's first car is this Maybach. Lin Xuan touched Lin Sisi's little head and said with a smile. What about the Xiaomi SU7 from last time? Lin Sisi asked, puzzled. Lie. That channel is for your sister-in-law, Lin Juan explained. Oh, Lin Cixi nodded. But then realized something. That's not right, brother. You drive a luxury car worth millions. But you drive a car worth hundreds of thousands for your sister-in-law? As she spoke, Lin Cixi ran to Li Mengyao, took her arm, and said mischievously, "Sister-in-law, this is not fair." Lin Juan was stunned. How come my sister, whom I raised with great effort, bent her arm in just a short while? Cixi, you misunderstood. Lin Juan later bought me a new sports car, Li Mengyao explained gently. Does that mean there is a Xiaomi SU7 left? Lin Cixi's eyes lit up and she was secretly delighted. I am now in my third year of high school and will soon graduate and take the driver's license test. Once you get your driver's license, you can drive out for fun. Thinking of this, Lin Cixi's mind began to imagine herself going for a drive, and an expectant smile appeared on her face. Sister, what are you thinking about? Lin Xuan looked at Lin Cixi, who was daydreaming, and couldn't help but walk up to her and pinch her fair cheek. Lin Cixi's thoughts were suddenly interrupted. She came back to her senses and turned to look at Lin Xuan. Brother, is that Xiaomi SU7 empty? Can I drive it after graduation? No, Lin Xuan refused decisively. My good brother. Lin Cixi instantly ran to Lin Xuan again, grabbed his arm and acted coquettously sly. Did you just tell that LS to your sister-in-law? Lin Xuan asked. No, I was just talking casually. Lin Cixi scratched her head and explained quickly. You are punished to prepare lunch with your brother. Lin Xuan scratched Lin Cixi's little nose, then took Li Mengyao back to the villa. Oh, Lin Cixi touched her nose. Although she was a little reluctant, she still nodded obediently. After returning home, Shan Shalan, Lin's Engjiuo and his wife, Huang Shifang and Li Mengyao were chatting in the living room. Lin Xuan and Lin Cixi were busy in the kitchen. They are going to have dumplings for lunch today. Prepare a big dinner in the evening. Yao Yao. Your belly is finally showing. Are the babies okay? Shan Shalan stared at Li Mengyao's slightly bulging belly and asked with concern. I just went for a pregnancy checkup not long ago. And the doctor said the babies are developing well. Li Mengyao replied with a smile, gently stroking her belly. That's good. You've been pregnant for more than 5 months now, so you must take good care of yourself from now on, Shang Shalan reminded. Okay. I'll pay attention, Li Mengyao nodded, a happy smile on her face. Then Shang Shalan and Huang Shifang talked about the things that Li Mengyao needed to prepare before giving birth. At the same time, Li Mengyao sat quietly on the sofa, looking towards the kitchen from time to time. In the kitchen, Lin Xuan was preparing the minced meat. Skillfully cut the meat into small pieces and then chopped it up with a knife. Lin Cixi was rolling out the dough on the side. Her movements were brisk and the dough quickly turned into thin dumpling skins in her hands. Sister, please roll the dumpling skins thinner, Lin Xuan reminded while chopping the stuffing. I know. You stinky brother. Lin Cixi pouted and grumbled in dissatisfaction, but her hands did not stop moving. Honey, I want to help too. At this moment, Li Mengyao suddenly poked her cute little head out from the kitchen door and said to Lin Xuan with a smile. Wife? What are you doing here? Let me take care of these. Go back and have a rest. Lin Xuan immediately put down the work in his hands, came to the kitchen door, and said gently. I'm not tired. Li Mengyao shook her head gently and looked at Lin Xuan with firm eyes. There's a smell of cooking fumes here, and I'm worried you'll have morning sickness. Lin Xuan looked at her worriedly, frowning slightly. No, I feel fine now. I can help you make the dumplings. I'll go back when you start steaming them. Li Mengyao comforted him with a smile, her tone relaxed and natural. Okay then. Lin Xuan couldn't persuade Li Mengyao, so he nodded helplessly, with a hint of pampering in his eyes. Afterwards, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao went into the kitchen together. This was the first time Li Mengyao had walked into the kitchen since her last bout of morning sickness, and everything around her felt a little unfamiliar to her. Cixi, the dumpling wrappers you rolled are so pretty. Li Mengyao looked at Lin Cixi, her lips slightly raised, and she praised softly. Really? Just now my brother was complaining about the dough I rolled. Lin Cixi pouted and complained dissatisfiedly. Cixi, actually you have done a very good job. If you pay more attention to some details, you can roll it even better. As she said that, Li Mengyao took the rolling pin and skillfully rolled out a dumpling skin that was evenly thick and round in shape. Wow, it's true. Lin Cixi's eyes lit up and she couldn't help but exclaimed. Wife, you are really good at this. Lin Xuan exclaimed after seeing it. Don't underestimate me. I used to go into the kitchen often. Li Mengyao raised her chin proudly, with a confident light flashing in her eyes. And the three of them happily got busy in the kitchen, making dumplings together, chatting and laughing while enjoying this warm moment. Soon, it was noon and Lin Xuan brought up 3 large plates of dumplings. Soon, time passed quietly, and in the blink of an eye it was noon. Lin Xuan brought 3 large plates of steaming dumplings to the table and placed them in front of everyone. These dumplings come in a variety of flavors: shrimp, 3 fresh fillings, corn, pork, mutton, carrots, etc. Each filling exudes an attractive aroma that makes people salivate. Everyone picked up their chopsticks, picked up a dumpling, lightly dipped it in a little vinegar and soy sauce, and then put it in their mouths and chewed it slowly. The delicious taste of dumplings spreads on the tip of your tongue, making you intoxicated. The family sat around the table, eating and chatting, with laughter echoing in the air. After lunch, Chen Shil cleaned up Huang Shifang's room, and everyone went back to their rooms for a nap. Wife, I didn't expect that you have such good cooking skills. The dumplings you make are delicious. Lin Xuan gently hugged Li Mengyao and said softly. Li Mengyao nodded slightly, with a happy smile on her face. Of course, when my mother went out to work, I cooked for myself. After the baby is born, I must taste the food my wife cooks. Lin Xuan raised the corners of his mouth, revealing an expectant expression. Okay. Li Mengyao smiled slightly, with a sweet light flashing in her eyes. However, she then added mischievously. But it's definitely not as delicious as my husband's. But my wife cooks is the most delicious. Lin Xuan lowered his head and kissed Li Mengyao's fair cheek, saying gently. You are just a sweet talker. Li Mengyao blinked her beautiful eyes and said coquetous lie. Chapter 138 Mid-Autumn Festival. In the afternoon, the sun was shining and the sea breeze was blowing gently. Chen Shaolan and Huang Shifang went out shopping together. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao were still lying on the bed, hugging each other, leisurely looking at the beautiful sea view outside the window. Honey, I want to go to the game room to play, Li Mengyao said in a soft voice, leaning against Lin Yuan's face. Lin Xuan looked back at Li Mengyao's cute appearance, couldn't help but stretched out his hand to pinch her cheek, and asked with a smile, okay. What game do you want to play? Li Mengyao blinked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I want to play the kitchen management game. Can I? Isn't that a game of playing house? Lin Xuan said after a moment of hesitation. I don't care. My husband wants to play with me, Li Mengyao said coquetous lie. Lin Xuan nodded, took Li Mengyao's hand, and said with a smile, let's go, your husband will play games with you. The two held hands, walked out of the room, and came to the game room on the second basement floor of the villa. The game room is filled with a variety of game consoles and entertainment facilities, which is dazzling. After Lin Xuan adjusted his seat, Li Mengyao happily walked over to Lin Xuan and sat down, picked up the game controller and was eager to try it out. And Lin Xuan opened a kitchen management game and started playing the game happily with Li Mengyao. At the same time, Lin Sisi walked out of the study room with a tired look on her face, muttering, I'm so tired, I still have so much homework to do during the Mid-Autumn Festival holiday. She complained as she walked towards the villa's kitchen. After entering the kitchen, Lin Sisi picked out a piece of exquisite little cake and happily took it back to the spacious and bright living room. She sat on the sofa, slowly savoring the delicious food in her hand. Just as Lin Sisi was enjoying the food, she suddenly thought that her parents might be out, and her brother Lin Yixuan and sister-in-law were probably still being affectionate in the room. At this moment, an idea flashed through her mind. Now that no one is paying attention, she could secretly play games for a while, and she shouldn't be discovered, right? Thinking of this, a sly smile appeared on Lin Sisi's lips. She quickly finished her cake, wiped her hands, and then couldn't wait to take the villa elevator to the game room on the second underground floor. However, when she pushed open the door of the game room, she unexpectedly bumped into Lin Xuan, who was about to get a drink. Lin Xuan looked at his sister and asked, Lin Sisi, why are you here? Lin Sisi showed an awkward smile on her face. She scratched her head and said, brother, sister-in-law, why are you here too? Lin Xuan rolled his eyes at her happily, raised his hand and tapped her forehead gently. Why can I be here? If I'm not here, will you secretly play on the computer? After that, he put his hands on his hips and sternly lectured Lin Sisi. You are already in the third year of high school, but you still don't study hard, you just play games all day long. Lin Sisi covered her head and stood aside with a wronged look on her face, listening to Lin Xuan's teachings. Hubby, today is Mid-Autumn Festival. It's a rare opportunity to take a break. Let Sisi come over and play with us. At this time Li Mengyao also came over and said with a smile, my sister-in-law is always nice to me. Lin Sisi quickly hugged Li Mengyao's thighs. Wife, just spoil her. Lin Xuan held his forehead and agreed helplessly. Then Li Mengyao took Lin Sisi to the game room and sat down. Sisi, do you want that Xiaomi Su 7? Li Mengyao asked Lin Sisi gently. When Lin Sisi heard this, her eyes lit up instantly and she answered excitedly. Yes. Li Mengyao smiled and said, then when you graduate, sister-in-law will give you the car. Lin Sisi almost jumped up with joy after hearing this. She hugged Li Mengyao excitedly and shouted happily, really? That's great? Sister-in-law, you are the best. However, at this moment, Li Mengyao suddenly said, but it's just for your transitional use. Transition? Lin Sisi looked at Li Mengyao in confusion, not understanding what she meant. Li Mengyao smiled and explained, have you forgotten? Didn't your brother promise to buy you a new car? You can drive this Xiaomi SU7 first and then buy a new car when you are more proficient. Lin Sisi nodded in sudden realization. That's why she knew her brother and sister-in-law would always think of her. But the prerequisite is to achieve good results, Li Mengyao added. She hopes to motivate Lin Sisi to study hard and achieve better results in this way. Okay, Lin Sisi answered without hesitation. Don't worry. Sister-in-law, though my grades are not as good as my brother's, I am still among the best in the grade, Lin Sisi then said confidently. You still have some self-awareness. At this time, Lin Xuan had already taken 3 bottles of drinks and some stacks and placed them on the table. Stinky old man. Lin Sisi muttered softly. Then, the 3 of them began to play games happily and enjoy the happy family time. They laughed and played, filling the entire game room with a happy and warm atmosphere. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye it was evening. The sunset in the sky was reflected on the sea, emitting golden light, as if the whole world was covered with a golden coat. Zhang Xiaolan and Huang Shifang walked back home happily, carrying a big bag of things in their hands. Then Lin Xuan returned to the kitchen and started preparing tonight's Mid-Autumn Festival dinner with Lin Zhangjiuo. Before long, the restaurant was filled with a table of delicious food that made people salivate. A table was filled with a variety of delicacies including steamed hairy crabs, braised lion's head crabs, braised prawns, glutinous rice, lotus roots, and beef brisket stewed with tomatoes, as well as a pot of fragrant mushroom and chicken soup. The whole family sat together happily and enjoyed a delicious dinner. After dinner, everyone went to the viewing terrace on the 3rd floor of the villa. They drank tea, tasted moon cakes, and admired the bright full moon tonight. The moonlight poured down like water, illuminating the seaside and the entire viewing terrace. Chapter 139. Why not? Wife, let's go for a walk on the beach, Lin Xuan said to Li Mengyao with a gentle smile. Okay. Li Mengyao nodded happily. Sisi, do you want to go? Lin Xuan turned his head and looked at Lin Sisi, who was eating mooncakes next to him, and asked. I'm not going. You want me to eat your dog food again? Lin Sisi muttered while chewing mooncakes. Under the night sky, the night at the seaside seems particularly peaceful and beautiful. The stars are dotted in the deep sky, reflecting the sparkling reflections on the sea. The waves gently hit the beach, making clear and pleasant sounds, like a comfortable nocturne. On the distant sea level, a bright full moon hangs high, illuminating the entire sea surface, which is beautiful beyond words. Lin Xuan held Li Mengyao's little hand and came to the beach downstairs of the villa. They strolled along the beach line, feeling the cool water at their feet. Suddenly, a sea breeze blew gently, bringing with it the breath and moisture of the ocean. Li Mengyao's hair fluttered in the wind, and a few strands of hair lightly fell on Lin Xuan's face. She turned her head. Her eyes met Lin Xuan's, revealing her beautiful face. He stared at Li Mengyao blankly, his eyes full of affection. What's wrong, husband? Li Mengyao felt Lin Xuan's burning gaze and couldn't help but smile shyly. She gently combed her hair and smiled sweetly. It's nothing. I just think you are so beautiful, my wife. Lin Xuan gently held Li Mengyao in his arms and gently stroked her hair. Since I'm so beautiful, why did my husband discover me so late? Li Mengyao looked up at Lin Xuan and asked playfully. Lin Xuan was speechless for a moment. Not knowing how to answer. Indeed, it was Li Mengyao who fell in love with him first. Wife, do you want to hear me sing? Lin Xuan quickly changed the subject and said with a smile. Okay. Li Mengyao nodded happily. She especially liked listening to Lin Xuan singing. Then please wait a moment, wife, Lin Xuan said with a smile. Then he called his sister Lin Sisi. Sisi, are the mooncakes delicious? Sisi, are the mooncakes delicious? Lin Xuan asked. Brother, if you have something to say, just say it, Lin Sisi responded bluntly. Go to my room and find the key to the Maybach. Then go to the parking lot downstairs, open the trunk of the Maybach, and help me deliver the guitar inside, Lin Xuan said with a smile. Oh, can't you get it yourself? I won't go, Lin Sisi flatly refused. Not going? Then let's talk it out. Lin Xuan's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a sly smile. Someone tried to play computer secretly this afternoon, and I caught him. If my mother knew about this, I wonder if her butt would be hurt, Lin Xuan continued. Hearing this, Lin Sisi panicked and said with a wronged look on her face, okay. It's not okay for me to go. You stinky brother, just wait for me when you buy me a car. I will rip you off. Afterwards, Lin Sisi reluctantly took the car keys to the parking lot, opened the trunk of the Maybach, and finally found the Martin D45 guitar. She carried her guitar on her back and walked slowly towards her brother. At the same time, Lin Xuan was holding Li Mengyao, sitting on a solid rock, quietly admiring the beautiful scenery around him. Damn brother! Suddenly, a crisp voice came from behind Lin Xuan. He looked back and saw Lin Sisi carrying a guitar and walking quickly towards them. Thank you for your hard work, sister. If you want something for a midnight snack later, I'll make it for you. Lin Xuan took the Martin E45 guitar from his sister with a gentle smile on his face. You only know how to bully your lovely sister. You still have some conscience. Lin Sisi pouted and muttered with dissatisfaction. It's nothing. I'm going back. Lin Sisi said. Let's go back, Lin Xuan said without turning his head. Lin Sisi watched her brother and sister-in-law interacting sweetly on the beach, and couldn't help but wonder, when did her brother learn to play the guitar? As she walked back slowly, she pondered this question secretly, but at the same time she didn't want to eat dog food in front of her brother and sister-in-law, so she trotted back to the villa. After returning to the room, she quickly took out a pair of binoculars, hid behind the window, and secretly observed the situation on the beach. On the other side, Li Mengyao snuggled quietly beside Lin Xuan, feeling his warm breath. Lin Xuan held an exquisite Martini guitar and began to play it affectionately. As the strings are plucked, the melodious melody echoes in the air like the sound of nature, interweaving with the gentle sea breeze to form a beautiful picture. The sky wants to rain. I really want to live next door to you. Standing stupidly downstairs of your house. Lift your head and count the clouds. Summer is almost over. Please buy less ice cream. Don't wear short skirts at dawn. Stop being so naughty. Sing this song for you. No style. It just means, I want to make you happy. Thaw the glacier for you. Be a moth to the flame for you. Nothing is unworthy. A song Why Not is dedicated to Li Mengyao. Li Mengyao listened to the song sung by Lin Xuan and a smile of happiness and satisfaction appeared on her face. At the end of the song, she couldn't help but give Lin Xuan a passionate kiss, and Lin Xuan responded to her enthusiasm without hesitation. When she saw Lin Xuan playing the guitar, she couldn't help but feel surprised. It turns out her brother can actually play guitar. However, when she saw the scene of Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao kissing, her eyes widened and her face flushed. She immediately put down the telescope, ran back to the bed, and covered herself tightly with the quilt. Half an hour later, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned to Yanhae Villa. Lin Xuan walked into the kitchen and started making a midnight snack for Lin Sisi. Although he often teases his sister, he never breaks his promises. Lin Xuan can always do what he promised to his sister. This is also the reason why Lin Sisi listens to her brother very much. Soon, the sound of something frying was heard from the kitchen. After preparing the midnight snack, Lin Xuan gently knocked on Lin Sisi's door. He said softly, "Sister, come out for a midnight snack. I made you your favorite fried chicken. Here I come." When Lin Sisi heard that her favorite fried chicken was available, she immediately forgot what had just happened and ran out of the room excitedly. Chapter 140 Sisi, the class teacher is looking for you. After the Mid-Autumn Festival, Huang Qifeng stayed in Yanhae City for a few days and then prepared to return to Jingshui City. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao chose to stay in Yanhae City because they had to go back to their hometown in Yunshan Town during the National Day holiday. Originally, Shang Xiaolan wanted to stay a few more days, but Huang Qifeng said that the shops in Jingshui City were almost renovated and she needed to go back to take a look. So this morning, Shang Xiaolan carried a large bag of Yanhae City specialties and stuffed it into the trunk of the Maybach. "My dear relatives, that's enough. I can't eat so much by myself." Huang Qifeng hurriedly stopped them. She knew that these specialties were carefully selected by Shang Xiaolan, but she really couldn't eat so much. "Eat slowly, it's okay next time. Let Lin Xuan bring you some specialties from Yunshan Town," Shang Xiaolan said. "After everything is ready." Shang Xiaolan took Huang Qifeng's hand and said, "My dear, let's celebrate every festival together from now on. Now that Li Mengyao has married into their family, Huang Qifeng will have to celebrate the holidays alone from now on. How lonely she will be." "Okay, thank you in-laws," Huang Qifeng said with a smile. She felt Shang Xiaolan's sincerity and concern and was deeply moved. "Mom, husband, be careful on the road," Li Mengyao advised. "Got it, let's go." Then Lin Xuan and Huang Qifeng got into the Maybach. Lin Xuan started the car and slowly drove towards Jingshui City. So, now that Chef Lin is gone and Lin's Ngguo has gone to work, only Shang Xiaolan and Li Mengyao are left at home. So the glorious and arduous task of making lunch fell on Shang Xiaolan. I saw her busy in the kitchen early in the morning, preparing lunch dishes carefully. She tasted every dish herself to make sure it tasted okay for fear that it would not suit her daughter-in-law's taste. Li Mengyao wanted to help several times, but was gently pushed away by Shang Xiaolan each time, who said that her mother could handle it. Soon, there were 3 dishes and a soup on the table. "Mengyao, are you hungry? Come and try my cooking." "No need to wait for Lin Xuan's dad," Shang Xiaolan said with a smile on her face. "Dad should be back soon, so let's wait a little longer." Li Mengyao responded with a smile. As for him, maybe he has already eaten in the company cafeteria. Just as Shang Xiaolan finished speaking, Lin Zhengguo called. "Wife, I can't go home at noon today because there is an urgent matter at work that needs to be dealt with." "Well, then you don't have a good time. I will cook for you myself today," Shang Xiaolan said. "Hang up the phone, wife cooks for you." While Lin Zhengguo was eating the food in the cafeteria, he suddenly felt that the food in the cafeteria was more fragrant now. On the other side, Shang Xiaolan served Li Mengyao a bowl of delicious fish soup. "Mengyao, come and try it." she said with anticipation. Li Mingyao carefully picked up the small bowl, blew on it gently, and then took a small sip carefully. How is it? Shen Xiaolan asked anxiously. Li Mingyao smiled happily and replied softly, Mom, it tastes good. Hearing her daughter-in-law's praise, Shen Xiaolan was as happy as a child and said excitedly, Really? That's great, I knew my cooking skills would be good. Really? Mom? Try it too. Then, Li Mingyao also served Shen Xiaolan a bowl of fish soup. Well, this is the fish soup I prepared with great care. I really want to let that bad boy have a taste of it. Let us see if he dares to doubt my cooking skills in the future, Shen Xiaolan said proudly. Mom, it's really good. Li Mingyao picked up another piece of meat, tasted it, and said with a smile. And eat more from now on, during festivals. Let Lin Xuan bring your mother over so that we can have fun together, Shen Xiaolan said with anticipation. Li Mingyao raised her head and looked at Shen Xiaolan, with ripples of emotion in her eyes. She said in a trembling voice, Thank you, Ma. Oh, why are you crying again? Shen Xiaolan hurriedly picked up the tissue and gently wiped Li Mingyao's tears. Untouched, Li Mingyao smiled. She really feels very happy to have a mother-in-law who takes care of her like this. After lunch, Li Mingyao and Shen Xiaolan went back to their room to rest. In the blink of an eye, it was already around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Lin Xuan returned home, quietly came to the master bedroom of the villa. Li pushed open the door, and saw Li Mingyao lying quietly on the bed, like a sleeping angel. Lin Xuan smiled slightly, picked up his clothes and walked towards the bathroom. After taking a shower, he climbed onto the bed gently and hugged Li Mingyao tenderly. Just as I was about to go to bed, I noticed that the beauty in my arms was trembling slightly. Li Mingyao slowly turned around, her beautiful big eyes blinking with a gentle light flashing in them. Honey, you're back, Li Mingyao said softly, with a hint of surprise in her voice. Lin Xuan smiled and replied, Yes, I just came back. Li Mingyao rubbed her little face against Lin Xuan's chest, like a docile kitten. She said softly, Thank you for your hard work, husband. For the next period of time, Lin Xuan and Li Mingyao lived in Yanha City. Li Mingyao can see the beautiful sea view when she wakes up every morning and is in a very happy mood. She also started practicing yoga every day to keep her body healthy and energetic. In the evening, she would take walks on the beach with Lin Xuan, enjoying the sea breeze and the sound of the waves, and feeling the beauty of nature. Life is so comfortable. One day Li Mingyao suggested going to school to bring meals to Lin Sisi. After all, she was in her 3rd year of high school and was having a very hard time, so she really needed nutritional supplements. Lin Xuan readily agreed. That afternoon, Lin Xuan made a lunchbox that Sisi liked in the kitchen. Afterwards, he drove the Maybach sedan and took Li Mingyao to Yanha one middle school. When they arrived at the school, they first went to the office of Lin Xuan's former high school teacher Qiu Aizu, visiting the teacher while waiting for Lin Sisi to finish class. From the conversation, I learned that Lin Sisi's current senior class teacher is Qiu Aizu. Since the last class was a self-study class, teacher Qiu arranged for someone to call Lin Sisi over. At the same time, Lin Sisi, who was in the classroom, had just finished a set of math simulation questions. She breathed a sigh of relief and felt that she should give herself a small reward. But her cell phone had been confiscated by Shen Xiaolan a long time ago. So she had to borrow a comic book from her deskmate, and began to read it with great interest. Just then, a voice came from her ear. Sisi, the head teacher wants to see you. Chapter 141. Teacher. Do you know me? Lin Sisi was shocked. No way could it be that she had just opened the comic book and she had been discovered. I heard that there are surveillance cameras installed in the school classrooms. I'm done for now, I'll definitely be invited to have tea. Lin Sisi hurriedly stuffed the comic book in her hand back to her deskmate, then walked out of the classroom with heavy steps with an uneasy mood. At the same time, on the other side, Lin Xuan was talking with Lin Sisi's class teacher Qiu Aizu. Teacher Qiu, how is Sisi doing in school? Lin Xuan asked with concern. She is always a little naughty in class. Which is not like you at all, but her grades are like yours. She has always been in the top 10 in the grade. Qiu Aizu replied with a smile. P.S. Why are there always people who don't study hard but still get very good grades? I'm really envious. Just then, Lin Sisi cautiously poked her head out and looked towards the door of the teacher's office. She saw at a glance that her brother was sitting there chatting happily with his class teacher. No way, were the parents notified so soon? Although this is not my first offense, I only read the comic book for a short while this time. No, I have to find a way to escape. Yes. Right now. Just as Lin Sisi was about to turn around and run, she was gently patted on the back. Sisi, why are you lying on the wall? Do you need help from the teacher? A female teacher asked gently. No, I just. Lin Sisi hesitated, not knowing how to answer. Sisi, Li Mingyao saw her the first time she heard the voice. Then Lin Xuan and Qiu Aizu also looked towards the door following the sound. Cece, come here, Qiuizu said with a smile. Lin Cece walked up to them very reluctantly. Thinking to herself, this is over, I will definitely be scolded, I can only take the initiative to admit my mistake and try to get a lighter punishment. Just as teacher Qiuizu was about to speak, Lin Cece suddenly said, Teacher, I shouldn't have read comic books in class. I know I was wrong. Sister, where did you get the comic book? How dare you peek at it in class? Lin Xuan asked in surprise. Aren't you looking for me, just because of this? Lin Cece asked puzzledly. Your brother comes here specifically to bring you meals so that you can replenish your nutrition, Qiuizu explained with a smile. However, you still need to explain to the teacher about the fact that you secretly read comic books in class. Oh, Qiuizu continued. Lin Cece was completely speechless. She had voluntarily surrendered herself. A bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class, and a clear and pleasant voice came from the campus radio. It's time to end the Get Out of Class, teachers and students. Thank you for your hard work. On the campus of UNHA, a cute girl was skipping and jumping in front with a happy smile on her face. Father, you didn't tell me earlier that you were coming to see me, which led to me falling into the trap and being severely scolded by the teacher. Lin Cece turned around and complained with a pout. How dare you say that? You actually dare to read comic books during class? You are so brave. Lin Xuan walked up and gently tapped Lin Cece's head. Then I'll just watch it after class. Lin Cece cleverly dodged, put some distance between herself and Lin Xuan, and said mischievously while sticking out her tongue. Li Mengyao, who was standing by, couldn't help but laugh happily as she watched the brother and sister playing around. Soon, the three of them came to the school cafeteria together and found a quiet corner to sit down. Lin Cece couldn't wait to open her lunchbox. Her eyes suddenly lit up and the corners of her mouth turned up, revealing a bright smile. The bento was filled with delicious food, including the fragrant stir-fried beef with green onions, the golden and crispy fried pistol legs, the aromatic pan-fried cod, the tender and delicious stir-fried broccoli with shrimps, and a tempting soft-boiled egg. There are also some fresh fruits at the bottom of the bento. These are all the dishes that Lin Cece likes to eat, but there is only one thing that she doesn't like, and that is broccoli. It's okay, just don't eat it, Lin Cece thought with a smile, and then started eating happily. I saw her eating meat and rice with big mouthfuls, enjoying the food very much. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao looked at her with smiles on their faces, their eyes full of doting. Brother, sister-in-law, why did you suddenly remember to bring me food? Lin Cece asked vaguely with food in her mouth. Dear sister-in-law said she wanted to give you some nutritional supplements, Lin Xuan replied with a smile. My sister-in-law is still the best to me. Lin Cece smiled contentedly, looked at Lin Xuan, and asked mischievously, what about you? Am I your biological sister? Lin Xuan raised his eyebrows and said, I made this lunchbox spit out what you just ate. After hearing this, Lin Cece stuck out her tongue mischievously and continued to eat. After eating, Lin Cece sent Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao to the school gate. Brother, sister-in-law, please be careful on the road. Lin Cece waved goodbye. Just as the two turned around and prepared to leave, suddenly, a gentle female voice came from behind them. Cece, what are you doing here? Suddenly, a gentle female voice came from behind. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao looked back and saw a young woman slowly walking forward. Her long hair was flowing, silky and smooth, gently brushing against her fresh skin. Her face was fresh and refined. Like a lotus emerging from the water, she was very beautiful. With a graceful figure and beautiful curves, she exuded a charming charm in her every move. Teacher Shen, I'm here to send my brother and sister-in-law back home, Lin Cece replied with a smile. Shen Na is Lin Cece's Chinese teacher in her second year of high school and is also a newly hired teacher. She has a gentle personality, is serious and responsible in teaching, and is very beautiful, so she is deeply loved by students. When Shen Na walked forward and took a look, her heart skipped a beat. Lin Xuan, Shen Na couldn't help but shouted in surprise. Teacher, do you know me? Lin Xuan asked in confusion. At this time, Shen Na stared at Lin Xuan blankly, and her thoughts involuntarily went back to high school. At that time, Lin Xuan was still a sophomore in high school, while she was already a senior in high school. One day after school, she was walking around the campus with a book in her arms, but her thoughts were still on what she had just learned in class. Suddenly a basketball flew like lightning and hit her directly. Students, be careful, someone shouted loudly, but Shen Na was still immersed in thought when she came to her senses. The basketball was already within reach. She was so scared that she closed her eyes. However, at this critical moment, a strong hand quickly reached out and steadily blocked the basketball that was about to hit her. Senior sister, please be careful when you walk next time, Lin Xuan reminded with a smile. Since the school uniforms for the first, second and third year high schools are different, Lin Xuan recognized at a glance that the person in front of him was a senior. At this moment, Lin Xuan had a tall and slender figure, delicate facial features, as handsome as a sculpture, and his face was like a summer breeze, making people feel extremely comfortable. His eyes were as deep as the sea, emitting a confident glow, and he looked like a school idol. Chen Chen stared at the handsome junior in front of her, her heart already beating wildly. Chapter 140 To a Brilliant Idea. From then on, Shen Chen Na fell deeply in love with Lin Xuan, and her girlish heart was completely captured. She began to run frequently from the senior high school classroom to the senior high school teaching building, just to secretly take a look at Lin Xuan. Occasionally, I would have an accidental encounter with Lin Xuan in the cafeteria. However, Lin Xuan, the nerd, was completely unaware of this. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye they all graduated. Chen Na was admitted to a normal university after graduation. She returned to Yunhai City and became a teacher at Yunhai, one middle school. In fact, the reason why Shen Na chose to come back here to work was that she had a small hope in her heart, which was to be able to see Lin Xuan again. However, what she didn't expect was that Lin Xuan now had a woman with a beautiful appearance and elegant temperament by his side. Although Li Mengyao was a little plump due to pregnancy at this time, it did not affect her stunning beauty at all. When Li Mengyao felt Shen Na's malicious gaze, she no longer cared that this was at school. She hurriedly stretched out her little hand and held Lin Xuan tightly, interlocking their fingers. "Teacher Shen?" Lin Cixi waved in front of Shen Na. "Why is my teacher always staring at me?" "Sorry, the teacher was distracted just now." Shen Na came back to her senses and explained to Lin Cixi with a smile. "Lin Xuan, we are alumni. I am 1 year older than you." Shen Na turned around and said to Lin Xuan with a smile, but the smile was mixed with bitterness. When her eyes fell on the woman with a slightly bulging belly next to Lin Xuan, she immediately understood everything. "I don't think I've seen you much," Lin Xuan said, looking at Shen Na in front of him. "Yes, I got to know you because you were very famous in school at that time," Shen Na replied. Hearing this, Li Mengyao smiled and said, "Husband, it seems that you are quite famous in school." However, behind this seemingly bright smile, there is a hint of imperceptible jealousy. Lin Xuan smiled complacently and said, "It's just so-so." Before the laughter died down, Lin Xuan felt a sudden sharp pain in his waist and his face instantly became distorted. Lin Xuan's face suddenly became ferocious. He turned his head and looked at Li Mengyao with wide eyes, only to see her snort lightly and turn her head away. "Then we'll go back first. Cixi, be a good boy in school next time," Lin Xuan reminded her while enduring the pain. "I know." Lin Cixi nodded obediently. Then Lin Xuan took Li Mengyao's hand and slowly walked out of the gate of Yunhai, one middle school. Shen Na behind him kept looking at their departing backs, as if she wanted to put an end to this unrequited love in this way. After Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned to the car, he started the Maybach and asked in confusion, "Wife, why did you suddenly pinch me just now?" Li Mengyao rolled her eyes at him and said, "Can't you see that she likes you?" Lin Xuan was confused, scratched his head and said, "No way, I haven't even seen her." "Oh, silly husband. Please go home quickly, I'm hungry," Li Mengyao sighed. The two then returned home. Lin Xuan prepared another sumptuous dinner. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye it was already late at night. After taking a shower, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao lay on the soft big bed. At this time, Li Mengyao was lying lazily on the bed, holding a mobile phone in her hand, her fingers gently sliding across the screen. Suddenly she thought of something, her eyes fixed on the words entered in the search box. What should she do if her husband is too handsome and easily becomes unfaithful? Many answers popped up on the screen immediately. For example, give your husband a beating to teach him a lesson. Li Mengyao shook her head gently. This was not a good idea as it would make her feel bad. For example, you can dress your husband up to look ugly and have him wear the most tacky clothes when he goes out. Li Mengyao sighed softly. This wouldn't work. Her husband still had to be handsome. Another one is to plant strawberries on your husband's neck. When Li Mengyao saw it, her eyes lit up. This seemed like a good idea. At this moment, Lin Xuan gently hugged Li Mengyao from behind and asked softly, "Wife, how did you know that teacher Shen likes me?" Li Mengyao turned around, looked at Lin Xuan leisurely, and replied, "This is a woman's intuition, and I can feel the way she looks at you. But I don't like her. Why are you pinching me? It hurts." Lin Xuan started to act pitiful. Li Mengyao smiled and comforted him. "It's better to take precautions before it happens, but now I have come up with a brilliant idea." After saying this, a sly smile appeared on her lips. "What method?" Lin Xuan asked with a puzzled look. "That's right. I want to plant strawberries all over my husband's neck." Li Mengyao raised the corners of her mouth and revealed a sly smile. "Wife, don't." Soon, Li Mengyao planted 5 strawberries on Lin Xuan, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and 1 in the middle. These 5 strawberries are arranged very symmetrically and look very cute. "It's finally done." Li Mengyao looked at her masterpiece contentedly and nodded with satisfaction. Lin Xuan picked up his phone and looked in the mirror, a smile on his face. "Wife, you seem to have forgotten something." Li Mengyao asked happily. What's the matter? Mom and Dad can see strawberry too, Lin Xuan said with a smile. Li Mengyao was stunned for a moment, her pretty face flushed red. Chapter 143 Getting on the Thief's Car. In the next few days, Lin Xuan became the focus of everyone's attention. Every time someone curiously asked about the marks on his neck, Lin Xuan would always proudly point to Li Mengyao next to and proudly declare that this was the masterpiece of his wife. Li Mengyao couldn't help but blush with shyness, and she wished she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. My husband is so shameless. So in the next few days, Li Mengyao forced Lin Xuan to wear high-necked clothes, otherwise she would not let him go out. In the blink of an eye, it is October and the National Day holiday has arrived. At afternoon, Lin Xuan drove a luxury Maybach sedan and took Li Mengyao to the school to pick up Lin Sisi after school. Because Lin Sisi is in her senior year of high school and has a heavy workload, she only has 3 days of vacation even during the National Day holiday. The Maybach drove smoothly on the road and finally stopped steadily at the gated Yunhai 1 middle school. A luxury car will become the focus of everyone's attention no matter where it is. Many parents and students turned their eyes to the Maybach sedan worth millions, and some even took out their mobile phones to take pictures. Not long after, Lin Sisi ran out of the school happily carrying a small and cute school bag, and got into the Maybach without hesitation. She sat in her seat, looking around the car, and couldn't help but sigh. Wow, this car is so spacious. Then, she asked Lin Xuan curiously, brother, what kind of car is this? Why is it so cool? Lin Xuan smiled and replied, this is a Maybach. At this time, Lin Xuan turned around and said to Lin Sisi with a smile, sister, I have good news and bad news to tell you, which one do you want to hear first? Hearing this, Lin Sisi immediately became interested and replied excitedly, of course I want to hear the good news first. So, Lin Xuan told her, your sister-in-law brought the cell phone you've been longing for. Really? My sister-in-law is so nice to me. When Lin Sisi heard this, she jumped for joy, and couldn't wait to take the phone and said happily. She continued to ask, fiddling with her phone, what about the bad news? Lin Xuan smiled and replied, the bad news is that my family needs to go back to our hometown for 3 days, which happens to take up your entire National Day holiday. I finally get a day off, Lin Sisi complained. In rural areas, people are never as happy as in urban areas. At this moment, Lin Sisi muttered to herself that she must find a place to hide after returning to the villa. However, her thoughts were quickly seen through by Lin Xuan. Sister, stop thinking of anything crooked, we are driving directly to our hometown. Mom and Dad have already left in advance. Hearing this, Lin Sisi was stunned for a moment. It took her a long time to come back to her senses and realize that she had gotten into a stolen car. No, I have to find a way to open the door and escape. But when she tried to open the car door, she found that it had been welded shut. Seeing this, Lin Xuan burst into laughter. Don't waste your energy, sister. The car door has been welded shut. Lin Sisi gnashed her teeth in anger, glared at Lin Xuan fiercely, and said viciously, stinky brother, just wait and see. So the Maybach started slowly and drove towards Yunshan town. An hour and a half later, the Maybach drove into the small villa in Yunshan town. At this time, they saw that Lin Zhengjiuo's BMW 8 Series was parked there steadily, and next to it were an Audi A and a QX50 M9. Afterwards, Lin Xuan also parked the Maybach aside. Everyone got off the bus. Lin Sisi asked curiously, brother, is uncle back this year too? Lin Xuan's uncle and his family all do business in other places. Yeah. Let's go in. After Lin Xuan finished speaking, he took Li Mengyao's hand and walked into the gate of the villa with Lin Sisi. Grandpa and Grandma. We're back, Lin Xuan shouted happily as soon as he entered the door. Xuaner is back. When Grandma heard the voice, she immediately came over. And Sisi and Mengyao, please come in and sit down. Grandma greeted everyone warmly with a smile on her face. After everyone came to the living room and sat down, Li Mengyao saw Lin Xuan's uncle's family at a glance. Lin Xuan's uncle is named Lin Zhengyao and his wife is named Wang Jingyi. In addition, there are Lin Zhengyao's son Lin Ke, his wife Shang Yuelin, and a lovely little girl. Lin Xuan, I haven't seen you for a few months, and you actually got married without telling your uncle, Lin Zhengyao said with a smile. Yes. It seems that our Lin family is going to have a new member, Wang Jingyi said with a smile as she looked at Li Mengyao's slightly bulging belly. Brother, please introduce it to us quickly. Lin carriaged curiously. This is my wife, Li Mengyao. Lin Xuan introduced her to everyone with a smile. Hello, Li Mengyao greeted everyone with a gentle smile on her face. My sister-in-law is so beautiful, Shang Yuelin praised her generously. Thank you, sister, you are very beautiful too. Li Mengyao raised the corners of her mouth slightly, revealing a sweet smile. Cousin Lin Ke was a few years older than Lin Xuan. He and Shang Yuelin are both in their 30s, but they still look young and energetic. Lin Ke and Lin Xuan are somewhat similar, While Shan Yuan is very beautiful, they also have a lovely daughter named Lindsay Eqi. As there were too many people in the family, Grandpa invited a chef from the village to cook at home. Everyone enjoyed the sumptuous dinner with gusto. After dinner, Shan Yuan took the initiative to find Li Mengyao. She was a very proactive and cheerful person. After a short while, the two of them were chatting enthusiastically. Shan Yuan also shared with Li Mengyao a lot of experiences and suggestions about the late pregnancy. At this time, Lindsay Eqi opened her big round eyes and stared at Li Mengyao's belly curiously. Seeing this, Li Mengyao took out a candy from her pocket and handed it to Lindsay Eqi. Lindsay Eqi took the candy and smiled happily. Looking at the happy family in front of her, she smiled happily. It's really a happy feeling. Chapter 144. It seems that the baby doesn't like daddy's kiss. The next day, after the family finished breakfast, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao said they were going out for a while and disappeared without a trace. Not only that, Lin Ke and Lin Sisi also disappeared. Then she sat quietly in the living room, feeling a little bored. At this moment, Shan Yuan quietly walked to Li Mengyao and sat down gently. Sister-in-law, are you curious about where Lin Xuan and the others are going? Shan Yuan asked with a smile. Well, sister, do you know where they went? Li Mengyao asked expectantly. I know they go to the same place every time they come back. Shan Yuan smiled mysteriously. What place is that? Li Mengyao asked curiously. Let's go and take a look now. As Shan Yuan spoke, she took Li Mengyao's hand and walked out the door. The two talked and laughed along the way, as if they were a pair of close sisters. Not long after, they arrived at the door of a game hall in the town. Walking into the game room, Li Mengyao saw Lin Xuan, Lin Ke and Lin Sisi at a glance. I saw Lin Xuan and Lin Ke standing together with Lin Sisi, who looked excited. In between them they were concentrating on playing arcade games. Brother, your level has dropped a bit, Lin Ke said. I haven't played for a long time, so I feel a little rusty, Lin Xuan said. Hey, why didn't you wait for me? I almost died, Lin Sisi shouted. Li Mengyao also smiled happily after seeing it. She silently picked up her phone, took a picture, and then went back with Shan Yuan, without disturbing her husband from experiencing the joy of his childhood. Later, when Lin Xuan and his friends came back, they specially bought some Yunshan pastries to bring back. Time quickly came to night. After washing up, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao lay on the soft big bed, ready to fall asleep. Honey, let me show you something. Li Mengyao suddenly raised her head and handed a photo on her mobile phone to Lin Xuan. Lin Xuan took the phone curiously and saw that it was a photo of him secretly taken while he was playing games during the day. He couldn't help but smile and asked, when did my wife come? Sister Lin and I came here quietly and left quietly. Li Mengyao winked mischievously, looking at his wife's skewed appearance. Lin Xuan couldn't help but go up and give her a kiss. Li Mengyao said, "Coquette this lie. What's wrong, wife?" Lin Xuan asked with concern. The baby kicked me just now, Li Mengyao said with surprise. At this time, she was nearly 6 months pregnant and the fetal movements became more frequent. It seems that the baby doesn't like daddy's kiss, so he kicks. Li Mengyao blinked her elegant eyes slightly, revealing a hint of playfulness. Nonsense, the baby must be kicking because he is too happy. Lin Xuan retorted seriously, and then couldn't help but move over and wanted to kiss Li Mengyao again. No, Li Mengyao smiled and turned her face away, rejecting him mischievously. Lin Xuan's kiss failed, but he did not give up. Instead, he continued to launch a sweet offensive against Li Mengyao. The two of them played happily on the bed, full of warmth and happiness. 2 days later, because Lin Sisi still had to go to school, Lin Xuan's family prepared to return to Yanha City. Lin Sisi's trip was not in vain, as she received 2 generous red envelopes. One is a blessing from my uncle, and the other is a token of my cousin's love. Everyone hopes that Lin Sisi can get good results in next year's college entrance examination. On the way home, Lin Xuan was driving the Mavic and was in a particularly good mood. He turned to look at Lin Sisi, who was sitting in the back row, and teased, "Sister, give me one of the red envelopes. After all, I was the one who brought you back." "No, they're all mine," Lin Sisi said with a pout. "Husband, you are such an adult. But you still fight with your sister for red envelopes," Li Mengyao said with a smile. "That's right, sister-in-law. You don't know, my brother used to cheat me out of my New Year's red envelopes." Lin Sisi took the opportunity to complain. "How much did your brother cheat you of?" "Their sister-in-law will reimburse you," Li Mengyao said generously. "Really, sister-in-law? You are the best," Lin Sisi said happily. After returning to Yanha City, Lin Sisi went back to school for evening self-study that night. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao also returned to Jinghai City after the National Day holiday. After Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned to Jinghai City, they prepared to go to Jinghai People's Hospital for a 6th-month pregnancy checkup the next morning. The two arrived at the hospital early and started to undergo examinations. During the 6th month of pregnancy, the main examinations include ultrasound examination, blood routine, urine routine, glucose tolerance test, blood pressure monitoring, fetal heart rate monitoring. At Clinch1 accompanied Li Mengyao to complete each examination, his heart full of anticipation. When all the examinations were completed, the doctors smiled and told them, "The babies are developing well and are very healthy. They are 6 months old now and will need to come to the hospital for a checkup every 2 weeks." At night, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao slept in each other's arms. Lin Xuan gently patted her back and asked softly, "Wife, have you not slept well recently?" Now, Li Mengyao's belly is getting bigger and bigger, making it difficult for her to turn over in sleep, which seriously affects her sleep quality. "Well, my stomach feels heavy now and it's not easy to turn over," Li Mengyao said. Lin Xuan looked at his wife in his arms, distressed Li, and comforted her. "Thank you for your hard work, my dear. Everything will be fine after the baby is born." At this moment, the system's voice came again. "Ding dong, congratulations to the host for completing the baby's 6th month pregnancy checkup." Then, the system announced a new reward. The future technology ergonomically designed pregnancy pillow will be delivered tomorrow. After using it, the mother will be able to have a good sleep every day. Hearing this news, Lin Xuan was in a good mood and immediately said to Li Mengyao, "Wife, I will buy you a pregnancy pillow tomorrow, so that you will sleep more comfortably." "Okay." Li Mengyao smiled slightly, leaned in Lin Xuan's arms, and gradually fell asleep. Lin Xuan looked at his lover in his arms, a happy smile on his face. He slowly closed his eyes and fell asleep together. The next morning, Lin Xuan opened his eyes, stretched, then walked out of the room and into the living room. When he first saw the big maternity pillow placed in the middle of the living room, he couldn't help but feel excited. He walked quickly forward and carefully observed this pregnancy pillow designed with futuristic technology. It is like a warm embrace, with rounded curves and layers of soft padding, making people feel endless comfort and peace of mind at first glance. Lin Xuan first stepped forward and tried it. He sat down carefully, and his body slowly sank into it, feeling the unique sense of comfort. He closed his eyes, enjoying the tranquility, and thought to himself, "This is really great." After a while, Lin Xuan stood up with a satisfied smile on his face. He immediately picked up the maternity pillow and returned to the bedroom. As soon as he entered the bedroom, he gently woke up Li Mengyao, who was still sleeping, and said gently, "Wife, wake up quickly and try this pregnancy pillow." Li Mengyao slowly opened her eyes and looked at Lin Xuan sleepily, not understanding why he was so excited. Lin Xuan smiled and placed the maternity pillow on the bed, and carefully helped Li Mengyao and let her lie down gently. Li Mengyao lay on the maternity pillow, closed her eyes slightly, and felt her body surrounded by the soft filling. She suddenly felt extremely comfortable. She couldn't help but sigh and said, "Wow, honey, this feels so good. It's like my stomach doesn't feel heavy anymore." "That's good, honey, you continue to sleep for a while. I'll go make breakfast," Lin Xuan said with a smile. "Wait a minute, I'll give you a kiss as a reward." Li Mengyao suddenly reached out and grabbed him, put her arms around Lin Xuan's neck, and kissed him lightly on the lips. Chapter 145. My wife hasn't washed yet. After the kiss, Li Mengyao fell asleep, hugging the maternity pillow with a sweet smile on her lips. Lin Xuan sat quietly beside the bed, gazing at her face tenderly, feeling her even breathing, his heart filled with warmth and love. His eyes gradually shifted to Li Mengyao's bulging belly. The babies would be born soon. At this moment, a thought suddenly flashed through Lin Xuan's mind. It seemed that he had not taken maternity photos with his wife yet. And Lin Xuan quietly walked out of the bedroom, aimed to the sofa in the living room, took out his mobile phone to search for nearby photography studios. Time passed quickly, and when the sunlight poured into the room through the window, Li Mengyao finally woke up from her sweet dream. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, stretched, and then slowly sat up. When Lin Xuan heard the noise, he immediately walked into the bedroom. He looked at Li Mengyao's cute appearance after she woke up, and couldn't help but said with a smile, "Wife, you're awake." And he walked over to the bed and sat down, gently stroking her hair. Li Mengyao nodded slightly with a lazy smile on her face. Lin Xuan looked at her and said softly, "Wife, let's go out for a walk later." Li Mengyao blinked and asked curiously, "Where are you going?" Lin Xuan smiled mysteriously. "Let's go check out the photography company." Li Mengyao looked up in surprise and asked in confusion, "Why do you suddenly want to go to the photography company?" Lin Xuan gently held her hand and explained seriously, "I want to take maternity photos with you, my wife." When Li Mengyao heard this, her eyes lit up instantly and her face was filled with joy. "Honey, I'll reward you with another kiss." After saying that, she happily hugged Lin Xuan, gave him another kiss with a smack. "My wife hasn't washed up yet," Lin Xuan deliberately teased. "It's okay, you like it anyway, husband." Li Mengyao rolled her eyes. He used to like to hug her and kiss her in the morning without washing up. Now when it's her turn to kiss him, he says he hasn't washed up. Then Li Mengyao slowly got out of bed and prepared to wash up. Lin Xuan also followed her into the bathroom and helped her tidy up her clothes. After a while, after washing up, they came to the restaurant to have breakfast. Lin Xuan carefully peeled eggs and handed milk to Li Mengyao, while Li Mengyao enjoyed this care with a happy look on her face. Li Mengyao ate her food in small bites while looking up and asking, "Honey, which photography company should we go to?" Lin Xuan replied, "I have already chosen a photography company with a good reputation, called Xing Xing Photography. It is very famous in Jinghai City and many people have recommended it." After breakfast, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao returned to the bedroom and dressed up carefully. After the two of them had packed up, Lin Xuan drove Li Mengyao to Xing Xing Photography Company. Soon, a black Maybach arrived at the door of Xing Xing Photography Company, the most famous company in Jinghai City. After Lin Xuan parked the car, he took Li Mengyao's hand and walked in. When you come to Xing Xing Photography, the simple and elegant decoration style gives you a fresh and comfortable feeling. The spacious and bright reception hall and the artistic windows display wonderful photography works. "Welcome, both of you. Are you here to take maternity photos?" A young female salesperson greeted us enthusiastically with a smile on her face. When she saw Li Mengyao's bulging belly, she immediately understood why they were there. "Yes," Lin Xuan replied with a smile. "Okay, please follow me," said the female salesperson. Guiding Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao into the reception room, she took out a beautiful brochure about the company's maternity photography product package and handed it to them. "You two can take a look at our package first, which includes sample photo albums, clothing catalogs and scene layout drawings," said the female salesperson. "Okay." Lin Xuan took the introduction book and started reading it with Li Mengyao. They looked carefully at each page, admiring the beautiful photos and the different styles of maternity clothes. After some discussion, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao finally decided on a more expensive package and selected several styles they liked. Next, they followed the saleswoman to the clothing room. The place is filled with all kinds of clothing, from traditional to modern, from elegant to fashionable. Moreover, these clothes are all brand new and of high quality. They can freely choose clothing styles that suit them according to their personal preferences and body size. These carefully selected clothes will be given directly to customers as souvenirs after the photo shoot. However, the cost of these clothes is actually included in the package price. Li Mengyao carefully examined the clothes on display. Frowning slightly. "Wife, what's wrong? Is there any problem?" Lin Xuan keenly noticed the change in her expression and asked with concern. "Honey, can we prepare the clothes ourselves, instead of buying them here?" Li Mengyao said softly. "Why?" Lin Xuan asked with some confusion. "Because I think if I buy the clothes myself, the package price may be more affordable," Li Mengyao explained while gesturing with her small hands. "After all, this package costs a full 50,000 yuan. Hello, may I ask, if we bring our own clothes, can the price of the package be reduced?" Lin Xuan asked the female salesperson with a smile. "Well, you can. But I still recommend that you use the clothes we provide, so that the photos you take will be better," the saleswoman replied enthusiastically. "No need. I believe in my wife's vision. Well, if you don't choose our clothing, the original cost of 50,000 yuan can be reduced to 30,000 yuan. The female salesperson looked at Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao and said. Hearing this, Li Mengyao was overjoyed. She thought that it wouldn't cost much to buy it online, and after giving birth to the baby, she would basically not wear maternity clothes anymore no matter how she thought about it. It didn't seem cost effective. She was secretly pleased with herself, as she had saved her stupid husband another 20,000 yuan. Afterwards, the two continued to visit the various real scenes built by the photography company. Each scene was beautifully decorated, making people feel as if they were in a different world. They were all very satisfied with these real scenes. In the end, Li Mengyao happily paid the bill and then set off on the journey home with Lin Xuan. Li Mengyao was in a particularly happy mood, humming a cheerful song at the same time. She took out her mobile phone and searched for clothes on Taobao, ready to go shopping. "Wife, what makes you so happy?" Lin Xuan asked with a smile. "I have saved my stupid husband another 20,000 yuan. Of course I'm happy," Li Mengyao replied with a happy smile on her face. Lin Xuan smiled after hearing this, although he no longer needed the 20,000 yuan. It was enough to make his wife happy. Chapter 146. My wife is so frugal. Lin Xuan and Xing Xing Photography Company agreed on a shooting time 1 week later, so Li Mengyao bought a lot of clothes online in the past few days. It wasn't long before the clothes were delivered. "Wife, the clothes you bought have been delivered." Lin Xuan staggered back home carrying a bunch of express deliveries. Seeing this, Li Mengyao hurried forward to help tidy up. They moved all the deliveries to the dressing room and the master bedroom. "Thank you, husband." Li Mengyao leaned forward and kissed Lin Xuan affectionately, then sat on the ground and began to open the express packages one by one. Lin Xuan also sat down to help. Soon, all the express parcels were opened, containing clothes of various styles. Then, the two began to try them on. I have to say, my wife has really good taste. The clothes she picked were very simple and fashionable, and coupled with their outstanding looks, they looked like models. At night, it was late and quiet. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao lay on the soft bed and prepared to sleep. Wife, I found that the clothes you bought for me are much more expensive than yours, Lin Xuan asked doubtfully. When he tried on clothes, he found that his own clothes were all brand names, while his wife's were relatively cheap. Li Mengyao smiled and explained, yes, because the clothes I buy for my husband can be worn all the time, and they are of good quality and can be worn for a longer time. But I'm wearing maternity clothes now, and I probably won't wear them much after I have the baby. So there's no need to buy something too expensive. How come my wife is so frugal and thrifty? Lin Xuan lowered his head and kissed the tender red lips, smiling. I can't help it, my husband always spends money lavishly, so of course I have to be frugal. Li Mengyao pouted cutely. Wife, let me touch your belly and see how the baby is, Lin Xuan said softly, with a happy smile on his face. Okay, Li Mengyao nodded slightly, then slowly revealed her round pregnant belly. She closed her eyes quietly, enjoying the warmth and sweetness of the moment. Lin Xuan carefully stroked Li Mengyao's belly, feeling the baby's movements. The time came for the maternity photo shoot. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao came to Xing Photography Company with the clothes they had prepared. They first came to a pastoral country-style studio. Lin Xuan wore a light blue denim shirt and khaki casual pants, looking fresh and handsome. Li Mengyao wore a light blue denim maternity skirt with a white cotton top, looking fresh and cute. In front of the backdrop of a country cottage, the breeze blew gently, and Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao stood in the middle of the garden. Then Lin Xuan gently placed his hand on Li Mengyao's waist and stroked her bulging belly with the other hand, his eyes full of love and expectation. He gently kissed Li Mengyao's forehead, while the latter placed her hands on her bulging belly, her face blooming with the gentle glow of a mother. And her smile was as bright and moving as a flower blooming in the shed. Then, they walked into a studio filled with a retro atmosphere. Lin Xuan wore a brown corduroy suit jacket, paired with dark brown trousers, and a retro tie, making him look particularly handsome. Li Mengyao wore a brown corduroy maternity dress with delicate white lace trim on the neckline and cuffs, exuding a unique charm. In this retro study, Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao sat at the desk. Lin Xuan picked up a thick book and read it softly to Li Mengyao. Li Mengyao leaned quietly on Lin Xuan's shoulder, a happy smile on her face. Afterwards, they came to a photo studio with a Chinese home style. Lin Xuan changed into a dark red Chinese robe, which was embroidered with exquisite golden ragan patterns, showing his dignity and majesty. Li Mengyao wore a red Qiangzhem dress for pregnant women. The golden embroidery on the Qiangzhem added a sense of gorgeousness and exuded an elegant temperament. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao sat on a Chinese-style red solid wood sofa, leaning against each other tightly and smiling sweetly at the camera. Later they also went to some beautiful real locations outside to shoot, including seaside forests and other places. These places add more natural and romantic elements to the photos. After a day of hard shooting, the maternity photos were finally taken. A week later, Xing Photography Company delivered the finished photo album. Lin Xuan and Li Mengyao opened the photo album together at home. It was filled with their happy moments. Every photo was so beautiful. Both of them had satisfied smiles on their faces. Suddenly, the system voice sounded again. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for accompanying the baby's mother to complete the maternity photo shoot. Reward. Top fighting master skills, please check. Chapter 147 Wife. I will try to come back as soon as possible. Suddenly, it was as if a door to a new world opened, and countless world-class fighting skills flooded into Lin Xuan's mind like a tide. Every movement and every technique was so clear that Lin Xuan's body seemed to be opened up with his Ren and Du meridians, allowing him to quickly master various top-level martial arts. In the blink of an eye, Lin Xuan has become a top fighting master. Lin Xuan had experienced this top fighting master for 10 minutes before, and he was quite powerful. Because the amount of information brought by this system reward is so huge, Lin Xuan needs to sit on a sofa, seemingly in a daze. But in fact he is trying his best to digest this information. Honey, here is another carefully selected photo for wall hanging. Li Mengyao picked up the photo happily, with joy flashing in her eyes. This wall photo shows Lin Xuan wearing a deep red Chinese robe, while Li Mengyao is wearing a bright red maternity Qiangzhem dress. They sit together in the living room, creating a warm Chinese home atmosphere. Husband? Seeing that Lin Xuan seemed still in a daze, Li Mengyao approached him mischievously and gently left a kiss on his cheek. At this moment, Lin Xuan finally came back to his senses and stared at Li Mengyao with a smile. My wife actually kissed me secretly, Lin Xuan teased. How can it be considered a secret kiss when I kiss my own husband? Li Mengyao snorted and responded, Cocathus lie. And I want to kiss you back, Lin Xuan said with a wicked smile. After saying that, he reached out and wanted to hug Li Mengyao. But Li Mengyao had already expected him to do so, and she quickly dodged and cleverly avoided Lin Xuan's hug. She playfully stuck out her tongue at Lin Xuan and said, "Cocathus lie, no." And she picked up the wall photo and walked happily into the master bedroom. After a while, Li Mengyao's tender voice came from the room. "Abi, come and help me hang up the photo." Lin Xuan raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a doting smile, and responded, "Coming?" He walked quickly into the master bedroom, took the wall photo from Li Mengyao's hand, and carefully hung it on the wall of the master bedroom. After hanging up the photos, Li Mengyao looked around carefully and nodded with satisfaction. Lin Xuan took this opportunity to quietly hug Li Mengyao from behind and kissed her hard for a while. It is November now, the weather is getting cooler. The leaves are starting to turn yellow, and autumn is gaining momentum. Li Mengyao has been pregnant for 7 months. As the baby grows, her belly becomes bigger and bigger, making it more and more inconvenient for her to move. Now, she often feels back pain. Her lower limbs are severely swollen, and even walking is a little difficult. Lin Xuan saw it and felt pain in his heart. In order to relieve Li Mengyao's pain, he would often massage her waist and legs to make her feel more comfortable. Lin Xuan would often accompany Li Mengyao to the park downstairs to take a walk and breathe fresh air. That morning, the sunlight shone through the window onto the bed, waking Li Mengyao up. She slowly opened her eyes, only to find that her belly was bigger than before, like a small hill. She tried to look down at her feet, but no matter how hard she tried, she could no longer see her toes as before. Her mood suddenly dropped. Tears welled up in her eyes, and her face was full of grievance. When Lin Xuan heard the noise, he quickly ran over from the kitchen and asked with concern, "Wife, what's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere, or did the baby kick you?" As he spoke, he gently stroked Li Mengyao's belly. Li Mengyao raised her head, looked at Lin Xuan with tears in her eyes, and said pitifully, "I used to be able to see my feet when I lowered my head, but now I can't see them at all. My stomach feels so heavy." Lin Xuan hugged Li Mengyao distressed lie and comforted her softly. "Don't be sad, honey, there are still 3 months left. And it will be over soon when the baby is born. Everything will be fine." Li Mengyao nodded, snuggled in Lin Yuan's arms, feeling his warm breath. This is how pregnant women are, especially in the later stages of pregnancy. When they see the changes in their bodies, they will have some small emotions. At this moment, Lin Xuan's cell phone, which was placed on the bedside, suddenly rang urgently. He picked up the phone and saw the 3 words, "Liu Wen," on the screen. Previously, Lin Xuan's communication with Liu Wen was basically completed online. Now that he received a call from Liu Wen, he guessed that an emergency might have occurred. He picked up the phone and said, "Hello, Mr. Liu?" Liu Wen responded, "Director Lin, is it convenient for me to talk on the phone now?" Lin Xuan lowered his head and saw his wife in his arms, leaning her little face closer to him, eavesdropping on their conversation without any concealment. He smiled and said to Liu Wen, "It's convenient, just tell me what you want to say." Liu Wen explained, "It's like this, our company is currently competing for a large project worth 200 million yuan, but the other party clearly stated that the chairman must personally participate in the negotiations, so?" Lin Xuan immediately understood what he meant and asked, "Is it the project of the Liu Group in the capital?" Lin Xuan had already learned about this when he was reading company documents before. Liu Wen replied, "Yes, so we need to go to the capital to negotiate with them." Lin Xuan couldn't help but frown after hearing this. This was a critical moment in his wife's pregnancy, and he really didn't want to leave her alone. This trip will definitely take at least 4 or 5 days. After hearing this, Li Mengyao's eyes flashed with disappointment, but it was quickly covered up by a smile. She gently pulled the corner of Lin Xuan's clothes, then looked up at him with a smile. "Mr. Liu, I will reply to you later." Then he hung up the phone. "Wife, what's wrong?" Lin Xuan looked at Li Mengyao gently and asked, "Honey, are you going on a business trip?" Li Mengyao gently stroked Lin Xuan's cheek with her tender little white hands and asked in a very gentle tone, "Yes, but I don't want to go. I just want to stay at home with you," Lin Xuan said as he held Li Mengyao's hand. "Hubby, you better go, the whole company is waiting for your good news. Besides, I'm not due to give birth yet, so I can let my mother come and take care of me," Li Mengyao said with a smile. But Lin Xuan was still a little hesitant. "No buts," Li Mengyao interrupted Lin Xuan. "Hubby, don't worry, I will take good care of myself and the baby. What should I do if my wife is too gentle and virtuous? Of course, I will reward her with a kiss." After an unknown amount of time, their lips finally parted. "Wife, I will try to come back early." Lin Xuan looked into Li Mengyao's eyes, with a determined light flashing in his eyes. Li Mengyao smiled and nodded, and said softly, "Well, come on, husband." Chapter 148. This is such great luck. At noon, Lin Xuan made a delicious seal rice for Li Mengyao. The fresh eel is carefully grilled, exuding an enticing aroma, paired with soft, glutinous and sweet rice, and served with Lin Xuan's special secret sauce, making the whole dish taste richer and more varied, leaving you with an endless aftertaste. Honey, I won't be used to the food after you go on a business trip. Li Mengyao scooped a mouthful of rice and deal meat and stuffed it into her mouth, with a happy smile on her face. Husband will be back soon. Lin Xuan smiled gently, her eyes full of doting. Yeah. Li Mengyao nodded happily and continued to enjoy the delicious lunch. Wife, feed me. Lin Xuan opened his mouth slightly and said to Li Mengyao in a coquettish manner. Don't you have one too? Li Mengyao asked, puzzled why, looking at the motionless seal rice in front of Lin Xuan. My wife's is more fragrant. Lin Xuan replied with a smile. Li Mengyao looked at him speechless, but still obediently scooped a spoonful of eel rice and put it into Lin Xuan's mouth. Delicious. Lin Xuan said contentedly while chewing. Do you want your husband's? Yes. In this way, the two of them finished their lunch, taking turns to eat. And the two returned to the bedroom to take a nap. Honey, when are you going? Li Mengyao asked in a soft voice, touching Lin Xuan's abdominal muscles with her small hands. Tomorrow. Lin Xuan pinched Li Mengyao's little face and said. After saying that, Lin Xuan buried his face in Li Mengyao's neck and sniffed the charming fragrance emanating from her body. Wife, let Xin come to accompany you in the afternoon. I'll go pick up Mom. Lin Xuan continued. It takes about 8 hours to go from Jinghai City to Jingshui City and back. He was really worried about Li Mengyao being alone at home for so long. Li Mengyao raised her little face proudly and said confidently, I can take good care of myself. Lin Xuan smiled slightly and explained patiently. Be good, baby, but hours is not a short time. You still need someone to accompany you to feel at ease. Besides, today is the weekend, she should not have to go to work. 8 hours was indeed too long. And she and her best friend Liu Xin hadn't seen each other for a while, so they could take this opportunity to have a good chat. Okay, I'll ask her. And Li Mengyao took out her mobile phone and opened the chat box with Liu Xin. Xin, are you there? Soon. Liu Xin replied, Yao Yao, did you finally remember me? Woohoo! I just came back from overtime. Do I have to work overtime on weekends? Li Mengyao asked in surprise. Yes, I have lost all desire to live, Liu Xin answered helplessly. Then, Xin, you should have a good rest, Li Mengyao said with concern. What's wrong? Yao Yao? Liu Xin asked with concern. It's nothing, I think you can come and keep me company in the afternoon if you have time. Li Mengyao said. Yes, wait for me, I'll ask for leave right away. Liu Xin agreed without hesitation. Xin, forget about asking for leave, your boss might have a bad impression of you. Li Mengyao reminded her worriedly. What a crap leader, I've disliked him for a long time. My Yao Yao comes first. I haven't touched Yao Yao for a long time, Liu Xin said with a wicked smile. Stop talking, Li Mengyao said shyly. Yao Yao, wait for me. Liu Xin hung up the phone happily and prepared to ask for leave. Li Mengyao thought to herself. This stinky Xin, she is so old but still not serious, she should find a boyfriend to teach her a lesson. Wife, what did Xin say? Lin Xuan asked with concern. She took a leave of absence in the afternoon and came here, Li Mengyao answered gently. If I take a leave, do I have to work on weekends? Lin Xuan asked doubtfully. Well, she said she often works overtime on weekends, Li Mengyao said. And I'll talk to her later about whether she wants to come to work in my company, Lin Xuan said. Although he occasionally has to work overtime at his Jinhua Technology Company, it is not very frequent, and the benefits are very good. Well, baby is sleepy, Li Mengyao yawned and narrowed her beautiful eyes. She leaned her head on Lin Xuan's shoulder, feeling his warm embrace. Even though there was a pregnancy pillow between the two of them, it did not affect their intimacy with each other. Lin Xuan looked at his wife, who was gradually falling asleep in his arms, his heart filled with happiness and satisfaction. He patted Li Mengyao's back gently, hoping to help her sleep more peacefully. Finally, Lin Xuan slowly closed his eyes and fell asleep with Li Mengyao. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Lin Xuan was preparing dinner for Li Mengyao and Liu Xin in the kitchen. He chopped and cooked vegetables skillfully, and the kitchen was filled with aroma. Li Mengyao sat on the sofa in the living room and read quietly. At this time, Yu came over and meowed at Li Mengyao. It rubbed its body gently against Li Mengyao's legs, as if seeking attention. Yu, are you hungry? Li Mengyao put down the book in her hand and stroked Yu's head. Didn't we just have lunch, kitty? Don't be too greedy, or you'll become a cat teacher, Li Mengyao said with a smile. They picked Yu up from the pet shop the day after they returned to Jinghai City. Ding dong! The doorbell rang crisply. Li Mengyao happily got up and walked to the door. She looked at the surveillance camera and after confirming that it was her good friend Liu Xin, she opened the door. Xin, you're here. Oh my god. Yao Yao, your belly is so big? Liu Xin originally planned to give Li Mengyao a warm hug as usual, but when she noticed Li Mengyao's big belly, She immediately stopped. She's pregnant with 2 babies. Li Mengyao smiled and gently pulled Liu Yuxin into the house. 2? Good man, this is really unlucky. Liu Yuxin sat on the sofa, her eyes wide open with a surprised expression. Don't talk nonsense. Li Mengyao tapped Liu Yuxin's head cockathiously. What luck? Lin Xuan's voice suddenly sounded. And he walked out of the kitchen. Nothing. Li Mengyao's face turned red. Chef Lin. I'm here to eat again. What do you have for dinner tonight? Liu Yuxin said with a smile. I have already prepared dinner for dinner. You can just heat it up and eat it. I'm sorry to trouble you to take care of Mengyao during this time, Lin Xuan said with a smile. Liu Yuxin patted her chest and assured. No problem, leave it to me. However, Li Mengyao suddenly remembered something and couldn't help but chuckle. Xin, have you forgotten that you blew up the electric cooker in college? Chapter 149 Plant strawberries before going. These words made Lin Xuan shudder all over. Liu Yuxin wouldn't blow up my kitchen, would she? That was really just an accident. Who knew it would explode for no apparent reason? Liu Yuxin explained with a blushing face. Yuxin, why don't you go back now? I'm afraid you will blow up the kitchen. Lin Xuan said worriedly. The kitchen exploded, but it was a big deal if my wife got hurt. No, Liu Yuxin said firmly. Honey, don't worry, I'll be here when the time comes. Li Mengyao said with a smile. Li Mengyao can still do just heating up the food. Okay then, but you must be careful. Lin Xuan warned worriedly. Well husband, you go quickly and be careful on the road. Li Mengyao reminded gently. By the way, what is for dinner today? Liu Yuxin asked expectantly when she smelled the fragrance wafting from the kitchen. Lin Xuan. Afterwards, Lin Xuan went out in a hurry. Before going out, he did not forget to kiss Li Mengyao sweetly for a long time at the door. Are you tired? We've been kissing for so long. Liu Yuxin sat on the sofa, looking at Li Mengyao who came back from the door with a smile. Not tired, Li Mengyao answered shyly with her cheeks slightly flushed. Hearing this, Liu Yuxin couldn't help but feel a little regretful. She felt that she was asking for trouble and was being fed a lot of dog food. Then, Li Mengyao and Liu Yuxin sat in the living room, drinking juice leisurely and chatting happily. Yeah, you don't know. Our leader is simply a devil. We are asked to work overtime every day, even on weekends, and they also do PUA and make empty promises all day long. If I don't do my job well, I will be scolded. I am really fed up with this crappy class. Liu Yuxin began to complain incessantly, pouring out all her miserable experiences. Li Mengyao listened with great interest. After all, she had never worked before. Until the end, she smiled and said to Liu Yuxin. Xin. If you really can't stay here, you can consider coming to my husband's company. However, Liu Yuxin sighed helplessly and responded. Alas, I also want to come, but my father doesn't agree. She had wanted to go to Jinwan Technology Co. Limited before, but her father was the general manager there and he refused to go, saying that he wanted to avoid suspicion. Otherwise the employees would gossip about it. It's okay, my husband told you to come to his company to work at noon, Li Mengyao said. Really? I love you so much, Yao. Liu Yuxin happily rushed towards Li Mengyao and hugged her gently. It was 11 o'clock in the evening, and it was late at night. Li Mengyao and Liu Yuxin were watching a movie on the sofa. Suddenly, Liu Yuxin excitedly poked Li Mengyao next to her. Yao, look, the most exciting part is coming. Okay, got it, Li Mengyao responded, moving her eyes away from the watch screen and looking at the TV. However, after just a glance, she lowered her head again and focused on the pink diamond technology watch in her hand that was flashing pink light. Looking at the location, my husband should be back soon. 10 minutes later, Li Mengyao keenly caught a familiar sound coming from the door of her house. The sound of the password lock being unlocked. She immediately stood up and walked slowly towards the door. The door opened. Lin Xuan smiled and said softly, I'm back. He immediately saw his wife standing at the door to greet him with a happy smile on her face. Welcome home. Li Mengyao walked forward and responded gently. Mom, why are you carrying so many things again? Li Mengyao couldn't help but complain when she saw her mother Huang Shifang carrying big and small bags. Not much. These are all for your nutrition. Huang Shifang walked in with a smile on her face. At the same time, her eyes began to look around the house. This is another large flat of 200 square meters, and it is in Jingha City where every inch of land is valuable. Hello, Auntie. At this moment, Liu Yuxin stood up and greeted Huang Shifang with a smile. Hello, you are Yuxin, right? Huang Shifang responded gently. Yeah, Liu Yuxin nodded slightly. I used to hear Mengyao mention you often. She said that she was very happy in college thanks to your care for her. Huang Shifang said with a smile. Mengyao and I are good friends, we always take care of each other, Liu Yuxin replied with a smile. But Auntie brought some specialties from Jingshui City, take some and try them. As she spoke, Huang Qifeng took out a Jingshui roast chicken and handed it to Liu Yuxian. Wow, thank you, Auntie. Liu Yuxian happily took the gift. It's getting late, Lin Juan is back. I should go back. Liu Yuxian said and looked at the time. Okay, do you want Lin Juan to take you home? Huang Qifeng asked with concern. No, I drove here, Liu Yuxian replied with a smile. Yao Yao, let's play next time. After saying that, Liu Yuxian waved to everyone and turned to leave. After watching Liu Yuxian leave, Lin Juan cleaned up a guest room for Huang Qifeng. It was getting late, so everyone went back to their rooms to rest. Li Mengyao nestled in Lin Juan's arms and asked softly, Honey, what time is the flight tomorrow? Lin Juan stroked Li Mengyao's hair and said gently, It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Li Mengyao hugged Lin Juan tightly and said, Cocathus lie. I can't bear to part with you before we even separate. I'll solve it as soon as possible, Lin Juan comforted with a smile. Li Mengyao raised her face and said, Cocathus lie. I heard that there are many beautiful young ladies in the capital, husband. You can easily get involved in peach blossoms. You still don't trust your husband? You need to punish me. Lin Juan grinned wickedly, held Li Mengyao's cheeks with both hands, and then kissed her on the lips. Well, of course I believe in my husband. Then why are you still talking? Lin Juan let go of Li Mengyao's lips with a faint smile on his lips. I just don't trust them, Li Mengyao pouted, with a look of dissatisfaction on her face. My husband is so handsome, there must be many women who had bad intentions towards him. What should we do then? Lin Juan smiled heartily. Grow some strawberries before you leave. Li Mengyao looked at him with her watery eyes blinking. Chapter 150 Lifesaver. At 7:30 the next morning, Lin Juan and Li Mengyao stood at the door, hugging each other, their eyes full of affection and reluctance. Come on, husband, Li Mengyao said softly, her voice revealing endless tenderness. Okay. Lin Juan smiled slightly. The two kissed for a while before separating. Then Lin Juan turned and left. Husband, if another woman approaches you, show her the strawberries I planted and tell her that you are married, Li Mengyao suddenly shouted. She remembered the faint strawberry stains left on Lin Juan last night. But because she was attending a formal occasion, it was not too obvious. I know, wife. Lin Juan turned around with a smile and waved to Li Mengyao. Li Mengyao kept staring at Lin Juan until he turned the corner and disappeared from her sight. She then slowly returned home and gently closed the door. Then she went to the balcony again and watched Lin Juan's figure gradually moving away. After Lin Juan left Jinwan Mansion, he hailed a taxi and went all the way to the airport in Jinghe City, where he met up with Liu Wend and Zhang Zesheng. The three of them will travel together to the capital, Jingcheng, in first class. During the flight, Lin Juan took a beautiful photo of the blue sky and white clouds through the window and sent it to Li Mengyao. It's so beautiful. I want to fly on a plane after my baby is born. Okay. Husband will take you to sit. The plane flew steadily in the blue sky and white clouds. After about 2 hours, it finally landed safely at the Beijing airport. After the three got off the plane, they came to a hotel near the Liu Group. MRLN. Our meeting with Liu Group is scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Liu Wen reminded. Okay, I understand. Lin Juan nodded in response. Zesheng, you need to check the technical aspects carefully to see if there are any loopholes, Lin Juan said to Zhang Zesheng. Okay, no problem, Zhang Zesheng responded. Then, the three of them went into their respective hotel rooms to rest. Lin Juan had just laid down when the cell phone beside the bed suddenly rang. He picked up his phone and took a look. It was a video call from his wife. Wife, you come to check on me so soon? Lin Juan smiled and clicked the answer button, and a beautiful face immediately appeared on the screen. No, I just miss you. Li Mengyao smiled and her voice came softly. I miss my wife too. Lin Juan raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a happy smile. Honey, have you just returned to the hotel? Li Mengyao asked. Well, did my wife eat well? Lin Juan asked with a smile. Yes, I had delicious meat buns this morning, and I plan to eat some at noon. In this way, Lin Juan and Li Mengyao started chatting on their mobile phones. It didn't end until we finished lunch and prepared for a nap. It was afternoon, and Lin Juan, Liu Wen and Zhang Zesheng went to Liu Group together. When they arrived at the Liu Group building, they were amazed by the scene before them. This high-rise building is majestic and magnificent, with a glittering glass curtain wall inlaid on its exterior under the sunlight. It reflects dazzling light, which is dazzling. As expected of a large group company in Beijing, it is quite luxurious. The three of them walked into the gate of the group company and immediately felt a strong business atmosphere. In the spacious and bright hall, there is a constant flow of people, busy figures moving around. Afterwards, they were led to a conference room by someone and began to discuss project matters. A person in charge of negotiating with them was a man in his 40s, Liu Qiming, a general manager of Liu Group. As this project is of vital importance, the general manager personally lead a professional team to participate in the negotiations. Ling Xuan, Liu Wen and Zhang Zexing sat down in the conference room. Mr. Liu, we are very honored to come to Liu Group. This is our company's plan for this project, please take a look, Lin Xuan said with a smile. Liu Wen then handed the plan to Mr. Liu. Mr. Li took the plan with a smile and then looked through it carefully with the team. MRLN, I'm glad that you can bid for our project, but several large companies have already bid for it, said Mr. Yes, Mr. Liu. But I believe that our plan will definitely satisfy you, Lin Xuan replied confidently. Well, your proposal is indeed very novel, and it can be seen that you have done a lot of homework. However, your company is relatively small, and for a large enterprise like ours, choosing a cooperative approach requires comprehensive consideration of various factors. Therefore, we need to have a deeper understanding of your strength and capabilities, Liu Qining said with a smile. Mr. Liu, although our company is relatively small, our technical team is absolutely top-notch. They are all elites in the industry with rich experience and expertise. Moreover, it can be seen from this project plan that our company is fully capable of undertaking your company's project, Lin Xuan explained patiently.